Nero, walking alongside Jiras, laments the difficulty of their journey, noting how even the path itself seems to resist their passage. He continues, explaining that the world itself feels like it's trying to stop them, as if it's become a place where even breathing is a struggle. The young boy then points out a weathered sign, stating that they can't just turn back now, not after coming so far. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Jiras responds with a sigh, acknowledging that even if they wanted to, there's no going back. Their conversation is cut short as they round a bend, discovering a horrific scene. The path ahead is strewn with bodies and the wreckage of what appears to be a recent massacre. The grim reality of their world is laid bare before them, with fallen figures and broken debris painting a picture of utter devastation. Nero stares down at one of the lifeless forms, his expression hardening as he realizes the true cost of the world's decay. Jiras finally secures the cart wheel, letting out a sigh of relief, having barely managed to fix it. The woman beside him, holding the crying baby Sarah, expresses her exhaustion with their desolate journey, admitting she's sick of this place, as Sarah's wails begin. Sarah's wails continue, echoing the grim reality of their surroundings. The sight of a small, lifeless body, pierced by arrows, underscores the brutal landscape they traverse. Sarah's cries persist, a constant reminder of innocence amidst the horror. Jiras, his expression hardened, mutters that the sooner Sarah leaves this world, the better it would be for her, as the woman looks on with concern. The woman gasps, clutching Sarah tighter. Jiras reaches out, his hand moving towards the infant. The woman holds Sarah close, the baby's cries still piercing the air. Jiras, silhouetted against a vibrant sunset, asks Nero if he wishes to hear the story of a slave, one who, unlike the boy, would never know joy. Nero, however, simply smiles, seemingly oblivious, while a gentle-faced woman dismisses Jiras' words as just another one of his curses, leaving Jiras with a serious expression as Nero sleeps peacefully. For days later, inside a humble dwelling, Jiras kneels before Nero, gently touching his head as he asks if the boy is still upset. The two lie together in a small bed, sharing a quiet moment. The woman, her face etched with concern, checks on Nero, murmuring a soft honey. She then reassures herself, stating that she's grown accustomed to other children. Jiras, his expression resolute, instructs Nero to follow him. The two stand over the small, lifeless body of an infant, a chilling sight, as a narration box reveals that this grim curse was wrought by their grandmother's ancestor. A towering stack of ancient books and scrolls fills a dark, confined space, hinting at forgotten knowledge or the origins of the curse. Jiras continues his explanation to Nero, delving into their family's past, asking the boy if he understands the fate of slaves unable to wield a weapon or a tool. As Nero admits his confusion, Jiras reveals a book, explaining that slaves are forbidden from touching either weapons or books, prompting Nero to question why such a restriction exists. With a serious expression, Jiras clarifies that everyone in this world is, in essence, a slave, leading Nero to instinctively suggest fighting back against their oppressors. Jiras then emphasizes that true change in the world always begins with the combination of a weapon and a book, a profound statement he makes while holding an open text. And Nero's eyes widen in understanding as Jiras explains that when the world inevitably shifts, the masters are often unwilling to adapt alongside it. Holding a closed book, Jiras reveals that their grandmother's grandfather had foreseen this eventual transformation of the world. And with a determined look amidst the towering bookshelves, he explains that this is why his ancestor prepared this very place, ensuring his descendants would be ready for the coming upheaval. Jiras then extends the book to Nero, recalling a promise that if he were to read it, he would become a soldier and finally achieve freedom. As Nero holds the book with a look of awe and trepidation, Jiras' voice rings with conviction, declaring that the world will indeed change. A man collapses in a field, his body hitting the ground with a soft thud. His face, now still and pale, bears a faint trace of blood, a silent testament to his demise. In a distant memory, a young Nero looks up, a question forming in his mind as a hand reaches for a book, the thought echoing, "Someone happened to him." A simple wooden marker now stands in the field, a stark reminder of what was lost. Later, Jiras stands over a young Nero, placing a small object on the ground, a quiet sob escaping him. He offers a small bottle to the boy, his voice devoid of warmth as he states, "You were a sickly guy. That's what you get for not taking your medicine." Then, a cold farewell. But the memory shifts to a furious confrontation, a woman holding a child, her voice trembling with accusation. "It was you, wasn't it? We were going to sell him and go to buy some medicine." Jiras' face hardens, his finger jabbing the air as he retorts, "Humph. What do you mean? Do you think I still regret being unable to buy you at the auction house?" The woman's face contorts in anguish, her eyes wide with despair as she cries out, "It was you who put poison in his medicine." He lets out a weary sigh of relief, having just finished the difficult task of fixing a broken cartwheel. But his relief quickly turns to rage, and he violently kicks the woman, sending her sprawling as she screams curses at him. His face contorted in fury, he ignores the terrified cries of the young boy. The child reaches out a desperate hand, trying to intervene. Jiras grabs the woman by her hair, his fist raised, as she defiantly reminds him of her status as property of the Barras family, warning him of the consequences should he damage her. Tears stream down her face, but his hand remains poised to strike. Finally, he lowers his hand, deciding to stop for now, adding a cruel remark about her poor health as he turns to walk away. A chilling sneer spreads across his face. He continues to walk, musing aloud about who wouldn't sell a damaged slave without a husband. A few days later, a grand estate stands under a clear sky, as Jiris stands with a woman before a young girl, instructing her, "Sarah, come over here and greet him. He is your new master." The man's face twists into a cruel smirk, while the woman's eye reflects a deep, resigned fear. A scene witnessed by a distraught Nero, who cries out, "Mom! Mommy! Mommy!" As Jiris roughly pulls his mother away, the young boy scrambling desperately after them. Her face streaked with tears, mirroring the anguish etched onto his own. He is held back by unseen hands, a stark reminder that he must never get in front of them, as his mother is led further away. Still struggling, still calling out, "Mom!" His voice breaking into a desperate whisper, "Mom!" A woman's face contorts in anguish, her eyes wide with terror as a single word escapes her lips. Meanwhile, young Nero stands amidst a silent crowd, his own small voice echoing her plea, his gaze fixed on something unseen, a profound sorrow etched onto his features. The memory flashes back to a time when he was even younger, clinging to his mother, both of them weeping, her arms a fragile shield against an unseen threat. He recalls holding baby Sarah, their tiny faces streaked with tears, a shared innocence shattered by an unknown sorrow. The memory shifts to a moment of pure, unadulterated rage, a system message flashing in his mind. "Unnamed me," followed by a chilling declaration, "She was my property. It's up to me to decide." Jiris stands over Nero's kneeling mother, dismissing her worth to a silent crowd, proclaiming, "I'm not a murderer. She was the same cost of a horse." He leans down, his face contorted in a sneer, demanding of the young boy, "Are you telling me my property is still alive? You are Jajar." The scene softens to a quiet moment, Nero's mother cradling baby Sarah, both peacefully asleep, the soft rustling of fabric the only sound. But the peace is shattered as a hand reaches into the frame, accompanied by more rustling, and a chilling question hangs in the air. "Nero, do you know what?" He clutches a glowing object, tears welling in his eyes, as the narrative voice ponders what all masters of this world truly fear. It is a profound change in the world, and that transformation always begins with two fundamental things: a weapon and a book. A swift, resonant blur cuts through the air. As Nero lunges forward, his dagger poised for a precise strike. The blade descends with incredible speed, impacting its unseen target with a dull thud, the dagger embedding itself with a grating sound. Later, the young boy sits on a ladder in a quiet library, a green pendant resting on his chest as he gazes down, deciding which book to delve into next. "I'm going to read this one," he declares, pondering his choice. Outside the house, a voice reminds them, "You two should sleep in your own bed." As Elijah is placed in the same room, Jiris expresses his deep regret over past choices, unable to bear the thought of someone else suffering a similar fate, while Nero, lying beside him, urges him not to repeat those mistakes. Looking intently at the boy, Jiris vows to do whatever it takes to ensure Nero never has to endure what he did, his words hanging heavy in the air as Nero listens silently. With a serious expression, Nero reveals there are three distinct paths they could take, prompting Jiris to ask for clarification. The first option, Nero explains, involves finding a way to return to the capital and simply living their own lives. But Jiris immediately counters, reminding him of their dire lack of funds, as golden coins shimmer across the vision. The second path, he continues, would be to pledge allegiance to the country and strive to achieve a ministerial rank, a gleaming sword appearing as a symbol of such service. Jiris quickly dismisses that possibility, prompting Nero to move on to the final option. Nero then names academia as their last resort, a concept Jiris doesn't recognize. Nero clarifies it's an academy, while a narration box reveals the current emperor was once a slave, hinting at the academy's significance, an academy from which even Emperor Murin himself graduated. A large, red, winged vessel soars through the sky. 1 year later, the rhythmic thud of horse hooves echoes across the land. As news spreads of a significant event, the kingdom has flourished, and a lord is now arriving to visit the future junior of Excanum. Emperor Murin, astride his steed, offers a formal apology, acknowledging his year-long absence due to pressing matters. He explains his priority was to visit the father of Kundin, who he considers a paternal figure, before making his way to the young heir. Looking down at the young boy, Murin remarks on his growth, surprised by how much Kundin has matured. Kundin, standing before an attendant, expresses his honor at meeting the emperor. Murin dismisses the formality, stating his visit is informal, but Kundin insists he come inside, noting the emperor's long absence and busy schedule. Placing a hand on Kundin's head, Murin reiterates his simple desire to see the place where the young heir grew up and to meet the future junior of Excanum. Kundin, with a cheerful hoo-hoo, agrees, inviting Murin to lead the way to the place where his own father used to play. Kundin gazes upward, his expression thoughtful as sunlight streams down upon him. The light filters through the dense leaves of a towering tree, a place Murin recognizes as his childhood haunt. Standing beneath its massive branches, Lord Logan asks if this is what people call a tree house. He preferred the embrace of nature itself over being confined within a tree, a sentiment Kundin often echoed. Just like his father, Kundin admits his own love for playing in nature, even planning to build a tree house right there, prompting Logan to remark on their striking resemblance. As Logan holds a glowing purple orb, he observes that Kundin can already feel the mana, a clear sign of their shared bloodline, while in the distance, small elephants trumpet and stir. The ground trembles with a low rumble, as ripples spread across a nearby body of water. Logan explains that he often visits this tranquil spot to relieve stress, his gaze fixed on the glowing orb as Kundin watches intently. Suddenly, the peaceful moment shatters as a group of armored guards rushes in, surrounding them with weapons drawn. Lord Logan, clad in his heavy armor, lunges forward with his sword, the metallic clang of his movements echoing through the air. But before he can strike, a sudden impact sends him flying backward, his body arcing through the air as massive horned beasts emerge from the shadows. He tumbles helplessly, surrounded by the aggressive creatures below. Their heavy hooves pound the earth, ready to crush him. Suddenly, a young voice cries out, and Kundin thrusts his arm forward, a wave of vibrant purple energy erupting from his palm. The powerful blast slams into one of the beasts, creating a blinding explosion of light and force. Kundin stands over the injured Logan, his expression urgent as he warns him to leave before he gets hurt further. Despite the warning, Logan's hand closes around the hilt of his golden-bladed weapon, his grip firm and resolute. With a surge of power, crackling blue lightning engulfs the blade, ready to unleash its fury. As the horned beasts charge forward with a thunderous rumble, Lord Logan stands firm, shielding Nero with his body. Amidst the chaos, Nero's eyes flash with an intense violet glow, a nascent power stirring within him. The beasts continue their relentless advance, their heavy hooves pounding the earth. Still, Lord Logan stands resolute, with Kundin watching anxiously from behind, as the monstrous forms draw ever closer. He glances back at Kundin, who calls out to him, a worried father, escaping his lips. Lord Logan's gaze hardens, then shifts to Nero, whose eyes still burn with that strange violet light, a silent gasp escaping him. With a grave expression, Logan begins to speak, his words a profound revelation. Listen carefully, Nero. Even though you're my son, you weren't born from us. The scene shifts to a memory, where Jiras kneels before a younger Nero, explaining, your real father was an elf, and he had already died. As Jiras places a comforting hand on the young boy's shoulder, he continues, the incredible power that you possess is all because. He holds a glowing green orb, his gaze fixed on the man before him, as the question hangs in the air. Are you a half-elf? The man, Jiras, turns away, a beast's roar echoing in the distance, and asks if he had perhaps forgotten to explain, just as the creature's cry intensifies. The horned beast lets out a guttural, purple-tinged roar, its fury palpable. Before anyone can react, the creature's unseen force sends the young boy flying, catapulting him high into the air. He arcs helplessly through the sky, hurtling towards a nearby rooftop. With a splintering crash, he smashes through the wooden tiles. Jiras shields Sarah, watching in horror as the boy continues his uncontrolled descent, plummeting towards the ground below. He hits the earth with a heavy thud, a cloud of dust erupting around him. Lying amidst the debris, the boy struggles to breathe, his body aching from the impact. As he kneels before the small, horned creature, a voice from the past echoes, asking how he intends to communicate with animals. The beast seems to respond, almost mockingly, offering to teach him how to become one of them, while he recalls the harsh truth that animals are not the kind of people who feed them. Meanwhile, the Emperor's stern gaze appears, his thoughts drifting to a past encounter. He ponders the young boy's motivations, wondering what reward he might have been hoping for after protecting the Emperor. The memory of the Emperor's question seems to weigh heavily on the boy's face, his expression a mix of pain and resignation. The beast's attack has left him sprawled on the ground, a heavy thud echoing as the creature stands menacingly over his injured form. Another voice, Jiras's, cuts through the memory, his thoughts focused on the boy's unusual eyes, wondering if they hold any power to store the Emperor's strength. As Nero struggles on the ground, Jiras's voice continues, dismissing his potential to the Emperor, stating that the boy has no such effect. The Emperor's voice then confirms the boy's true nature, a half-elf, a fact he wished he hadn't noticed, while Jiras adds that the boy's communication with animals suggests a possessive nature. A powerful figure, radiating authority, stands over him, a glowing weapon clutched in his hand, declaring that a slave holding a weapon is an act of treason. With a heavy boot planted firmly near the cowering child, Lord Logan asserts his dominance. His face set in a grim, unyielding expression, he delivers a chilling sentence. Nero is to be sent immediately to the slave mines, condemned to labor for the rest of his life to atone for his treason. As the weight of his fate settles upon him, Nero's eyes widen in abject terror. Under the pale glow of a crescent moon, the world lay shrouded in a deep, unsettling darkness. Silhouetted against the dim sky, a dense forest of pines stood sentinel, their forms stark and uninviting. Through this desolate landscape, a weary procession of captives trudged onward, their fate uncertain as they were led by unseen forces, a monstrous, green creature slithering ominously nearby. Bound and exhausted, young Nero's voice broke the silence, asking, "Are we there yet? Where are we going? I want to go home." But Jiras, his face etched with resignation, simply urged him to give up. Jiras reiterated the futility of their situation, stating, "It's no use. No one will protect us." Nero, still clinging to a sliver of hope, wondered if anyone was preparing for their arrival, only for Jiras to reveal their destination. It's a magic city in Azerbaijan. Blindfolded, Nero remained silent, his thoughts unreadable, while the narration explained that magic orbs were known to be extremely rare items. Elsewhere, young Sarah wept, lamenting, "It's no use, we're not strong enough to do anything. We're just slaves now." But Kundan, sitting beside her, fiercely rejected the idea, insisting they had to run away and return to their village for their parents and Nero. Suddenly, a loud shriek echoed as an unknown man roughly grabbed Sarah, pulling her away from Kundan. The rough-collared man, a slave trader, dismisses the time spent, haggling over the price of 2 children, offering a mere 300 gold. The bearded man, his potential buyer, expresses his desire for strong slaves, while the trader retorts, wary of being scammed by someone who only deals in small-scale transactions. Meanwhile, Nero and Kundan huddle together in terror, their young faces etched with fear as the price for their lives is raised to 450 gold. The rough-collared man, still hesitant, expresses his doubts about the children's value. Finally, the bearded man settles on 600 gold, asserting that a strong male slave would fetch a higher price, but this is his final offer. A piercing scream of anguish escapes Nero, his small body trembling with despair. Nearby, Sarah and Kundan stand together, holding hands, their faces etched with a profound sorrow, sensing the impending separation. But before they can even process it, a hand violently grabs Sarah's arm, tearing her away as Nero watches in helpless shock. The bearded man, now holding a whip, stands over Nero, chastising him for his outburst and reminding the boy of his own weak heart. The force of the blow sends him sprawling, a sharp pain erupting as the trader's weapon connects, the man's voice a harsh reprimand for his defiance. The group of traders and their captives stand in a tense silence, the air thick with unspoken threats after the display of violence. Suddenly, a guttural growl rips through the quiet, a monstrous maw appearing from the shadows, dripping with menace. Tied and helpless on the ground, the boy can only stare in horror at the approaching threat, while Jiras curses their misfortune, recognizing the grave danger. One of the traders, quick to react, draws his bow and sends a glowing arrow streaking towards the beast. The monster lets out a piercing shriek as multiple arrows find their mark, piercing its hide with sickening thuds. As the chaos subsides, the traders turn their anger on Jiras, accusing him of attracting the monster and fearing the trouble it will bring. His face splattered with blood, the young boy stares wide-eyed at the unfolding disaster, a single, desperate thought echoing in his mind. He cannot die here, not in a place like this. Under the pale moonlight, a man in a red tunic calls out to another figure, asking if his master is still awake, then inquires about his purpose for being there, while another man on horseback formally greets a third, expressing his gladness to see him doing well after a long time. Meanwhile, the harsh realities of their journey weigh heavily on the minds of the guards, as one grimly notes that they should be accustomed to such losses by now, with 3 having succumbed to hunger and 1 to a crazed beast. The commander of the force, his face etched with frustration, curses the poor quality of their provisions, lamenting that if they were to be given forage, it should at least be in good condition. His gaze then falls upon Nero, who remains tied up and injured, dismissing him and the others as nothing more than weak and useless. Turning his attention to his men, the commander barks orders for them to stop standing around, demanding they hurry to grab the packages and line up. Later, as he moves through a settlement, the commander explains his mission to gather children, intending to take them to the capital to become soldiers, believing it to be a good thing for them. A young man approaches him, offering to become a true reward if allowed to join the administrative force, eager to prove his worth. Suddenly, a sharp, metallic sound rings out, as a sword is swiftly drawn or swung. Deep within the mines of Excanum, a place where the sun never shines and the moon is the only witness to the suffering of its people, Jiras looks down at the small figure beside him, a sigh escaping him as he mutters, "Oh dear, what a waste." His face contorts with a mixture of frustration and weariness, the scars on his cheek standing out against his grim expression. With a powerful, practiced motion, Jiras brings his pickaxe down. A surge of pink energy flares around him and the tool as he channels his strength, a guttural cry of Ki, escaping his lips with the effort. The pickaxe strikes the rock face with explosive force, shattering it with a brilliant pink impact. The sheer power of the blow sends a shockwave through the cavern, causing Nero to recoil with a pained grunt. Jiras stands over the boy, who clutches his shoulders in agony, demanding, "Pickaxe properly? Did you want to die?" Still on the ground, the child looks up at him with wide, pleading eyes, begging, "No, please spare me." A sharp, agonizing cry escapes Nero, his face contorted in pain and shock. Deep within the cavern, a pulsating purple energy begins to glow, casting an eerie light across the rough-hewn walls, its ominous hum filling the air. As the light intensifies, a group of miners spots a monstrous silhouette emerging from the depths, one of them shouting to prepare for battle. Yet, even with the looming threat, Jiras stands over the fallen Nero, berating him for his perceived weakness, while the young boy, still reeling, can only weakly protest their enslaved status. Without hesitation, Jiras delivers a brutal, energy-infused kick, sending Nero flying through the air with a violent impact. The force of the blow creates a cloud of dust and debris, as other miners recoil in shock, one of them frantically calling out to grab Holden. Meanwhile, the monstrous entity fully emerges from the shadows, a towering, green-skinned beast with glowing red eyes, letting out a deafening roar. The commander of force, standing alongside a masked miner, stares at the creature, admitting he's never seen anything like it before. Jiras, now turning his attention to the true threat, furiously demands the terrified miners to attack, his voice echoing with desperate urgency. Jiras's harsh training methods are momentarily forgotten as the commander of force, sword drawn and stained, violently forces a young recruit to face the monstrous threat, shouting that it doesn't matter, they just need to swing. He commands the terrified miners to fight, his voice echoing through the cavern as he yells for them to engage the creature. Frustration contorts his face as he curses Samuel's absence, realizing the Empire won't send aid for a single monster. The cave monster lets out a deafening roar, its green eyes glowing with malevolent energy, causing a miner to scream in terror as an axe is dropped. Amidst the chaos, Nero and Jiras flee from the monstrous entity. But Nero, clutching his pickaxe, suddenly changes direction, turning to confront the creature, which looks on with a puzzled expression. Nero, having made his decision, charges forward, his small frame a blur against the monstrous bulk of the cave creature, which lets out a guttural roar. With a swift, decisive motion, he brings his pickaxe down. The crude tool finds its mark, embedding itself deeply into the monster's thick, scaly arm. A sharp crack echoes through the cavern, as the monster recoils from the unexpected blow. Having delivered his strike, Nero turns and sprints away, leaving the wounded creature behind him. Meanwhile, back in the village, Jiras stands before a building, listening to a voice that tells him to reconsider his stance. From a nearby doorway, an elderly couple and 2 children, including Sarah, peer out with worried expressions, observing the exchange. Jiras and the children look towards the elder man, awaiting his decision under the moonlit sky. The elder's face is etched with the weight of responsibility, his gaze firm as he considers the words spoken to Jiras. From the depths of the cavern, the monstrous cave dweller lets out a guttural sound, its glowing red eyes fixed on an unseen presence, demanding to know, "What is your name?" Meanwhile, in a different part of the caves, the commander of the force stands before Nero, inquiring about his combat skills. "Where did you learn to use a sword?" Nero, ever direct, replies that his ability with a blade was precisely what allowed him to reach this place. Impressed, the commander declares, "You're an interesting fellow. From today onwards, you'll be part of the squad." Both Nero and Jiras, standing nearby, exchange a look of utter surprise at this unexpected turn of events, their expressions mirroring the sudden shift in the young man's fate. The commander informs his subordinate that the boy's guard duty is merely a temporary assignment, and he will revert to being a slave once accustomed to the cave and its dangers. His companion remarks that it is still preferable to a lifetime in the mining cave. His heart pounding with excitement, Nero expresses his profound gratitude. With a determined stance, he vows to eliminate any monsters that dare to attack them. The commander, however, cautions his subordinate not to forget that despite his usefulness, the boy remains a slave, instructing him to leave no trace if he attempts to escape or transforms. His companion struggles to believe such a boy could become more valuable. A young recruit, spear in hand, affirms his understanding to the commander. As the sun dips below the horizon, marking the end of his guard shift, Nero dedicates himself to sword training. He gazes intently at his blade, a singular aspiration forming in his mind, a dark night. He is already late, the commander notes, reminding him not to train later than a 10-year-old should, but Nero simply accepts the reprimand, knowing he is already behind schedule. As the young boy continues his relentless practice, the commander observes his movements, a hint of surprise in his voice as he questions if Nero isn't improving too quickly. With a powerful swing of his sword, leaving a trail of glowing energy, Nero dismisses the notion of improvement, stating that for him, it is purely a matter of survival. The commander, still watching, admits his own astonishment at the slave's innate talent, having never witnessed such natural ability before simply ordering the boy to continue. Nero, standing before him, confirms his dedication, assuring the commander that he is indeed trying his best. The commander nods, a grim satisfaction on his face, telling Nero that his life depends on it, and that he must rely solely on his own strength. Sweat glistens on Nero's bare back, his muscles taut from exertion, as he affirms his understanding with a resolute, "Yes, sir." Later, the commander takes a drink from his mug, a thoughtful expression on his face, musing aloud about the absurdity of having to rely on a mere 10-year-old boy. Deep within the purple-hued cavern, the rhythmic clang of pickaxes echoed, a constant reminder of the harsh labor. Amidst the toil, Nero paused, a faint smile gracing his lips as he looked up from his work. His elder, Jiras, noticed the boy's unusual cheerfulness, remarking, "You're awfully happy, kid." Nero, startled, could only manage a confused, "Double what?" Jiras's expression hardened as he commanded, "Go back to work. Don't forget, small fry. You're a slave because you're no match for me." Nero's gaze dropped, his voice quiet but firm as he corrected him. "I'm not happy because I'm no match for you. I'm happy because I'm going to be stronger than you." Jiras simply reiterated his command, "And get back to work." Nero, with a renewed sense of purpose, responded, "Yes, sir." The young boy returned to his task, his earlier smile replaced by a look of quiet determination as he gripped his pickaxe. Jiras, observing him, muttered to himself about ungrateful bastards who were a disgrace, while Nero, hearing him, softly called out, "Gramps." The elder miner then reflected on the inherent nature of humanity, stating, "It's the nature of human beings. Humans tend to be jealous of those who are doing better than them. But in the end, when faced with overwhelming power, we're all the same." A sudden, unsettling sound causes Nero to pause, his expression shifting to one of concern. A deep, resonant boom echoes through the cavern, followed by a sharp, metallic clang. The source of the sound is a massive horn, unlike any he has seen before, and he realizes this creature is something entirely new. With the declaration of combat ringing in his mind, Nero instinctively drops into a ready stance, his fists clenched. As a low growl reverberates, Nero charges forward, leaving a surprised Jiras in his wake. The massive cave monster, a hulking gray beast, is already engaged, slaughtering smaller green creatures as a voice desperately calls out, "Give up now. I already called for reinforcements." Sweat beading on his brow, Jiras's face contorts in a plea, "Your Majesty, please come as soon as you can." Facing the monstrous threat, a young voice speaks with a mix of recognition and dread, "My name is Kundin. Don't tell me." The monster continues its brutal assault, its powerful blows echoing through the cavern as the smaller creatures scatter. A young warrior stands ready, his sword held firmly at his side. As a group of crude, green-skinned creatures approaches, Kundin questions their presence, wondering what they are doing here. One of the creatures lets out a guttural cry, its crude blade glinting menacingly. Kundin, looking at the approaching threat, exclaims that he is too young to fight such foes, while Nero, with a determined glint in his violet eyes, advises him to watch carefully, for the brightest is the brightest. Without hesitation, Nero surges forward, his sword a blur of motion, leaving a trail of pink energy as he strikes the first goblin. He continues his relentless assault, his blade finding another target with precision. A powerful kick sends one of the creatures flying, its body recoiling from the impact. Another swift movement, and another goblin is sent tumbling through the air. His sword flashes once more, dispatching yet another foe with effortless grace. He moves with blinding speed, his eyes flaring a dangerous crimson as his sword arcs through the air, slicing through the first target with a wet, tearing sound. A goblin's body crumples to the ground, blood spraying as it falls. Another creature's head is cleaved, its life extinguished in an instant, leaving young Kundin wide-eyed and drenched in sweat from the sheer intensity of the display. The air fills with the guttural cries of the dying goblins, their limbs severed and bodies torn apart. In moments, the cave floor is littered with corpses, and Nero stands alone amidst the carnage, his gaze sweeping the area for any remaining threats. The young boy can only stare, his mind struggling to process the sheer, brutal efficiency he just witnessed. With the immediate threat neutralized, Nero calmly plants his sword into the ground, a silent testament to the swift end of the goblin horde. Deep within the cavern, a group of weary miners huddled together, their faces etched with fear, as Nero and Kundin stood nearby, observing the tense scene. A look of confusion crossing his young face, Kundin voiced his uncertainty, wondering aloud what was happening. One of the miners, his voice trembling, explained that the monsters desired the mine and intended to use them as slaves. As Nero let out a low growl of determination, a monstrous voice echoed, mocking the weakness of humans and their susceptibility to deception, yet acknowledging something different about the boy. The creature's thoughts continued, revealing its simple, brutal desire for sustenance, as Nero's hand gripped his sword, ready for the inevitable confrontation. Without hesitation, Nero launched himself forward, his blade arcing with deadly precision as it struck the monstrous foe, eliciting a sharp screech. The creature's eye widened in disbelief, a surprised toe, escaping its lips as it registered the unexpected attack. A brilliant blue light flared, reflecting in the monster's eye, signaling the overwhelming force of Nero's strike. In the aftermath, Nero stood calmly amidst the fallen forms of multiple cave monsters, their lifeless bodies scattered across the cavern floor, a testament to his swift and brutal efficiency. The air crackles with raw power as a brilliant blue energy erupts from him, striking the monstrous arm of the cave creature. The force of the impact sends ripples through the cavern, causing the creature to recoil as its form begins to dissolve under the relentless assault. With a final, guttural cry, the massive cave monster collapses, its defeat absolute. He stands amidst the fallen, the large creature now just another casualty among the smaller, defeated monsters, the threat to the miners seemingly neutralized. But the victory comes at a cost, as a sudden cough racks his small frame, blood trickling from his lips. He struggles to catch his breath, the exertion of his power clearly taking its toll. One of the miners, Jiras, rushes forward, cradling the boy protectively, his face etched with worry as he looks at the child. Another miner, his face obscured by a mask, expresses his gratitude and concern, asking if he is all right after such a display of power. But before he can answer, a golden light envelopes him, and he falls backward, unconscious. Nero lies still, enveloped in a soft golden glow, as Lord Logan stands watch over him. He stirs, now sitting upright, his small frame bandaged and his expression heavy with sorrow, the teleportation artifact having served its purpose. Lord Logan, flanked by his armored guard, gazes down at the boy, knowing the immense sacrifice it took for him to shed his noble name and become a mere soldier. Nero's eyes well up, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek as he whispers, "Will you follow me deep, to my sisters?" Kneeling beside the child, the Emperor takes his hand, a firm resolve in his voice. "I will not allow you to die here." But the miners, led by Jiras, refuse to stand idly by, their voices rising in a chorus of anger. "Your Majesty, that boy has believed. He just got in the way and ruined himself. It made us who protected his mine, Your Majesty." Lord Logan's gaze sharpens, his expression unyielding, noting that Jiras's blade is quite clean for someone who supposedly protected the mine. He turns to Jiras and the other miner, his voice cutting through their accusations, beginning, "If that's because." A blinding flash of golden energy erupts, tearing through the very fabric of space, leaving behind a chaotic maelstrom where figures are consumed by searing flames, before settling into the distinct, glowing emblem of a powerful artifact. Later, the Emperor carries the young boy, his gaze firm as he addresses his captain, who responds with a respectful, "Yes, Your Majesty." After the boy makes a full recovery, the decision is made to have him attend Excanum Academy. Under the soft glow of cherry blossoms, Jiras asks when they will see each other again, to which Nero replies with a hesitant, "I'm not sure." With a determined expression, Jiras promises to return, vowing that when they meet again, they will both be commoners. He pulls Nero and Sarah into a tender embrace, a silent pledge of his unwavering commitment. Nero, holding his younger sister, assures her they will work hard, while Sarah, with a bright smile, promises to do all the cleaning. He reaffirms his promise to make them commoners, and Sarah responds with an affectionate, "Okay, Appa." Later, amidst a dusty caravan, Nero, now alone, asks if he just needs to ride in the luggage cart. He looks up at a masked miner, repeating his question with a hopeful gaze. Meanwhile, in a lavish chamber, Lord Logan stands beside Kundan, who remarks with a cynical sneer, "Nothing good ever came from a slave's wish." Tucked away in a cart filled with hay, the young boy assures his unseen companion that he is fine, embracing the warmth and comfort of his hiding spot. However, his attempt at escape is abruptly cut short, as a firm hand reaches in, pulling him from his sanctuary with a stern warning about the flu season. Held firmly by the scruff of his neck, the commander declares that a young slave like him will make a fine offering. Meanwhile, a grand procession begins its departure from the city, with Lord Logan and Kundan observing from a high balcony, as the soldiers march forth for the glory of their liege. The thundering hooves of the horses pull the ornate carriage forward, carrying the procession onward for the glory of everyone's liege. Sometime later, in a verdant field, the young boy now wears a green cloak, his gaze fixed on a small, glowing object held carefully in his hands. The object reveals itself to be an ornate dagger, its blade shimmering with an ethereal light. In a dark, cavernous space, a captain stands over him, declaring the dagger to be the sword that will guide his journey. As the legend foretold, this sword has chosen its master, and through sheer will, he will forge his own path to become the hero of the world, marking the true beginning of his legendary journey. He clutches the blade, a solemn reminder of his family's legacy, his gaze fixed on the ornate hilt. Now cloaked in green, he rides, cherry blossoms drifting past the open carriage, the legendary sword resting in his lap as he reflects on finally holding such a weapon, when a voice from the front announces their imminent arrival at the Excanum Academy. Startled, he quickly rises, the grand, domed structure of Excanum Academy now visible in the distance. He walks along a forest path, the sounds of his footsteps echoing, until he reaches a massive gate, where two small, uniformed figures greet him, asking if he's there for the entrance exam, to which he confirms his purpose and family origin. He stands before the grand entrance of Excanum Academy, held firmly by the captain, as a young noble with a distinctive white streak in his hair observes him with an air of superiority. The captain's hand rests on his shoulder, as the armored man explains his presence, referring to him as a shabby-looking slave. As he turns to walk away, the young noble, Kundan, speaks of his past, revealing that he was once an aristocrat whose family had fallen into ruin. Kundan's expression hardens, a clear sign of his disdain. The towering spires and intricate architecture of Excanum Academy rise majestically, a beacon of knowledge and power. Inside, grand halls stretch endlessly, bathed in soft, ethereal light. As they walk through one such corridor, Kundin turns to him, his voice sharp as he commands him not to walk beside him. His face contorted in disgust, Kundin declares that he doesn't want him to follow, citing his atrocious stench. As they stand at the academy's entrance, the captain issues a stern warning, telling Nero never to approach him disrespectfully or even mention his name unless asked, and to act as if he isn't part of his group, questioning if he believes he can be a lord again by acting nobly. With a final, curt acknowledgement, the captain turns and walks away, leaving Nero to absorb the weight of his words. Below them, the grand hall of Excanum Academy buzzes with the murmuring of countless prospective students, their voices a low hum filling the vast space. Nero looks down at the sea of faces, a silent observer amidst the growing anticipation. From another vantage point, Kundin watches the new arrivals, a smirk playing on his lips as he remarks on how adorable they all look. Suddenly, a vibrant voice cuts through the chatter as Instructor Evan, a woman with striking pink hair and a witch's hat, welcomes everyone, expressing her excitement for the coming year. Her voice echoes through the vast hall, congratulating all the prospective students on their acceptance. Among the crowd, two students exchange excited glances, one exclaiming that he can't even begin to imagine what kind of year awaits them. Overlooking the assembly, a grand statue stands in silent vigil, a timeless guardian of the Academy's legacy. As the assembly began, the grand statues around the hall seemed to come alive with history, each representing a legendary lineage, including the esteemed family of the Black Knight, Kaya. Further along, the noble heritage of the elven kingdom of Lordal was also acknowledged, its royal families standing as pillars of ancient power. And once more, the lineage of the Black Knight was invoked, this time referencing the family of Giant. With such legendary families converging in one place, a sense of anticipation filled the air, as if Excanum Academy was on the cusp of a new era, a story that would shape not just the future generations, but the very world itself. This grand future, the narration continued, would be made possible by the noble blood and inherent talent flowing within these students. Instructor Evan then addressed the eager crowd, urging them to strive forward, become stronger, and fulfill their potential as the heroes of their generation, with the professors of Excanum Academy guiding them. Headmistress Katia, with a confident smile, added her assurance that she and the Academy would help them make that reality. The students responded with a surge of excitement, many feeling their hearts pound with anticipation for the journey ahead. However, Nero remained detached from the general enthusiasm, muttering to himself that the inspiring speech had nothing to do with him. He looks up at the imposing figure, a quiet observation passing through his mind. Meanwhile, the instructor addresses the assembled students, his voice booming through the hall. He explains that the Academy's curriculum is designed to help them grow, but warns that the upcoming test will determine their future. He continues, emphasizing the importance of their performance. To become a true junior of Excanum, they must pass the test together. A ripple of concern spreads through the students, one of them voicing the collective anxiety, wondering what will happen if they fail, and if they'll be sent home. Jiras responds, his tone firm, explaining that the test is designed to assess their teamwork and that there is no room for individual glory. Elsewhere, Headmistress Katia observes the students, remarking to Kundin about the potential for a truly exceptional student to emerge, while he questions if they can truly find a professor as skilled as their own. Back with the assembly, Jiras gestures emphatically, his finger pointing directly at the students as he continues his instructions. After they form groups, they will be assigned a mentor, and the groups will be mixed gender. Nero, standing among a small group of students including Kundin, simply states his preference, hoping to be with the boys, while another student expresses a similar desire to be with their own group. Still contemplating the Academy's new group assignments, Nero voices his desire to be placed with the elf family, while a brown-haired peer expresses concern about being grouped with girls from that same lineage. Suddenly, the distinct sound of footsteps echoes, as a light, blue-haired elf girl effortlessly deflects an unseen attack with a shimmering, glowing barrier, leaving onlookers stunned. Her hand glows with potent magic, holding the force at bay. With the threat neutralized, the elf girl stands confidently, a slight smirk playing on her lips as she remarks that her opponent was merely lucky. The brown-haired boy from earlier, clearly agitated, confronts her, demanding she cease the ridiculous violence and return home before the Academy's trials even begin. With a dismissive umph, the elf girl simply walks past the gathered students, her presence commanding attention. Watching her depart, Nero's eyes widen in admiration, a blush creeping onto his cheeks as he thinks aloud about how cool she is. His thoughts continue, adding that she is also super pretty. As the assembly begins, a voice calls out, demanding attention from the gathered students, and then specifically, Nero, come to the front. Meanwhile, an instructor reviews his tablet, confirming the details for the new groups, informing them that their group will be on the third floor of room 302, and their instructor will be Mr. Evan. The students, including Nero, acknowledge the instructions with a collective, "Yes, sir." The instructor continues, explaining that as group leader, Nero will bear the responsibility for his members, facing punishment first if problems arise, to which he replies, "I understand, sir." The instructor then clarifies that this applies to everyone in the group. A bead of sweat trickles down Nero's temple, his expression a mix of apprehension and determination. Nearby, Kundin's eyes glow with a furious purple light, his face contorted in barely suppressed rage. His thoughts scream in protest. God damn it. I can't believe I'm in the same group with these fuckers. Nero stands awkwardly in a grand, opulent hall, his simple clothes a stark contrast to the lavish surroundings, as Kundin, dressed in fine attire, observes him with a stern expression, while Jiris stands nearby, his gaze fixed on the young boy. Kundin's eyes narrow slightly, as he looks at Nero, who appears uncomfortable under the scrutiny. With a dismissive gesture, Kundin addresses the newly arrived slaves, telling them he has already had enough of their stench in the room and ordering them to bathe. Nero flinches, a small ouch, escaping his lips as Kundin's words land like a physical blow. Kundin then turns his attention back to Nero, demanding to know why he isn't addressing him as master. Nero, looking bewildered, reminds him that he had explicitly stated he didn't want anyone else to know about their relationship. Nero's expression hardens, his eyes reflecting a mix of defiance and resignation as he declares, I am your master. You are my slave. Kundin, visibly taken aback, stammers a response, worried about the headmistress's reaction if she were to see him. He quickly corrects himself, acknowledging Nero as his master, while other slaves in the background also bow in submission. Nero, still looking a bit confused, ponders aloud if it's truly acceptable for them to forego formalities, considering they are both technically slaves. A blue-haired girl asks if he likes it, but Nero's expression betrays his quick denial. She points out that his thoughts, feelings, and emotions are always clearly written on his face. As he walks away, she calls out, urging him to show everyone his true self. Later, Nero finds himself in a bathhouse, observing the unfamiliar surroundings. He realizes this must be what a bathhouse is like, a place of pure heaven. He recalls a past moment, standing before the emperor, reflecting on the immense honor of such a powerful figure bestowing his name upon a mere slave. The emperor had asked if he would bestow his name upon his sisters, but Nero had refused. He now understands that he shouldn't have done that at the time, as his sisters would have received the blessing in his stead, allowing them to become commoners. But it seems the emperor has other plans for him, intending for him to prove himself to everyone. He wants me to rise above and forge my name, to prove myself to everyone, just like he did. Endure it, Nero. However, the mundane reality of his new life involved endless chores. Like the mountain of laundry, he now faced alongside a young girl with striking blue hair, who sharply told another exhausted figure to stop whining and get to work. Huffing and puffing, he struggled with a heavy basket of clothes. As the bright sun shone down from a clear sky, back in the wash tub, he stomped vigorously, a frustrated splash echoing through the room. The blue-haired girl, sitting nearby, offered to help him with his task. No, he replied, then, questioning her, asked if she enjoyed doing free labor. She quickly clarified, no, that's not it either. Her chores were her chores, and his were his, she explained, finding it disgusting for them to make each other help. A young girl with pointed ears looks down at him, offering a soft apology, promising not to repeat her actions. As she walks away, Nero continues his chore, the rhythmic splashing of water accompanying his task. The grand halls of the palace are illuminated by the soft glow filtering through towering arched windows. Later, the same elf-eared girl stands over him, demanding he dance for her amusement, a stark contrast to her earlier apology. She proudly declares her past as the emperor's favorite, never having knelt before, but Nero reminds her that the comfort enjoyed by even the emperor's favored slaves comes from the sacrifices of the nobles. Dismissing his words with a scoff, she simply reiterates her demand. A chubby boy echoes the sentiment, asserting that the emperor's favored slaves owe their comfort to the nobles and should repay the grace they've been granted. The elf-eared girl stands thoughtfully, as if contemplating the journey of a silly old man, an old sage. Nero, meanwhile, reads from a book, reflecting on the idea that those who are ungrateful for their comfort have no right to be there, for the emperor's favorite slaves are given the most comfort in the world, yet some remain ungrateful, as a small, glowing orb appears before him. He walks away down a long, empty corridor, perhaps pondering the complexities of gratitude and freedom within the palace walls. As the fearless child and the carefree sage continued their forbidden path, a young elf-eared girl weeps, her voice strained as she's questioned about her limited repertoire of songs. In a small room, the elf-eared girl sits on a bed, looking displeased, while Nero, on the floor, cries out in frustration over the chosen song, and Kundin calmly reads nearby. She insists it's the only song she knows, then scoffs, dismissing them as uncultivated slaves. A hand reaches out, holding a green card, the act of purchasing a slave now complete. The grand estate stands bathed in morning light, its many windows reflecting the new day. A servant arrives, basket in hand, announcing the delivery of breakfast to their master. Apologizing for the delay due to a crowded cafeteria, the servant presents the meal, prompting Nero to question why only his food was brought. Confused, Nero looks at the basket, while the elf-eared girl lies on the bed in the background, observing. She then clarifies, with a hint of disdain, that the food was only for her friends, reminding him that she is in charge. Nero surveys the chaotic aftermath of an overturned table, food scattered across the checkered floor. Meanwhile, Kundin glares at the elf-eared girl, accusing her of devouring all the trash. Nero, holding a basket, questions her actions, to which she replies that gathering all the food by herself is a difficult task. Kundin admonishes Nero for his repeated misbehavior, prompting a quick apology from the boy, though he secretly finds the situation amusing. The three children then proceed through a grand hall, Nero still burdened with the basket. As the elf-eared girl, with a smirk, confirms that he is indeed doing as told. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes through the space, followed by the clatter of scattered items. Nero's eyes widen in dismay, a soft, "oh no," escaping his lips. As the elf-eared girl stands over him, mimicking his lament amidst the ruined provisions. A stern voice commands to throw something away, and the elf-eared girl, seated beside Nero, reinforces the order, telling him to bring another meal, threatening that others will eat it if he doesn't comply quickly. Nero, still in bed, meekly agrees to her demands. Outside, the Grand Academy building stands majestically. While inside, a basket of food sits, a voice announcing that the meal was delightful and their first lesson would begin in 10 minutes. In the opulent hall, Nero finds himself on the floor, with Kundin standing by as the elf-eared girl imperiously orders him to clean up the mess. He quickly responds with another submissive affirmation. An overseer, back-turned, admonishes Nero not to eat leftovers like an animal, warning him that he will be late for his training. Nero, clutching a piece of bread, looks down at the nearly empty basket, his voice barely a whisper as he acknowledges the command. The ornate doors of the academy stand as a silent testament to the strict regimen within. And once again, Nero finds himself on the floor, apologizing profusely to the elf-eared girl who stands over him, taking full blame for whatever transgression has occurred. Nero's face contorts in frustration, the weight of his circumstances pressing down on him as he hears the accusations. This entire mess is because you couldn't help out. Meanwhile, the elf-eared girl kneels, her own distress evident, muttering to herself to simply mind her own business. A stern voice cuts through the tension, Kundin's gaze sweeping over the students. He declares them all disgraces, unworthy of the title student, urging them to hurry and prepare for assessment. Nero and the elf-eared girl exchange a glance, a silent question hanging between them. Kundin stands before a large assembly of students, his words echoing, reiterating that they are all unworthy, his expression unyielding. The instructor's voice booms once more, demanding they assess their skills and prepare themselves. Among the crowd, students begin to call out, some eager to challenge Nero, while others question why they should fight someone weaker. Nero and the elf-eared girl look on in shock as one student brazenly declares, he'll call dibs on that fatty, accusing others of being embarrassed to level up their skills. The elf-eared girl's face twists in distress as the harsh reality of their situation sinks in. The burly man issues his challenge, a confident grin spreading across his face. In order to win, you must overcome your opponent. You may begin. But before he can even finish his thought, a swift, unseen force sends him sprawling to the ground, a surprised grunt escaping his lips. The elf-eared girl steps forward, her gaze fixed on Nero, offering a seemingly gentle warning. Don't worry, I'll go easy on you, blonde. Nero's expression hardens, a surge of indignation fueling his retort. You probably have no idea how to use a sword in the first place. Suddenly, a massive, dark creature with glowing red eyes descends from the sky, its powerful wings beating the air with a resounding thwack. Unfazed, Nero stands ready, his sword drawn and glinting, as he prepares to face this new, unexpected threat. A dark, angular metallic object lies abandoned on a barren, sandy surface, surrounded by scattered blue particles. Meanwhile, Jiras watches with a surprised expression as Nero, holding a simple wooden sword, remarks that the old weapon must have belonged to a professor. Soon after, the large, bald man, a former masked miner, hands a heavy wooden club to Nero, who accepts it while Jiras offers his thanks. With a determined look, Nero declares his intention to use the club for his training, swinging it powerfully. The massive club arcs through the air with incredible force, cutting a clear path through the open sky. With a resounding crack, the club connects, shattering the scaly leg of a monstrous creature. Elsewhere, the elf girl and Kundin both look on with wide, astonished eyes. Jiras, now in a panic, shouts about being in the middle of the ocean, as small, dark creatures begin to break free from a bag he holds. A pink energy aura flares around Nero as he unleashes a sweeping attack, sending multiple figures recoiling. One of them cries out, barely avoiding a full heart attack from the sudden assault, while another pleads for mercy. The force of his blows is evident, even in the smallest details. He stands victorious over a defeated opponent, who can only manage a weak surrender. The instructor's voice echoes, demanding that all who can fight step forward, while the losers are relegated to the left. He then separates the still weak into different groups. The training continues relentlessly. If an opponent isn't found within one's own class, they must seek one from another, with no rest until 7 victories are achieved. Nero walks away from another fallen foe, his relentless progress prompting a bystander to wonder if his harsh life has forged this incredible resilience. He continues his path, a wooden sword in hand, reflecting on the muscle and endurance he gained during his time in the mine. Entering a new area, he finds another student already present, surprised that he wasn't the first to arrive. The elf girl remarks that Nero is surprisingly strong, considering his background, while he simply states that fighting with swords is not his style. She questions why he's using swords if he's only 14 years old, and he retorts that the other students simply don't know how to fight. The elf girl then reveals her own status, explaining that she is a slave, and that she was forced to fight with swords, finding it a trifle. Nero dismisses her concerns about her status, stating he doesn't care about any of that, and she simply accepts his indifference. A sigh escapes him as he wishes for a break, while the elf girl questions if he's truly a commoner, given his fighting prowess. She points out that commoners shouldn't be able to fight like him, and he agrees, acknowledging that he shouldn't be able to. The elf girl suggests they can save their small talk for when they're out of the academy, and Nero, with a hint of sarcasm, agrees to talk more over a cup of tea after their break. As they walk away, the elf girl simply states, "We'll see," leaving their future interactions ambiguous. Behind them, another student, Kundin, watches them depart, his gaze lingering on the pair. Still reeling from the previous conversation, Nero finds himself confronted by Kundin, who demands to know if he dared to strike a noble. Kundin's expression hardens, his gaze sharp and accusatory. Later, as night falls over the academy, the grand structure stands silent under the moon. The elf girl, her face still bearing the marks of a recent beating, can only think of pleading for mercy. She confides in Nero, admitting she was beaten by a noble, and when he asks why she didn't defend herself, she quietly replies that she was too scared. Nero watches other students pass by, their carefree demeanor a stark contrast to the elf girl's plight. He recalls the elf girl's earlier words, her confession that she has never forgotten her status as a slave since arriving at the academy, and his own realization that this is why she has always been so quiet. The weight of her words settles on him, a look of deep distress clouding his face. Later, he finds a note addressed to him, a curt message from Kundin, calling him slow and demanding snacks without question. Nero, still reeling from the previous encounter, finds himself on his hands and knees, head bowed in a posture of forced submission. The young noble, Kundin, looms over him, his presence a heavy weight in the opulent hall. "Nay for me," Kundin commands, his eyes glinting with cold amusement. A pained whimper escapes Nero's lips. "Nay." Kundin's smirk widens. "Oh, no one wants to ride a horse that sounds half-hearted," he declares, as another student beside him joins in the cruel jest. The tattered fabric of Nero's tunic strains across his back, a stark testament to his current plight. "Get on," Kundin orders, gesturing dismissively, while the other student eagerly asks if he can ride him for free. With a triumphant cry, Kundin mounts Nero's back, yanking his hair to force a louder, more convincing neigh. Nero collapses under the weight, his body trembling as the humiliating sounds are wrenched from him, the jeers of the onlookers echoing in the grand hall. A raw, guttural scream tears through the air, a cry of pure agony. Nero stands by, his expression unreadable, as the elf-eared girl beside him covers her mouth, her eyes wide with distress. Suddenly, Kundin's voice cuts through the tension, demanding, "Oh, Nairu, get over here," as he roughly pulls the elf girl away, leaving Nero to question, "Hurt?" His face contorted in a furious snarl, Kundin unleashes a torrent of abuse. "Didn't I tell you before? Don't make me repeat myself, you dumb bitch." With a cruel grip, he yanks the elf girl's hair, forcing her to the ground as Nero watches, helpless. He continues to drag her across the cold floor, her body scraping against the tiles. A pained cry escapes her lips, her head pulled back by the relentless tug on her hair. "Why are you doing this? Let go." Her face, already bruised and tear-streaked, reflects her terror, as Kundin's enraged visage looms over her, demanding, "What's wrong with you? Do it properly." The elf girl's eyes well up with tears, her face a canvas of pain and humiliation. Still reeling from the pain, the young boy cries out, as Kundin continues his cruel torment, dragging him across the floor by his hair. Lifted helplessly by his tormentor, he can only think that Kundin must be utterly annoyed to have to deal with him. Later, under the night sky, Kundin muses to himself, declaring his boredom with the situation and lamenting that he's all sweaty again after a shower. With a dismissive wave, Kundin decides to cool off for a bit, leaving the young boy on the ground to ponder his fate, knowing that whenever he becomes worth something, his tormentor will return to command him. The scene shifts to a grander room with a checkered floor, where Kundin now stands over both the young boy and the elf-eared girl, who are forced to kneel before him, bruised and helpless. The elf-eared girl, her face streaked with tears, can only let out soft, broken sobs. As he watches her cry, the young boy thinks to himself, urging her to stop, but his mind drifts to his own master, the one who taught him everything, who was once so great, yet now. Kundin, noticing his stillness, presses a foot onto his back, mockingly asking if he's sleeping. Despite the humiliation and pain, a flicker of resolve ignites in the young boy's eyes, his gaze hardening with a newfound determination. The elf-eared girl's face contorts in anguish, a desperate plea escaping her lips. In his mind, a younger Nero kneels, while an older, wiser version of himself offers a harsh truth, urging him to simply smile, for it will hurt less. He insists that with less pain, endurance will follow, and soon, it will become second nature. This same voice, perhaps a memory of his master, then turns to the image of the elf girl, assuring her that she too will overcome this pain, that with enough time, understanding will come. He remembers his master's words, that pain is the only path to wholeness, a lesson he has carried for a very long time. Outside, the grand architecture of a distant building stands silent under the moonlit night. The elf girl rests, her eyes closed in what might be sleep or unconsciousness, while Nero stands resolute, a sword clutched firmly in his hand. As the elf girl sleeps, a profound thought echoes, a chance to overthrow everything. Jiris stands over the bed, a sword clutched in his hand, the tense silence punctuated only by the thumping of a frantic heartbeat. Nearby, Nero's face contorts in silent anguish, his own heart pounding in his chest. The man looms, his blade glinting in the dim light. Until a soft thud sounds as the infant, Sarah, stirs and sits up, her gaze fixed on the towering figure. Still, the sword remains poised, the air thick with unspoken threat and the relentless beat of a heart. Nero lies in his bed, eyes wide with terror, a choked gasp escaping him. Later, Jiris stands over the now sleeping children, a quiet declaration hanging in the air. You made the right choice. As the soft sound of a child's breathing fills the room, a chilling thought crosses Nero's mind. There is a monster sleeping next to me. He remains bound, a prisoner of his circumstances, as the world around him continues to move. His thoughts drift to a past memory, or perhaps a future yet to unfold, where a young girl with pointed ears weeps, her voice filled with a desperate plea, while he, a child himself, can only offer a quiet, I'm sorry. The scene shifts, revealing a grand, domed structure, a place of learning and power, where an older Nero, now clad in a scholar's robe, holds a shimmering, violet orb, his expression one of deep concentration as he begins to understand the true nature of magic. This is the moment he learns to perceive the world's hidden energies. Surrounded by other students, including an older elf girl, he listens intently as an instructor explains the fundamental differences between elves, nobles, and commoners, and how their inherent mana reserves dictate their potential. The lesson continues, delving into the core concept of a magic spell as a bridge that ties the user's mana to the world, allowing them to manipulate reality. This connection is forged through incantation, the language of creation itself, which allows the user to channel their power. In another moment, a younger Katia, with her distinctive pink hair, questions a professor about the possibility of someone who has never used magic before, wondering if they could still learn. Her hand clasps Nero's, a gesture of encouragement and shared purpose, as she expresses her belief that if something is radiating on the palm of his hand, it must be magic. The group, including an older Nero, an older elf girl, and a younger Katia, stands together, absorbing the profound instruction that when one feels something beginning to rise inside them, they must shout out a mental image of it to manifest their power. Nero, a young student, stands with his eyes closed, focusing intently as he begins to chant, Anakrasha. His voice rings out with determination, repeating the incantation, Anakrasha. A gentle breeze sweeps through the training grounds as he practices before a group of his peers, with Headmistress Katia observing his progress. She encourages him to maintain his concentration, reminding him to focus and have more fun this time. Nero extends his hands, questioning the incantation, but the headmistress insists, don't stop. Finally, a small, glowing purple orb of mana forms in his palm, eliciting a surprised geek from a nearby student. With renewed confidence, he pushes more mana into the spell, the purple energy swirling and expanding around his outstretched hands. At the academy, it is taught that while one doesn't always need to shout an incantation, for beginners, it is the most effective way to grasp the feeling of manipulating mana. Nero beams with pride, holding his glowing orb as Headmistress Katia smiles approvingly, encouraging him and the other students to work hard and polish your skills. The day begins with a clear sky, a bird soaring high above, as the call for hands-on training echoes through the academy. The raw magical energy swirls and coalesces, a testament to their burgeoning power. Nero, still struggling, kneels before Headmistress Katia, earnestly pleading for her guidance. She observes him, a flicker of surprise crossing her features as she recognizes the incantation he's attempting. Despite his initial struggles, a small purple orb begins to form in his outstretched hand, prompting Katia to acknowledge his innate talent, resolving to continue his instruction until he can freely manipulate mana. With a determined shout of Anakrasha, the energy intensifies, drawing a curious hum from the headmistress. His eyes widen in surprise, a voice from off-panel reminding him to focus on his own progress rather than his classmates. He gazes at the now fully formed, pulsating purple orb, marveling at the sensation of it squirming to life in his palm. As the purple mana coalesces, a faint hum resonates through the air. And Nero, observing the glowing orb held by Instructor Kundan, exclaims in genuine awe, wow, that's not bad. Headmistress Katia, however, offers a more critical assessment, noting, Evans was better. A sudden surge of energy causes him to recoil slightly, his own mana orb forming with an unexpected intensity. In his palm, a vibrant purple orb pulses with raw power, a testament to his burgeoning magical talent. Nero beams with pride at his creation, while the elf-eared girl beside him remarks, Nero's mana is bigger than mine. Katia, observing the comparison, admits, I'm not sure either. Later, in an open training field, Kundin prepares to demonstrate a new spell, declaring, now, observe my spell. Make it something useless. This particular incantation is known as the fire arrow. Nero, watching the demonstration with a puzzled expression, questions the spell's efficacy. But professor, we can't even kill a wolf with that spell. A sudden burst of purple energy sends him reeling backward, the magical force streaking through the air, before erupting in a violent explosion. The impact strikes a monstrous creature, causing it to recoil from the blow. Nero watches the demonstration, his mind racing as he questions the spell's effectiveness, thinking, that's the mana? It's so weak, barely a spark. Instructor Kundin, holding a small, glowing orb of purple energy, continues his explanation. Also, what if an opponent simply dodges the attack? Then it would appear as if I'm just throwing a spark against them. The Shadow Lord isn't an absolute opponent. With a decisive gesture, Kundin extends his arm, a new wave of purple energy emanating from his hand. The spell strikes a nearby scarecrow dummy, and he clarifies its true purpose. It's a powerful spell that provides the best results with minimal resources, however small it may be. As Kundin looks down, Nero finally understands, realizing, he's trying to teach me how to use mana efficiently. Instructor Kundin, now appearing as an adult, explains that the Tracy spells they've learned are all derived from fundamental principles, adding that it's almost time for the students to demonstrate their skills on the scarecrows. He continues, urging them to imagine themselves teaching these necessary methods to others, a sudden burst of energy accompanying his words. With a sharp, crackling sound, multiple pink and purple magical projectiles streak across the sky, an incantation echoing in the air. The bright, clear sky stretches above. As Kundin watches his students, including Nero, take aim at the rows of scarecrow targets, their forms silhouetted against the sun. Nero, with intense focus, unleashes his own volley, a powerful anakrasha, echoing as pink and purple energy streams from his hands. One of his projectiles strikes a scarecrow squarely, the impact causing the straw figure to recoil violently. Kundin looks on, a hint of exasperation in his voice, asking why Nero hit the scarecrow so quickly, suggesting he should have given the others more of a chance. Nero, clutching his hand in surprise, exclaims that it's hot, then quickly apologizes, admitting he wasn't paying attention. A purple magical aura swirls around Nero's feet, indicating the start of his training. His instructor, Kundin, holds a small, glowing orb, while Nero's foot steps directly into a similar magical effect, practicing his control. Kundin sternly reminds him to concentrate, warning him not to hurt his classmates. But Nero's focus wavers, and Kundin's foot presses down firmly, pinning his face to the ground. Nero protests from beneath his instructor's foot, lamenting the damage to the shoes his mother made for him. Despite his anxiety, he unleashes his full potential, a powerful purple spell arcing towards the distant scarecrows. Kundin taps his head, and Nero quickly apologizes, explaining his excitement to show off his new skill. Kundin, however, sees through the act, stating that deceiving a teacher will only result in punishment. Nero cries out in pain, as the purple magic flares uncontrollably around his hand. His magic, still untamed, erupts in a violent, sharp burst, sending waves of raw power outward. The energy expands rapidly, distorting the very air around him. It intensifies, a destructive force building to a crescendo. Then, a massive, explosive impact engulfs the immediate area. As the residual energy dissipates, dark traces linger in the air. Nero clutches his head, his face contorted in agony, as dark, uncontrolled energy crackles around his hands. Kundin gazes at Nero, his expression unreadable, as he questions the source of the boy's strength. Nero, his face etched with frustration and a hint of fear, insists that it's simply because he refuses to give up, unable to stand by and watch. He recalls the harsh reality of their world, where slaves who become useless are simply killed, a fate he desperately wishes to avoid. As the sun begins to set over a desolate landscape, Kundin's voice cuts through the air, asking if Nero fears the world itself. Nero flinches, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and defiance, the question striking a deep chord within him. His gaze drops, unable to meet Kundin's intense stare, as the weight of his past presses down on him. Kundin's eye, reflecting Nero's distressed image, narrows slightly as he remarks that he's seen those eyes before, a knowing observation. Standing together overlooking a vast desert, Kundin warns Nero not to repeat the arrogant thoughts that once resided within him. He stares back at Kundin, who continues to press him. You must consider these things as well. Walking beside the older boy, he admits, I think I'm stronger than I was then. Kundin explains that because he's revealed his true strength, he'll be tested, and if he continues to grow, he'll be tested even more. A small smile plays on his lips, but Kundin warns him not to fall into those temptations. Kundin's expression hardens, his gaze unwavering. The Academy's exams are set to begin in 3 days, a total of 7 trials designed to test the students on their abilities. The hope is that powerful new blood will emerge from this era of weakness. These trials will measure patience, strength, endurance, and wisdom. As he observes a young, elf-eared girl and a towering, muscular man, the girl, Nairu, declares that if one is going to become strong, they must become ruthless. Amidst the murmuring of the students, the elf-eared girl raises a question to the instructor, asking how many of the 5 group members are expected to pass the upcoming test. From off-panel, a voice calmly replies, 2. The elf-eared girl's expression tightens, the murmurs around her growing louder, as the grim reality of the exam settles in. Kundin then addresses the assembled students, including Nero and the elf-eared girl, reminding them that they are only permitted 1 weapon and 1 spell for the test, before announcing their destination. The Cave of the Minotaurs, a revelation that elicits a shocked gasp from one student. Though they had faced monsters as children, this marks their first time fighting before an actual exam, and the monsters within this cave are known to be exceptionally difficult to overcome. A muscular man, standing with a grim determination, prepares himself for the challenge, a shadowy, fanged monster looming behind him, a stark reminder of the dangers ahead. The students, including Nero, are gripped by fear, their voices trembling with disbelief and terror, as they question the possibility of death and struggle to control their racing hearts and shaking hands. Kundin, however, remains unfazed, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the students' panic, reassuring them that they will be fine if they remember the core principles he taught them. Despite his words, a brown-haired student, with Nero visible behind him, expresses his utter confusion and outrage, protesting that this level of danger was never mentioned, especially not in connection to their parents' deaths. Kundin continues to explain the Academy's core principles, emphasizing that the upcoming exam is designed to test their ability to survive, not just their strength. The muscular man accompanying Nairu reacts with disbelief, questioning, "My father did." With a final, dismissive gesture, Kundin turns and walks away, leaving the conversation behind. Later, Kundin sits opposite the muscular man and Nairu, reiterating the strict rules of the trial. Only 1 weapon and 1 spell are permitted. The sheer number of hats scattered across the ground hints at the vast number of participants, each vying for success in the perilous exam. Kundin gently reassures Nairu, explaining that he has already covered the most crucial aspects of the test, implying she has a better understanding than most. The path ahead is treacherous, leading to a narrow wooden bridge stretching into the darkness, a daunting obstacle for any student. Nairu considers the implications of the rules, her expression thoughtful, as she processes the gravity of the situation. Finally, Kundin addresses a group of students, including Nero, revealing the harsh truth: there will only be 3 winners. He stands beside the elf girl, both of them looking on with a shared expression of surprise and concern. Nearby, a muscular man walks away from a large pool of water, his back to the scene. Submerged in the shimmering liquid, Nero hears a voice echoing in his mind, a chilling whisper suggesting they could fight using a real sword. The insidious suggestion continues, commanding him to kill the world. His eyes widen in distress, the weight of the voice's words pressing down on him in the water. Later, out of the pool and seated on a bed, he looks downcast as the elf girl asks, "What's wrong?" Her attention then falls to his footwear, and she gasps in shock, exclaiming, "Nero, your shoes." He looks up, his expression mirroring her surprise, as if only just realizing the change himself. His shoes, once ordinary, now appear to be made of a dark, spiky material, prompting him to exclaim that they looked super comfortable for his morning job, but he didn't realize they'd end up in such a state. Meanwhile, Jiras offers his apologies, explaining that he's sorry for what happened and for not preparing breakfast for the day. Nero holds the transformed footwear in his hands, the once simple shoes now a jagged, dark mass. The elf girl, observing the strange change, questions if these are his new shoes. She then looks towards a large, ornate chest, as if contemplating the implications of the transformation and the journey ahead. Her thoughts drift to the grand structure beyond, a symbol of the world she is about to explore. Back in his room, Nero sits on his bed, a determined expression on his face as he declares he's not going to wait. He places his feet on the floor, muttering that he feels too good to simply leave first. With that resolve, he rises and walks towards the door, ready to face whatever lies beyond. High above, a grand structure stood silent, overlooking the vast, rugged landscape. Deep within a cavernous chamber, a figure in green addressed a gathering of young participants, including Nero, the elf girl, and Kundin, his voice echoing as he inquired, "You all understand the rules, correct?" He continued, explaining that they would be divided into groups of similar official levels, before eventually meeting at the same destination. Nero, his face marked with a fresh scratch, seemed to disagree with the setup, thinking to himself, "It seems you guys are making a mistake." Yet, when directly questioned, he simply responded, "No." The instructor, perhaps referring to the elf girl or another participant, mused that someone might as well have already failed, since time was of the essence for this test. With a sharp command, the test began. The participants, including Nero, Kundin, and the elf girl, immediately surged forward, their footsteps pounding against the rocky ground as they raced into the unknown. A foot struck the earth with a solid thud, the sound echoing the urgency of their flight. But the momentum seemed to have caught up to Nero, who now lay sprawled on the desolate ground, a pained gasp escaping him. As the test began, he found himself immediately overwhelmed, a shadowy monster lunging with a furious, purple-tinged strike. The creature's relentless assault continued, each blow radiating with dark, crackling energy. A powerful purple blast sent him reeling, a pained grunt escaping his lips as he struggled to maintain his footing. Another strike connected, knocking him violently to the ground. With a final, devastating surge of purple energy, the monster launched him high into the air. Watching the brutal display unfold, Kundin could only let out a series of ragged breaths, his concern evident. The elf girl, too, gasped in distress, her eyes wide with shock at the sudden turn of events. He finally crashed back down onto the jagged rocks, a defeated heap amidst the lingering purple glow of the monster's magic. Lying motionless, the name Nero echoed, a stark reminder of his current, dire predicament. As he lay defeated, a voice cried out his name, a sharp sound of concern cutting through the silence. From nearby, Kundin watched, his arms crossed, a quiet, questioning sound escaping him, as if unsure how to react to the unfolding scene. Meanwhile, the elf girl knelt, carefully holding a worn shoe, her voice filled with disbelief as she wondered what had just transpired. She then offered the mended footwear to Nero, explaining softly that she had repaired them. Unlike the professor, she possessed both a needle and thread. Her hands gently extended the shoe towards him, and with tears welling in her eyes, she reassured him that it was acceptable to be afraid, confessing her own fears and calling him strong despite his current state. Her words, coupled with her unexpected kindness, left Nero looking utterly bewildered, his expression a mix of surprise and confusion. It was then that he noticed her bare feet, stained with blood, revealing the true cost of her journey to help him. Kneeling beside her, he looked down at her injured feet, a silent understanding passing between them in the desolate cave. He stares at her bare feet, noticing the raw, bleeding wounds that mark her journey through the harsh terrain. A wave of shock washes over him, his eyes widening in disbelief at the sacrifice she made to reach him. A monstrous, shadowy figure lunges, striking Nero with immense force, sending radiating pink energy through the air. The impact sends him reeling, and he desperately pleads for his life as the creature looms over him. Breathing heavily after the struggle, Nero looks down at the small, defeated lizard-like creatures scattered around him. Later, as he and Jiras navigate a treacherous cliff face, Nero complains that he's pretty sure 2 of his bones are broken. Jiras, looking down at the boy, assures him that he's doing fine, albeit a bit shaky. Nero continues his journey through the desolate, rocky passage. With Jiras now walking beside him, the towering rock formations closing in around them. Still battered and weary, Nero exclaims his frustration, feeling like he's on the verge of death. Still reeling from his previous injuries, Nero finds himself questioned by Kundin, who seems to be assessing his condition. As they continue their trek through the desolate, rocky landscape, Jiras remarks on the path ahead, noting its difficulty and the presence of what appears to be a slave market. Kundin, observing Nero's struggle, expresses concern over his slow pace, urging him to move faster. With each heavy step, Nero pushes forward, the sound of his worn footwear echoing against the stone. He ascends a steep, rocky incline, his body visibly straining with the effort. The sole of his shoe, already tattered, begins to tear completely from the upper, unable to withstand the harsh terrain. With a final, desperate rip, the shoe gives out entirely, leaving his foot exposed. Noticing the sudden change, Kundin looks down at Nero's feet, surprised by the state of his footwear. Nero, utterly exhausted and now shoeless, laments his predicament, feeling as though he's on the verge of collapse. He stands before a robed man, who dismisses him with a sneer, telling him to go back home and clean cow dung. His face contorts in a silent snarl, a raw fury burning in his eyes. Meanwhile, Jiras, watching the escalating tension, warns the robed man not to underestimate them, even if they know how to use a sword, because he won't be able to beat all 3 of them. But before Jiras can intervene, the robed man lunges, grabbing the boy by his collar with a swift, brutal motion. He slams Nero to the ground, a blade now glinting at his throat, while the elf girl watches, helpless. Suddenly, a brilliant blue aura erupts, a surge of magic crackling through the air. A new figure, with striking bicolor hair, appears beside the boy, his gaze sharp and unwavering. With a decisive motion, his foot descends, crushing something unseen, eliciting a cry of surprise from the robed man. The man with bicolor hair stands protectively over Nero, his sword drawn, demanding to know how the robed man dared to hurt his friend. With a sharp, metallic whisper, the man with bicolor hair draws his sword. A brilliant blue aura flaring around it as he effortlessly deflects an unseen attack, sending fragments scattering while Nero watches, stunned. A single word escapes the boy's lips, a gasp of disbelief. Nearby, a cheap, broken sword lies on the ground, its owner lamenting. That's what I get for buying a cheap sword. Before the aggressor can react, the bicolor-haired man closes the distance, delivering a powerful, glowing punch. The robed figure cries out as a surge of pink and purple magic erupts, sending him violently hurtling backward. Nero's eyes widen further, reflecting the vibrant magical discharge, a question forming on his lips. The robed man collapses, embedded in a shattered wall, defeated amidst the lingering magical residue. From a raised vantage point, the man with bicolor hair surveys the scene, his intervention complete and decisive. His sharp red eyes fixate on the young boy, who stares back with a mixture of awe and lingering fear, small scratches still visible on his cheek. In the desolate expanse, Nero finally finds his voice, asking, "How do you know?" The bicolor-haired mage responds with a slight tilt of his head. How would he know what monsters are like if he's never seen one? You already knew too. As Nero questions the strange assertion, "What nonsense are you spouting now?" A vibrant, swirling mass of purple energy begins to coalesce in the mage's outstretched hand, crackling with raw power. With a sudden surge, the concentrated magic launches forward, a blazing purple projectile streaking across the desolate landscape. The mage's hand glows with even greater intensity, the purple aura expanding and swirling as if drawing in all ambient energy. Then, with a deafening roar, the accumulated power erupts, a colossal explosion of dark purple energy tearing through the very ground. Amidst the lingering, shimmering purple particles and rising dust, the mage stands unfazed, his form silhouetted against the raw magical aftermath. The devastating purple energy attack, unleashed by the bicolor-haired mage, rips through the air, his eyes glowing with an intense, focused power. Nero struggles, a shimmering blue barrier forming before him, attempting to deflect the raw magical force. But the mage's gaze burns with an unwavering, crimson intensity. His jaw clenched in fierce determination. The purple energy surges forward, relentlessly pushing against Nero's weakening defense, until it finally breaks through, engulfing the young boy in a blinding explosion of magic. As the dust settles, Nero, battered but seemingly unharmed, questions, "I didn't take a teleportation scroll," to which the mage calmly replies, "Well, I'll just have to." With that, the bicolor-haired mage begins to glow with a vibrant, reddish-purple aura, preparing for his next move. His hand reaches out, a chilling declaration echoing through the air, "Your days are already numbered. You have no chance of escape." Without hesitation, he seizes Nero by the collar, effortlessly lifting him from the ground. Held suspended, Nero hears the mage's final pronouncement. "You will start as a slave, and end as a slave, forever." Then, a blinding column of light erupts, swallowing them both in its brilliant glow. Through the swirling void, they hurtle, a tiny speck against the endless stars. As they materialize, a violent burst of purple energy slams into the ground. Nero collapses onto the rocky surface, a faint green aura flickering around him as his eyes glow with the same protective light. The mage stares down, a hint of disbelief in his voice, muttering, "You survived that." Before Nero can fully recover, the bicolor mage lunges, his sword now glowing with malevolent purple energy, aiming for a decisive strike. His relentless assault continues, as he descends with his blade, striking down at Nero, his foot landing firmly on the wooden platform. Nero gasps, dazed from the impact. The mage's hand glows with purple energy, preparing another assault. He leaps, bringing his power down once more. Nero's eyes widen, in terror and pain. The mage stands victorious over the defeated boy, his sword still humming with dark power. Later, Nero lies curled up in a dark, cavernous space, struggling to breathe. He remains in agony, his body racked with pain. Still reeling from his defeat, he lay battered and bruised, a silent apology forming in his mind for his perceived weakness, as a voice nearby gently reminded him that crying would not solve anything. Looking up, he saw the elf girl, her eyes glistening with tears, yet her resolve was clear as she urged him to move, insisting there was still time left. Despite her own sorrow, her expression hardened with a quiet strength. Under a vast, clear sky, a voice remarks, "I see. So that's how you came to this academy." As the question hangs in the air, Nero's mind drifts back to a memory, standing beside the elf-eared girl, looking out at a simple wall. Before she turns to him, her expression earnest, asking, "What about you?" Her gaze is unwavering, waiting for his answer. Nero's memory continues, recalling a time when he was much younger, walking alongside Jiras. As he remembers, "I was only 6 when I was sold." He continues, the weight of his past heavy in his voice, explaining that his mother passed away when he was young, and his father followed soon after, leaving him alone. He sits with Jiras, who offers a comforting presence. Jiras, described as a very kind person, had bought him to help with his family's debt, a small gesture of kindness in a harsh world. But then, the memory shifts to a more desperate time, a violent splash of water signifying a moment when he was left on the verge of death. He remembers the cold embrace of the water, sinking deeper into the abyss, his small body helpless against the current. But Jiras, risking his own life, pulled him from the brink, doing everything he could to save him. Later, a will was discovered, stating the young master's wish that his only daughter would never have to endure a life of servitude. Yet, after the accident, the young master never fully recovered, his former self lost to the trauma. For years, he tried to attend the Exchanum Academy, but all his efforts proved futile. Losing all hope of recovery, he succumbed to despair, his reasoning fading as he fell into a deep melancholy. A decade later, Jiras prepared his own will, calling for the young master to receive it. Back in the present, the elf-eared girl listens intently, offering, "If you need anything at all, I'll give you everything. I'll want it to be." Nero considers her words, acknowledging, "That's good to hear. He kept his promise to you at least. Well, it doesn't. The grand, ornate architecture of a sprawling estate rises into the clear blue sky, its intricate details hinting at a place of significant importance and history. Soon, a voice echoes through the grounds, calling out, "All right, everyone, please gather around at the storage house." A group of children, including Nero, assemble as instructed, listening intently to the next directive. You will now be given your uniforms. Among the items distributed are sturdy, dark boots, ready to be worn. The elf-eared girl watches from a doorway, her gaze fixed on the unfolding scene. Soon, Nero emerges, now clad in a new, dark uniform with golden trim, a stark contrast to his previous simple attire. The elf-eared girl's eyes widen in admiration, a genuine exclamation of wonder escaping her lips. "You look really cool," she praises, a warm smile on her face. "The uniform really suits you." Nero, slightly bashful, responds, "Ah, really? Huh." He looks at her, a slight blush on his cheeks, as the elf-eared girl asks why his face is so red. Meanwhile, a vast assembly of children and adults gathers in a grand hall, preparing for a significant event, with the air thick with anticipation as a voice urges them to get ready. The elf-eared girl, now clad in a new, dark uniform with golden trim, excitedly declares that they must line up. A small, white bird is gently held in a hand, a symbol of the new beginnings, as the voice continues. "Now, you guys are." A red-haired woman, adorned with a wide, ornate hat, holds a similar bird, her gaze sharp as she announces the official start of their new journey. Official students of the Training Academy. The academy is equipped with a vast array of weapons and training tools, ready for the rigorous instruction ahead, as a collective cheer of Waha erupts. Nero and the other children, now all in their matching dark and gold uniforms, listen intently as the instructions continue. These fine uniforms will be your second skin. They will lead you in this academy. You have been chosen and given new roles and positions by the great empire. With determined expressions, Nero and the elf-eared girl stand ready, absorbing the final directive to train hard and flourish. Aim for success. The red-haired woman, her eyes glowing with an inner light, watches over them, her thoughts echoing the mission. Cultivate all the seeds in this place. The Grand Academy building stood tall and imposing, its ornate architecture stretching towards the sky as countless young figures in their new uniforms gathered below. Inside, the vast hall was filled with the hushed murmurs of hundreds of children, their small heads a sea of dark uniforms, awaiting instruction. The sheer scale of the assembly was a testament to the empire's reach, a new generation ready to be molded. Among them, the red-haired instructor addressed the children with a stern gaze, her words echoing through the hall. "Ah, I really wish she would stop saying such embarrassing things." Soon, the sorting began, with groups of children, including Nero and the elf-eared girl, being directed to their designated areas, as the first designation, Group A, was announced. A bald official, holding a scroll, took center stage, his voice booming as he read the names. Pan Unho. Ah, Group A. The elf-eared girl listened intently, her expression a mix of apprehension and determination, thinking, not only did I get into the same group as him, but I'm also next in line. The official continued his announcements. Guangwei, Lucille. Here. With a slight blush and a nervous smile, the elf-eared girl prepared herself, whispering, "Please." The bald official continued to address the assembled students from the elevated platform. Turning to Nero, the elf-eared girl's expression was etched with concern as she remarked, "We're in different groups now." Her eyes welled up with tears as she questioned, "You're going to be our guide?" Meanwhile, the bald official, holding a list, sternly announced the next assignment. "All right, Group D." Nero's eyes widened in surprise as his name was called, Nero. The elf-eared girl gasped, a hand flying to her mouth in shock, uttering a small, distressed sound. A wave of students began to move, a low rumble of activity filling the grand hall, as the next phase of assignments commenced. Looking up at the red-haired instructor, the elf-eared girl asked, "Professor, are we going to be in the same dorm with the boys again?" The instructor reassured them, explaining that from now on, boys and girls would be separated into their respective dorms, and they would no longer share the same trainer or instructor. The elf-eared girl stands among the other students, her expression a mix of apprehension and curiosity as the bald official addresses the assembled group. A glowing symbol appears on a hand, emphasizing the new method of evaluation, as the official declares that all decisions will now be made through a test of strength. Nero looks up, his gaze meeting the intense red eyes of the bicolor mage, who stares down at him with an unreadable expression. A flicker of determination crosses Nero's face, his resolve hardening in the face of the new challenge. Under the bright academy sky, the students gather before the grand building. As the official explains that this is where those with the highest strength will be placed, a new system that will determine their future within the academy. He holds up a glowing rock, demonstrating the tool for this new assessment, and asks the students if they understand the concept of strength in this context. The rock pulses with energy, a distinct symbol appearing on its surface, a clear visual representation of the power they are now expected to measure. The young student strains, his muscles taut as he attempts to drag the immense broadsword, a voice echoing, "If this isn't strength, then what is?" The bald official watches, urging him on. Show that bronze with the power of your strength, he commands, a slight smirk playing on his lips as he adds. Then let's say bronze, eh? Nearby, the elf-eared girl turns to the official, inquiring, can we use any weapons? To which he simply replies, sure. Under the bright, clear sky, the Grand Academy building stands majestically, its ornate architecture a silent witness to the trials unfolding on its grounds. The massive broadsword scrapes across the dusty earth, leaving a deep furrow in its wake. The student continues his arduous task, the weight of the weapon immense, as someone exclaims, that's the broadsword used by Lord Gaon. He passes by the glowing rock, its light illuminating his path, and another voice cries out in disbelief, the goat. The heavy blade grinds relentlessly against the ground, a testament to the sheer force required to move it. With a final surge of effort, the student's grip tightens, and the broadsword erupts with a swirling, smoky aura, its power awakening. A student, clad in dark robes, pulls back the string of a longbow with immense force, a low grunt escaping him as energy begins to coalesce around the arrow. With a powerful release, the arrow transforms into a brilliant blue projectile, streaking through the air with incredible speed. It strikes a massive rock formation, erupting in a blinding flash of light, and sending fragments of stone scattering in every direction. The sheer force of the impact leaves the enormous rock perfectly cleaved in two. The archer holds his pose, the bow still extended from the powerful release. He then shifts his gaze upward, his expression focused as he prepares for another demonstration. Blue magical energy swirls around his bow once more, forming a glowing arrow of pure light. He fires, and the luminous projectile slams into another rock, shattering it into countless fragments with a resounding impact. As the dust settles, the archer stands amidst the debris, his skill undeniable. The elf girl asserts her dominance, reminding Jiras that true strength encompasses more than just brute force, prompting him to concede defeat. Watching the exchange, Nero's eyes sparkle with admiration, finding her truly amazing and realizing this group promises to be quite enjoyable. Nero, Jiras, and the elf girl are led through a magnificent, sunlit hall, its grand architecture hinting at the opulence of their current surroundings. As they pause, one of the accompanying nobles addresses them, explaining that their group will need to adhere to certain rules. The elf girl, however, remains unfazed, her voice cutting through the formality as she demands a clear explanation, stating she will simply ignore any rules she isn't familiar with. Nero looks on in surprise as the noble, taken aback, insists there are no exceptions, especially for their group, and that they must not use any of their special capacities. The elf girl then challenges him, asking if he means she can use her special capacities because she is from the royal family. She reminds him, with a pointed finger, that nobles are the very foundation of society. Nero, still processing the exchange, ponders if they are expected to follow commoner customs when outside noble society. The noble, clearly defeated by her logic, reluctantly agrees, to which the elf girl simply replies, good. The elf girl, still defiant, declares that human societal rules do not apply to her, prompting the red-haired instructor to exclaim in exasperation. As Nero and Jiras observe the escalating tension, the bald official steps forward, demanding to know how a mere slave dares to speak to a noble with such disrespect. He then turns to a young man with orange-blonde hair, addressing him as Terran, and asks if he agrees with the elf girl's insolence. Terran can only utter a confused sound, while the elf girl, undeterred, asserts that she cares not for his noble status, for he is merely a slave owner, and as a royal, he should be the one bowing to her. She continues, dismissing formal speech as irrelevant, proclaiming that only power matters, and she possesses more of it than any other human. The elf girl stands firm, her expression resolute, as the red-haired instructor watches her with a mixture of awe and concern. She then challenges them directly, a confident smirk playing on her lips, asking if she is not correct. The red-haired instructor, her face contorted in frustration, sarcastically remarks on the audacity of a slave speaking so freely. Terran, now visibly agitated, confronts the elf girl, questioning if she truly believes she should be treated as their equal. The bald official, his face contorted in frustration, demands to know if the young elf truly believes her royal status grants her the right to speak so informally to them. However, the red-haired instructor steps forward, her voice firm as she reminds him that the elf girl's power is indeed absolute, and that her words carry the weight of royalty. Terran, his expression twisting into a sneer, challenges this assertion, declaring that such a claim is nothing short of ridiculous. Unfazed, the elf girl simply reiterates her position, stating that her royal lineage and inherent power place her above their petty concerns. She dismisses their objections with a curt humph, her confidence unwavering. As the group begins to ascend a grand, sweeping staircase, the red-haired instructor announces that the rules have been established, and their first mission is set to begin in 5 minutes. Terran, still reeling from the elf girl's audacity, mutters his disbelief, unable to fathom her behavior. Indeed, remarkable people often think differently. The vast, empty staircase stretches upward, leading to an unknown destination. The group continued their ascent, moving through a vast, ornate hall where uniformed guards stood silently along the towering pillars, their presence a stark contrast to the bright, inviting light at the far end. As they walked, the elf girl glanced back at Nero and Taryn, a subtle challenge in her expression. Her voice cutting through the quiet, she questioned their readiness, asking if they would truly be all right. The light-haired elf, observing the exchange with a calm demeanor, responded with a pointed remark, wondering if they expected to pass the next trial on luck alone. Taryn, his patience clearly at an end, exploded in anger, challenging the elf girl to a fight after her insulting words. Dismissing his outburst, the elf girl coolly suggested he worry more about the idiots around him, further enraging the young man. A smug smile playing on her lips, she added that his concern should truly be for his own young master. Taryn's face contorted in shock and fury as the light-haired elf calmly revealed that the young master had suffered a heavy blow. The revelation hung in the air, cutting to a sharp, intense gaze, the red eye of the bicolor mage burning with an unspoken story. He looks on with a puzzled expression, while the elf girl peers over his shoulder, her curiosity piqued. Meanwhile, a light blue-haired elf addresses a group of attendants, stating, "The secondary exam is about to begin. For future reference, please mind your tongues with your useless talk." She then turns, adding, "The same goes for you." The elf girl, still beside Nero, whispers, "It's because of the throne." Nora, the light blue-haired elf, stands poised between two other female elves, explaining, "Nora has 3 royal princesses. If one of those 3 princesses can secure the throne, a golden crown, adorned with jewels, appears as the narration continues. Tishbel's family hasn't had a queen for 7 generations. At this rate, her family will fall out of the royal bloodline." Nora walks away, her words hanging in the air, leaving the implications of the royal succession to settle. A brilliant sun hangs high above a vast, arid landscape, its light illuminating distant, jagged mountains. It is March 27th, the first day of lessons, and the bicolor mage stands alone amidst the barren terrain. He begins, stating that as previously announced, the initial lesson will be a 3-on-3 team competition. Addressing the gathered students, including Nero, Nora, and the red-haired instructor, he explains they will be split into teams of 3 to form a pair group, and only those who pass this exam will advance to become official academy students. For first-year students, the exam is explicitly designed as a team competition, emphasizing cooperation. The bicolor mage leans in, his expression serious, stressing that the focus on teamwork is to observe how they cooperate with allies, or who might ultimately become an adversary. He continues, acknowledging that while it might appear straightforward, last year's students, both gold-ranked and familiar with each other's tactics, still struggled immensely. The red-haired instructor, observing the scene, quietly advises the others that he dislikes being interrupted during his explanations. Nero and Nora stand side by side, their attention fixed on something just out of view. Now joined by the bicolor mage, the trio observes with focused intensity. With the teams now decided, the bicolor mage addresses the students, his voice echoing through the hall, asking if they are ready to begin. He then poses a rhetorical question, wondering aloud if they're curious about the nature of this exam, as Nora, Nero, and the other students listen intently. Their feet remain firmly planted, a silent testament to their anticipation. The scene shifts to a desolate, sandy expanse, as the mage's voice continues to explain that a strong mentality is absolutely essential for what's to come. He elaborates, stating that this activity will test their mentality, focus, and the very depth of their magic, because their minds, which normally rely solely on themselves, will now have to contend with the world being interrupted by their own thoughts. The mage concludes, promising that those who can maintain their concentration despite these conditions will undoubtedly rise above everyone else, a sentiment Nero quietly agrees with. The vast, empty landscape stretches out, a canvas for the mental trials to come. Nora's eyes widen slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing her face as the full implications of the exam sink in. She gasps, the revelation hitting her with full force, realizing that even these fundamental challenges are just the beginning. As Nora processes the unexpected difficulty of the exam, the bicolor mage suddenly hoists Nero over his shoulder, carrying him away from the group. With a deliberate step, the mage brings his foot down, and Nero cries out, hitting the ground with a painful thud. The mage stands over him, looking down impassively. Still on the ground, Nero complains about his injuries, wondering if the mage intended to break his bones. Walking away, the mage dismisses the boy's concerns, stating that minor injuries can be easily fixed, but that's not the real issue. He then reaches out a hand towards the fallen boy, holding a glowing purple orb as he sternly commands Nero to get up before he completely obliterates him, calling him a worthless piece of trash. Without waiting for a response, the mage once again lifts Nero, continuing their journey, as the boy lets out a surprised sound. A collective gasp escapes the group, their eyes wide with shock at something unseen. Among them, the bald official, his face contorted in anger, snarls, "I almost had a heart attack, you little shit," as he roughly drags the elf girl by her arm. Her small face etched with fear, she desperately pleads, Please spare me." But the official shows no mercy, lifting her by her collar and declaring, "But if he doesn't mean him, we'll never catch up to him," as she lets out a pained cry. His grip tightens painfully on her arm. And Nero watches the scene unfold, his expression clouded with deep concern. The official continues his tirade. Hurry up and get up, you useless piece of trash. As they begin to move away, dragging the struggling girl with them, he adds, not this one, this one. A hand descends, reaching for the young boy. With a cruel grip, the bicolor-haired mage yanks Nero up by his hair, demanding he get to his feet. Nero cries out in pain as he's dragged across the ground, his body scraping against the rough surface. From a distance, Nora watches the scene unfold, her expression etched with shock and concern. Still being pulled, Nero desperately pleads for his tormentor to stop, his voice cracking with fear, while another voice cries out for their baby. Overwhelmed by the ordeal, Nero can only whimper, tears streaming down his face. Finally released, Nero lies defeated on the ground as the bald official stands over him, while Taran cheers triumphantly, declaring his team the winner. After the humiliation, the bicolor-haired mage extends a hand, helping Nero back to his feet. As the sun rises over a distant landscape, an announcement is made. We'll be having our first field training tomorrow. Be prepared for that. A student calls out, Professor. Jiras stares up at the towering structure, his voice echoing with disbelief as he questions the bizarre sight before him. Meanwhile, Nora watches with a worried expression, a quiet warning escaping her lips about being careful. The scene shifts to Jiras, shirtless and vulnerable, a glinting knife pressed firmly against his back. His muscles ripple with tension, sweat beading on his skin as the blade remains at his back. Two female students gasp in unison, their eyes wide with astonishment at the unfolding spectacle. Despite the danger, Jiras offers a confident smile, even as the knife glides to rest against his neck. Nora, holding the blade with a firm grip, commands him to get dressed and return to his own room immediately. Now fully clothed, Jiras bows deeply to Nora and the other students, acknowledging her authority with a resounding understood. Later, Jiras looks down at Nero, a quiet declaration revealing their unexpected familial bond. My brother. Still shirtless, Jiras is in the process of getting dressed, his back turned to the viewer. He is forced into a dark blue uniform, lying on the ground as Nora stands over him, overseeing the process. Elsewhere, Nero and another young boy press their faces against a window, their eyes wide with shock and fear as they witness something unfolding outside, one of them gasping, "W-O." Meanwhile, Nora's light blue eyes narrow, a flicker of intense emotion passing through them. Back in the ornate chamber, Jiras now stands fully clad in the dark blue uniform, while a distant voice cries out, "Oh." A massive, reverberating sound then echoes through the air, followed by a desperate, drawn-out scream of "H." Nora, her gaze fixed on Jiras, issues a chilling warning. Again, then I'll gouge out your eyes next time. Jiras kneels before her, his hands raised in a gesture of submission, promising, You have my word, as several uniformed guards stand by. The bright sky above offered no comfort as a harsh voice cut through the air, accusing a small figure on the ground of causing a heart attack, while the child could only manage a pained cry and a desperate plea for mercy. Far from that scene of distress, a group of robed figures stood amidst a verdant forest, surrounded by an ethereal glow emanating from several floating purple orbs. One of them, the bicolor mage, held a small, glowing pink orb, recognizing it as a wisp and immediately reacting to something it conveyed, exclaiming that its actions were not permitted. Another voice, likely Taran, echoed the sentiment, reminding him that using his power was forbidden, to which the bicolor mage offered a quiet apology. Nora, the light blue-haired elf, also held a glowing purple wisp, reiterating the strict rule, he must not use his power. The entire group, including the gray-haired elf, stood in a circle, each holding their own glowing orb, a silent testament to their shared purpose. The bicolor mage's expression grew troubled as he realized this wisp was just like the others, yet uniquely capable of communicating with him, and it was pleading for him to save it. As the group stood around a larger, central wisp, the stern warnings continued, emphasizing the repeated instruction, he was not allowed to use his power. A chaotic memory flashes, two figures clashing violently as another watches from above, while a small, injured boy lies helpless on the ground, his cries for mercy echoing through the scene. This time, however, the challenge is different. Instead of facing monstrous foes, they must fight each other, their individual skills and magical prowess being the sole criteria for judgment. As the bicolor mage explains the new rules, Taran gasps in disbelief, while Nora questions if they could truly be killed again, the gravity of the situation settling in as the importance of teamwork is emphasized. Taran voices his uncertainty about trusting his companions, a stark reminder that a lack of trust among teammates often leads to the first demise. Suddenly, the bicolor mage points ahead, his gaze fixed on something unseen, prompting a curious "huh" from Taran. With a unified surge of energy, the group begins to run through the dense forest, Taran letting out a triumphant hurrah as they press forward. As they rush, Taran urges them to hurry, but the bicolor mage pauses, addressing Nero with a calm, "1 second, Nero," as the distressed boy looks on. Holding a glowing green orb in his hand, the bicolor mage considers the situation, then instructs Nero to now go, with a firm tone. Nora, looking back with a slight acknowledgement, follows the bicolor mage as they continue their journey, leaving Nero behind. As the bicolor mage continues his journey, he pauses, examining the glowing green orb held delicately between his fingers. The path ahead promises new challenges, with things already getting quite interesting. When suddenly, a high-pitched scream pierces the forest's tranquility, followed by the guttural roar of a monstrous entity. A massive rocky monster, its form cracking with vibrant pink energy, floats menacingly above the ground, sending Nora recoiling in terror, while Taryn, aghast, realizes this is no ordinary foe. "This isn't even a rank 10 monster," he exclaims, as Nora cries out in distress. With desperation etched across her face, Nora urgently commands him to cast a defensive earth spell. But Taryn, sweating profusely, can only stammer out, "I forgot the incantation." As the monster lets out another terrifying roar, Nora is left paralyzed by fear, facing an impossible threat. A colossal, rocky creature bursts forth with a deafening impact, its form glowing with an ominous pink energy. As the monstrous threat looms, Taryn instinctively moves to shield Nora, both reacting with urgent desperation to the sudden, overwhelming advance. A colossal stone arm, wreathed in crackling pink energy, swings with devastating force, sending Nero hurtling through the air before Nora can even react, who instinctively moves to catch him. The creature's massive foot then slams down with a sickening squelch, as Nero's small body impacts the rocky ground, scattering debris around him. Clutching the unconscious boy, Nora cries out his name in anguish, her mind racing with regret. She had intended to stay right behind him, but the child had simply jumped in without hesitation. Her face etched with desperation, she pleads, "Nero, please wake up." Nora's hand gently cradles Nero's cheek, her expression etched with profound worry as he remains unconscious. Nearby, the bicolor mage watches the scene unfold, a sigh escaping him as he reassures Jiras, "Don't worry, he's not going to die." With a flash of pink energy, he begins to cast a spell, muttering, "I knew something like this would happen. I told you guys last time." Nora, still holding Nero close, pleads with him, "Nero, please." Small scratches mar his cheek, as Nora laments his recklessness. "You didn't have to be so reckless." Suddenly, a soft golden glow emanates from Nero's hand, and he weakly states, "It's better for me to get hurt." Nora gasps in surprise as Nero's eyes flutter open, and she stammers, "PP please." From a distance, the red-haired instructor observes the scene, confirming to the bald official, he's not dead yet. A soft sigh escapes Nora, her expression a mix of relief and lingering concern. Kneeling beside the still form of Nero, she prepares to channel her healing magic. With a surge of power, vibrant green energy erupts from her, swirling upwards like a verdant storm, carrying leaves in its wake. The magical currents converge on Nero, infusing his body with restorative light. From a short distance, the bicolor mage observes the scene, muttering to himself about the virtuous princess and her efforts. As Nora's healing intensifies, Nero's entire form begins to glow with a soft, golden radiance. Suddenly, his eyes snap open, a look of surprise and awakening on his face as leaves swirl around him. Overjoyed by his recovery, Nora pulls him into a tight embrace, relief washing over her. Having regained his strength, Nero dismisses the recent events, declaring he will let it slide for now, while the bicolor mage lets out a soft sigh, suggesting it is time to move on and find some water. A faint sound of rustling leaves accompanies their departure. As the bicolor mage leads the way, followed by the elf girl and her companions, who silently echo Nero's earlier sentiment, finding him an unbearable child. Their journey continues along a dusty path, the bicolor mage eventually pausing with a sigh, admitting his thirst, and requesting a moment to find refreshment. With a flash of magic, he conjures a large, glowing green leaf, holding a shimmering blue liquid within its cupped surface, and offers it to Nero, assuring him it is magically purified and clean. The elf girl, observing the exchange, questions his generosity. A bright smile spreads across Nero's face, though his thoughts betray a deeper understanding of his circumstances. The bicolor mage assures him, saying he won't ask for anything against his will, but Nero simply responds with the stark reality of his status as a slave. Nearby, Nora, the elf girl, lets out a soft gasp, her expression shifting to one of concern as she overhears their exchange. Her eyes widen in shock, a silent exclamation escaping her as the implications sink in. Suddenly, a monstrous creature lunges from the undergrowth, but before it can close the distance, the bicolor mage unleashes a torrent of vibrant purple magic, striking with decisive force. The magical energy erupts on impact, engulfing the creature in a blinding flash. Nero and Nora watch, their expressions a mix of surprise and confusion, wondering what just transpired. The monster, though wounded, lets out a guttural roar, its defiance echoing through the trees. But the fight is over as quickly as it began, and the creature, defeated, turns and flees deeper into the forest, leaving the trio in its wake. Still reeling from the recent monster encounter, she observes the creature, realizing with a gasp that it was merely a hatchling, a low-rank monster, as the bicolor mage confirms with a calm demeanor. Overcome with regret, she covers her face, apologizing for mistaking it for a dangerous spirit from before. Her distress deepens as she explains her belief. Attacking a hatchling is akin to attacking an elder. Observing the exchange, the bicolor mage turns to Nero, noting his transformation into the mage's pupil, to which the boy proudly affirms, indeed. Suddenly, a powerful red energy slash erupts, connecting with the monster's fanged maw, shattering its defenses with a deafening kwak. The creature cries out in pain, recoiling from the devastating blow. As the monster retreats, Nero collapses to the ground, a prolonged cry escaping him, seemingly overwhelmed by the aftermath. Nora immediately kneels beside him, offering comfort, while the bicolor mage stands observing the scene in the quiet forest. As they walk beneath a canopy of shimmering, star-like lights, Nora voices her disbelief, stating that it simply cannot be true. Still processing the bicolor mage's words, she admits her confusion, asking why he would utter such a profound statement. His gaze fixed on the ethereal forest above, the mage simply confirms, it's true, the world is a living elf. He continues, his voice carrying a note of solemnity, but be prepared. As the sky opens up to reveal colossal, vibrant green foliage, he finishes, to talk to the elders. The immense leaves continue to dominate the view, their intricate veins and textures becoming clearer, until the trio stands dwarfed at the base of a truly gargantuan tree, its ancient trunk stretching impossibly high into the heavens. Suddenly, the very ground beneath them begins to fracture, as a colossal, gnarled root erupts from the earth with immense force. The colossal root, having erupted from the earth, continues its transformation, its gnarled surface covered in vibrant green foliage. What was once a mere root now reveals a gaping, organic maw, hinting at the true, living nature of the world itself, its form shifting with an ancient, primal energy. The group watches in stunned silence as the transformation completes, a majestic, deer-like creature with glowing antlers now standing before them. Nero, still grappling with the bicolor mage's earlier words, can only voice his confusion, admitting he doesn't understand the profound implications of what he's witnessing. As the creature fully reveals itself, the bicolor mage drops to one knee, a gesture of profound respect and reverence. He then turns to his companion, Tingsu, instructing him to approach the majestic being with the utmost deference, emphasizing the need for respectful communication. The creature, a living embodiment of the world's ancient spirit, stands tall, its form a testament to the bicolor mage's earlier, unbelievable claim. Addressing the creature, the bicolor mage anticipates its silent question, acknowledging its likely confusion about their presence before offering their profound respect. He assures the ancient being that their purpose is not to cause harm, but then, with a subtle shift in tone, reveals the creature's own dark intentions, stating it had planned to kill them. Nora vehemently denies the accusation, insisting that her people have never harmed the forest, only lived within it. The colossal deer-like creature, however, dismisses her words as lies, its glowing purple eye fixed on her. Before its maw opens wide, threatening to devour them all and avenge the forest. Nora looks down, a heavy chain visible around her ankle, her face contorted in anguish, as she realizes the creature's true intent. A green, viscous liquid begins to pool around her foot, emanating from the creature's clawed hand, which extends towards her, whispering, "Take me." With a resolute, yet pained expression, Nora steps forward, offering herself to the ancient being. He stands firm before the monstrous entity, declaring himself the one who initiated the attack. From the depths of the forest, a voice booms, demanding to know who dared violate its sacred law. Nora, her face etched with fear, cries out for Nero's help. He corrects himself, admitting that he was the one who attacked her, not the other way around. The creature's hand drips with a viscous green liquid as it declares that because of this transgression, it will devour her and make a spectacle of it. Its body glows with a menacing purple aura, mocking the foolishness of humans. With grim determination, Nero resolves to protect his friends, deciding to attack the creature himself. Before he can act, the creature's massive maw opens, pulling him in, a desperate scream escaping his lips as he is consumed. The massive, antlered creature, having seemingly completed its judgment, begins to withdraw from the small figure before it, its immense head lowering slightly as it prepares to depart. With a powerful beat of its wings, the guardian of the forest ascends into the sky, leaving behind the pronouncement that the sacred law of the forest has been upheld. Nero watches the creature shrink into the distance, a profound sense of relief washing over him. The air itself seems to calm as the creature disappears, confirming that the forest's anger has subsided. Still dazed, Nero sits on the ground, muttering to himself, "That was close." Suddenly, the bicolor mage rushes forward, his voice filled with disbelief and concern. "Nero, were you able to pull it off? Did you successfully convey her?" he exclaims, adding with a hint of awe, "I didn't know you were this brave." Nora, her light blue eyes wide with a mixture of relief and confusion, looks on at the scene. As the two stand over him, the elf girl finally speaks, her tone suggesting a different perspective on his bravery. "No, you were a little." Standing before the two elves, Nero is met with a startling question, as the bicolor-haired mage asks if he is a half-elf. The light blue-haired elf girl, Nora, responds with a hint of annoyance, stating that she has never seen her parents before, while the mage's thoughts linger on the boy's very existence, deeming it something that shouldn't be happening. The mage's harsh judgment continues, labeling the young boy's lineage as a cursed race. He then grabs Nero by the collar, his expression stern and unyielding. Nero can only stare back in stunned silence, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. Releasing his grip, the mage turns away, his back to the young boy, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. He speaks again, his voice firm, noting that Nero still hasn't given up, and reiterating the broken truth of his half-elf heritage, as Nora watches on with a somber expression. Finally, the mage issues a command, instructing Nero to seek him out after the upcoming challenge. A sudden roar echoes, and water splashes violently. A monstrous, white-furred beast lunges, its body wreathed in blue energy, as a voice cries out, "Watch out, Nero!" Already reacting, Nero unleashes a purple energy spell, shouting, "Eistrast!" From the side, Nora joins the assault, her own purple energy flaring around her as she adds to the attack. The unexpected combined assault leaves Nero wide-eyed with surprise. The twin purple blasts slam into the creature with a deafening impact, sending it reeling. As the monster collapses, defeated, Nero looks on, while the red-haired instructor approaches, calling out, "Titawasu." She confronts him, demanding to know, "Why did you avoid my protection spell?" Meanwhile, Nora lets out a sharp, pained cry. Still reeling from the recent confrontation, Nora finds herself facing Nero, who insists she refrain from speaking his name. Her expression hardening, the elf declares that from this moment forward, they are strangers. As the sun begins to set over a lush forest, a voice from off-panel impatiently asks what took them so long. The trio, including the mage, continues their journey deeper into the woods, until Nero, raising an arm, confidently declares that it looks like they've won. The mage, however, looks on with a puzzled expression, uttering a confused "huh." A hand, likely Nero's, holds a small, glowing green pendant, its light pulsing softly. In a time when humans dominated the land, half-elves were forced to adapt and survive as best they could, but after many years, the relationship between humans and half-elves began to change. Despite these changes, for the half-elves, there was still no clear future. The bicolor mage wonders if Nero is the one they have been seeking, as the story of those born with the combined powers of both human and elf races unfolds, revealing the inherent conflict of their coexisting abilities. Visually, two opposing energies, one green and one orange, swirl and clash, representing the fundamental problem. These two powers simply cannot coexist harmoniously. He explains that half-elves are born with either their human nature amplified, or with their elven nature amplified, creating an inherent imbalance. A glimpse of a beautiful elf woman, Neria, is shown, her name mentioned as a friend, as the mage continues his somber explanation. Nero listens intently, his expression concerned, as the mage reveals that due to these factors, half-elves are far more likely to be consumed by darkness. He emphasizes that throughout history, they have struggled relentlessly to control themselves. The mage's face is grim as he reiterates the tragic truth: they would almost always be consumed by their inner darkness. Turning back to Nero, the mage asks him directly if he is truly able to control his two halves. Nero, holding the glowing green pendant in his hand, responds that he is trying his best, prompting the mage to demand he prove it. The bicolor mage looks intently at Nero, his voice firm as he warns him not to report their findings to the elves. Under a clear blue sky, the city stretches out, its buildings reaching towards the horizon. As they walk through the bustling streets, the mage's concern for Nero's unstable power weighs heavily on his mind, a significant risk he can't ignore. Suddenly, the pace quickens, Nero leading the charge through the city, claiming he's running as fast as he possibly can. Meanwhile, an instructor and an official discuss an exam, while Terran, running alongside Nero and the mage, tries to calm the situation, insisting they aren't even that late. Despite Terran's reassurances, he still complains about their near tardiness, only for Nero to laugh it off, finding humor in their rush. As they finally slow to a walk, Terran expresses his hope that they'll manage to pass the exam. They soon meet Nora, who greets a dark-haired figure from behind, while Terran calls out to the same individual, using a different name. The red-haired instructor, her expression stern, reminds the group that they need to be in a good mood for what's to come, while the bald official adds that competitive people often find themselves in such situations. Ignoring the officials, the bicolor mage holds a small elf girl close, assuring her, "I know you'll do well, Teresu." The young elf, with a bandage on her cheek, looks up at him, her dark eyes wide. From across the hall, Terran observes the scene, remarking that she's still the same fearless child since that day, prompting Nora to question what was done to her. Nero's face hardens, his violet eyes burning with a fierce resolve. Outside, the Grand Academy building stands under a bright sky, its gates open to a lush, green courtyard. The bicolor mage, Nero, and Terran rush through the grounds, the mage declaring they're already late and Terran agreeing, lamenting their tardiness. A hand flashes a peace sign, as a voice announces that they will now be taking the second exam, known as the Test of Wisdom. The bicolor mage grumbles about being on time, and Terran finishes his thought, complaining about how someone always manages to ruin his day. As the group of students gathered, a sense of anticipation hung in the air, with some offering hesitant affirmations. The bicolor mage, however, seemed unfazed, addressing the elf girl with a casual tone, questioning her apparent lack of concern for the students' lives at stake in the academy. He dismissed the gravity of the situation with a shrug, claiming he wasn't a bad person, merely burdened by a heavy weapon, and that no one could even arrive on time, before declaring the start of the proceedings. With a rustle, the bicolor mage presented a large bag, announcing that team selections would now commence. Nero, Jiris, and another student looked up expectantly, their gazes fixed on the bag as it hovered above them. Nora watched intently, her expression unreadable. The bicolor mage stepped forward, reaching into the bag to retrieve the first team assignment. Meanwhile, Nora carefully unfolded a slip of paper, revealing her assigned team. As the team assignments conclude, Nero stands among his fellow students, including the elf girl, Jiris, and Taryn, each preparing for the next phase of the exam. The bicolor mage then announces that the teams are officially set, directing everyone to the testing grounds. With a chorus of encouragement from the red-haired instructor and the bald official, the group, including Nero, the elf girl, and Jiris, makes their way through the archway, entering the designated testing area. Inside, Nero turns to the elf girl, a silent exchange passing between them as they face the unknown challenges ahead. Meanwhile, the bicolor mage expresses confidence in their abilities, though the red-haired instructor voices a concern, noting someone's absence. A flicker of worry crosses the elf girl's face, her expression reflecting the growing tension. The testing ground itself is dominated by a colossal, luminous tree, its branches reaching towards the sky, shimmering with blue particles. This majestic entity is known as a mana tree, a sacred guardian of life, said to be protected by an immortal being. Observing the scene, the bicolor mage wears a wide, knowing smile, his gaze fixed on the unfolding events. He gestures towards the towering structure before them, explaining that this is the sacred mana tree, which bears a special cure fruit said to heal all ailments, a fruit once cherished by the divine Lord Lugard himself. He then challenges them, asserting their knowledge of its significance, but urges them to observe the tree more closely. Focusing their attention on a glowing, egg-like fruit nestled within the branches, he points out that this legendary fruit, rarely seen, is growing directly from the mana tree itself. He continues, explaining that an eagle has built its nest on the mana tree, intending to hatch its offspring using the fruit, not out of necessity, but out of sheer greed. This greedy eagle, he states, is causing trouble for the immortals, who are anxious about the fruit and fear its loss, making their test simple. Chase away the eagle and retrieve the fruit completely. A subtle smirk plays on his lips as he concludes his instructions. He continues his explanation, his voice firm as he lays down a critical rule. They must not cause any harm to either the sacred tree or the majestic bird. Along a winding dirt path, the bicolor mage and Nora led the way, while Nero and Jiras followed behind, the young boy still on the ground. The mage remarked that they should reach their destination before the sun dipped below the horizon. To which Nora inquired, "How much time do we have?" He simply replied, "You have until sunset." Suddenly, a massive, dark, snake-like creature emerged from the undergrowth, its presence heralded by a low, guttural rumble. Turning back to Nora, the mage stated flatly, "I don't wish you all the best." His expression hardened as he continued, "If you guys disqualify me by throwing random objects and harm either of them, there will be consequences." Nearby, Taryn and the bald official watched the exchange, their faces reflecting a mix of surprise and apprehension. With that, the mage turned and began to walk away from Nero and Jiris, who remained on the ground, instructing them, "I'm going to try and get some food, so until I get back, don't do anything." As the bicolor mage disappears into the forest, Nero and Jiris stand silently, watching him go. Nero then breaks the quiet, asking, "Do you think we can saw a tree in half and then glue it back together?" Meanwhile, the mage continues his trek deeper into the woods, his heavy boot falls echoing softly on the forest floor. He muses to himself that the forest is too quiet, a sign that something is amiss, and that he must find food quickly before the sun sets. Back on the path, Nora's expression hardens as she realizes the mage's true nature, acknowledging that he is a half-elf. Meanwhile, the mage glances back, a hint of concern in his eyes, muttering, "I have almost been unreadable. Why don't they move?" Unbeknownst to him, Nora has already drawn her bow, knocking an arrow with swift precision, her companions Taryn and the bald official watching intently. With a sharp release, the arrow slices through the air, disappearing into the dense foliage of the forest. A vibrant pink magical projectile descends rapidly, leaving a glowing trail in its wake. With a sudden burst of energy, it impacts the ground, creating a small crater and a lingering pink explosion. Nearby, a small, frightened creature cowers, pleading for its life, as the bald official observes, questioning its fear. Elsewhere, Nora and Taryn stand before a massive tree laden with glowing fruit, listening as another man exclaims over the fruit's exorbitant cost. The bicolor mage, meanwhile, stands alone, gazing into the depths of the forest, his back to the others. The bald official attempts to calm the red-haired instructor, reminding her that they are not at the academy and cannot expect everyone to be equally powerful. Nora's expression shifts to one of surprise, a hint of disgust crossing her features. The red-haired instructor, frustrated, points out that barely 10 minutes have passed since the exam began, while the bicolor mage remains aloof and Taryn looks on with concern. The bald official, looking directly at the mage, clarifies that the exam's true purpose is to weed out those who disregard orders. He stands silently by the ancient tree as a voice from an unseen observer declares, "You may leave." The words hang in the air, leaving an unsettling silence among the students, as the observer's voice trails off into an ellipsis. From their distant vantage point, the bald official remarks, "Sounds as though he's already given up. We should get rid of him." The red-haired instructor, however, questions his harsh judgment. "Wait, doesn't that mean we won't be defeated?" Unmoved, the official reiterates his decision. It's too late for him. He's already given up. Yet, the bicolor mage, with a defiant glint in his eye, dismisses their assessment. "I don't care what you say about that." Suddenly, the clear sky above them begins to shimmer, and the faint outline of an E-class monster materializes, its presence heralded by a blinding flash of light. Taryn, startled by the sudden appearance, can only utter, "A monster?" He lets out a soft, almost imperceptible sniffle, his gaze fixed on something above. Nearby, Nora also sniffs, a small green snake coiled around her neck, its head resting near her cheek. She reaches up, gently touching the snake's head, a worried thought crossing her mind. What if the creature could harm someone? Suddenly, a massive, feathered creature with a sharp beak and talons descends from the sky, snatching the green snake in its mouth, revealing it to be no ordinary serpent. The snake, now free from the bird's grasp, begins to slither down a nearby tree trunk. As the bird monster soars away to the west, its form silhouetted against the setting sun, marking the end of the day. The green snake, now on the ground, speaks with a surprisingly clear voice, insisting it was only trying to help and that there was no need for painful or dangerous special training. Nora and Nero listen intently, the elf girl musing that if the snake were to remove itself in the future, it would definitely affect her next mission. Meanwhile, the bird monster continues its flight, the green snake still visible in its grasp, a strange alliance or capture unfolding in the twilight. The large bird monster continues its flight, its talons clamped firmly around the green snake, which still struggles to speak. It laments its predicament, wondering if this is the painful and dangerous special training it had been warned about, before its voice trails off. Meanwhile, Nora watches the monster disappear into the distance, a look of deep concern etched on her face, while Taryn observes her reaction. He turns to Nero, instructing him to go up and steal one of the bird's eggs, then run away. Nero, standing nearby, looks up at the massive tree, a hint of surprise on his young face. Nora, however, interjects with a fierce determination, urging Nero to just do it. Without hesitation, Nero begins to scale the enormous tree, his small figure quickly ascending the rough bark. He disappears into the dense network of roots and branches at its base, only to burst out moments later, a large egg clutched in his arms, just as the enraged bird monster swoops back down, letting out a furious shriek. A searing red energy blast erupts from the monster, engulfing Nero in its destructive force. Engulfed in a searing green energy blast, Nero screams as the force rips him from the giant tree, sending him plummeting towards the ground. Above, the bird monster's face contorts into a snarl of pure, unbridled fury. Its eyes glowing red as it realizes its precious egg is gone from the nest, a primal roar echoing, "That's my egg. Who took it?" From a safe distance, Nora watches the chaos, her frustration evident as she mutters, "Damn it, I can't think of anything good." Still plummeting, Nero clutches the stolen egg tightly, knowing he has no time to dwell on his predicament, while the enraged bird monster dives relentlessly after him. Below, two other formidable bird monsters stand poised, their muscular forms adding a new layer of threat to the unfolding drama. Nora, still observing the chaos, idly wonders, what if a charming male bird monster comes to a different location? Meanwhile, the primary bird monster's face remains a mask of pure, unadulterated fury, its empty nest serving as a constant reminder, fueling its vengeful pursuit. High above the forest canopy, the winged monster draws its bow, its gaze fixed on the falling figure. Its voice echoing with primal fury, it vows not to let the thief escape with the egg, cursing the years it had waited for its hatching. With glowing blue eyes burning, the creature promises to make its victim regret ever being born. A green reticle snaps into place, and the bowstring sings as an arrow is released. Meanwhile, Nero plummets through the dense foliage, the monster's enraged shouts still ringing in his ears. He desperately thinks to himself that he cannot possibly handle this situation alone. A glowing projectile, imbued with raw power, streaks through the air with a resounding POW. The arrow, a white blur, tears through the forest canopy with a sharp pashak. As it closes in, Nero continues his uncontrolled descent, now enveloped in a faint blue energy aura. The energy arrow, fired with lethal intent, strikes something unseen, deflecting with a burst of pink light. Its impact leaves the arrow broken on the forest floor, feathers scattered around its shattered shaft. Nearby, the bicolor mage stands tall, his dark cloak flowing around him. He looks down at Nero, who coughs weakly on the ground, spitting out a small amount of blood. The mage's expression is unreadable as he ponders what exactly just happened. Later, the two sit together on a grassy hill, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in warm hues. Nero's gaze is distant, his violet eyes reflecting the fading light. The vast expanse of the sky stretches out before them, a silent witness to their shared moment. As the last light fades, a profound thought emerges. There is a natural force at play between these two, like wild animals drawn together. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Nero and the mage sit together beneath the towering tree. A sudden thought igniting in his mind as he exclaims, "That's it. It's fire. We can use a wildfire." A dark, glowing chasm splits the earth, radiating an ominous light. As if in response, Terran extends his hand, a surge of pink magical energy erupting from his palm with a soft paw sound. Beside him, Nora mirrors the action, her own hand glowing with a similar pink aura, a faint ah accompanying the spell's activation. And the bald official joins them, his hand also radiating the vibrant pink energy, adding his own ah to the chorus of incantations. Together in the forest, the three mages stand, each enveloped in a shimmering pink aura, as their combined spells surge forward with a series of pot sounds. Deep within the chasm, a massive, glowing eye snaps open, a guttural umjik sound echoing from its depths. The cave monster, a colossal bird-like creature, then bursts forth, soaring through the air with a powerful pot, as it leaves a trail of dust in its wake. Above the forest canopy, the mist swirls, obscuring the full extent of the unfolding conflict. As the powerful magic reverberates, the mage with the long white hair raises his arm, a wave of energy rippling around him. His red eye widens in shock, a stark realization dawning on him that the task given by the Empire permits them to utilize whatever power they have at their disposal, even if that power is something beyond their control. Nearby, the elf-eared girl cries out in distress, calling for Jiras as the full impact of the monster's emergence becomes clear. From the depths of the chasm, the massive cave monster, with its scaly green body and feathered wings, soars into the sky, its glowing yellow eyes fixed on the horizon. Below it, the chasm pulses with raw, chaotic energy, a swirling vortex of pink and purple light. The creature continues its powerful flight, leaving the glowing rift behind as it gains altitude. Its taloned feet, glowing with a faint purple aura, are poised for action, ready to strike. With a piercing shriek, the monster flies over a vast forest, its silhouette stark against the vibrant orange hues of the setting sun. It becomes a distant speck, disappearing into the twilight, leaving behind only the fading glow of the horizon. Having seemingly overcome a significant challenge, Terran lifts Nero in a triumphant embrace, exclaiming their success. His face alight with pride, Terran praises the young boy, calling him a genius. Meanwhile, an elderly elf kneels, a faint purple aura emanating from a small creature nearby, the victory achieved without harm to either the elf or the goblin. As Terran places a glowing hand on Nero's shoulder, he muses that such power would likely instill fear even in wildfires. The elder elf stands, Nora observing from a distance, reminding them that those who wield the elf's power are bound by the Empire's rules and cannot use their abilities against them. A glasses-wearing mage beams with delight, announcing their success in finally finding a true mage. Terran lets out a booming cry of exhilaration. His face contorted in a wide, joyful smile, clearly pleased with the outcome. Nero, too, smiles brightly, Nora visible behind him, sharing in the collective relief and accomplishment. Under the pale glow of a crescent moon, the grand architecture of the city stood silent, only to be bathed in the warm light of a new day, revealing its intricate details. As the day progressed, he found himself walking away from the bustling center, glancing back one last time at the path they had traveled. Beside him, Jiras clapped Terran on the shoulder, offering a comforting, if slightly gruff, sentiment. "Don't cry, bro," he said, as Nero added, "You first here." Jiras then declared his own need to depart, promising to return soon. Terran, walking alongside the young man, wondered aloud when they would next meet, concluding it would likely be on the battlefield. Jiras, however, dismissed such grim predictions, urging them to focus on living longer and writing their own stories. As they continued down the ornate corridor, Terran inquired about Teresu, only for Jiras to explain she had gone to take a shower, adding with a sigh, "Forget about that cold-hearted girl." He turns his back, announcing his departure. His footsteps echo softly as he walks away. Behind him, Jiras and Terran watch him go, their faces etched with silent sorrow. Terran's voice cracks, reminding him of his promise to write, but Nero simply states that this place was never truly home. A moment later, Nora appears, her light blue hair swaying as she asks if he's already gone. She then turns to Jiras and Terran, questioning how they could let him leave so easily. Jiras looks away, admitting that for him, this might be a final farewell. Nora acknowledges the truth of his words, but with a determined glint in her eyes, she vows to wait for Nero. The doorway stands empty, a silent testament to his departure. A look of utter disbelief washes over Nero and Jiras as they process the unexpected invitation. She's inviting us? Nero questions, his voice laced with surprise. She just washed herself? Plus, she's the only girl left amongst us. Meanwhile, a determined voice echoes, declaring, no matter if it's the Empress or the Princess, I'll also wake up. A hand clenches tightly, the sound of metal clinking softly. Soon after, Nero finds himself in a refined setting, standing behind Nora as she sits at a table, her back to him. Turning to face him, she calmly offers, have some tea. As a delicate teacup and pot are presented, she adds, almost as an afterthought, it's just pretty expensive. Nero, holding the offered cup, looks utterly taken aback by this revelation. As Nora elaborates, her expression unchanged. Going by the Mu Empire's currency, it's probably around 200 gold. Nero takes a careful sip, the steam rising from the incredibly costly beverage. Still reeling from the revelation of the tea's exorbitant cost, he hears Nora casually mention that she wanted about 30 gold coins for it. A choked sound escapes him, his eyes wide with disbelief. Nora, however, remains composed, her gaze distant as she begins to speak, revealing that her nickname used to be Crispy. Her hands rest gently on the table as she explains that the fate of her family rested heavily on her shoulders, and she was raised with affection. A younger version of Nora stands, poised and serene, a visual representation of her past. She recalls her upbringing, which she describes as neither warm nor cold, standing between two adult figures. The adults, she continues, expected her to be the best in the world. The world, she muses, was built on a delicate balance of push and pull, a concept of equilibrium. Her hand is shown, reflecting on her past, with one exception to her family's affection. He was someone who gave her the only warmth she needed. Her uncle, a kind man, would often spend time with her, sharing small, glowing treasures and moments of quiet affection. Despite the family's harshness, he was the only one who treated her like a human being, earning her deep love. But then one day, her uncle fell in love with a housemaid named Adele. To gain approval from the family elders, he was forced to make a difficult choice. The family's cold words echoed in her mind, demanding gratitude for her very existence within their ranks. After that incident, he was no longer permitted to see Adele, his beloved, leaving him heartbroken and alone. That's when her uncle, pushed to his limit, began to change. And then, one day, her uncle declared that the thing inside him had finally crumbled, leaving him feeling utterly broken. Even as a child, Nora could sense the impending tragedy, pleading with him to find a more reasonable choice, begging him not to give up. But her uncle had already reached a point far beyond her reach. A dark, oppressive aura began to emanate from him, consuming his form. In the end, he chose a path that brought nothing but pain to everyone around him. Young Nora stood amidst a pool of crimson, witnessing the horrifying aftermath. Her uncle, eyes now glowing a malevolent red, screamed in a fit of pure, unadulterated rage, his fury unleashed upon the world. Leaving a trail of blood in his wake, he walked away from the devastation he had wrought. As Nora recounts her painful past, she admits to Nero that she had lived her life believing the only right path was through making sacrifices, while he, listening intently, expresses his shock at her story. Reflecting on the incident with her uncle, she had resolved never to try and save anyone else again. Lost in her memories, she had continued to believe that the only right path was through making sacrifices. Tears streamed down her face, a silent testament to the enduring pain of her past. But now, reaching out a hand, she confesses her uncertainty, her resolve wavering as another's hand gently clasps hers. Observing the image of her distraught uncle, Nero offers his unwavering support, asking for her trust. With a determined gaze, he makes a solemn promise to make things happen. Nora, taken aback by his earnestness, can only stare, speechless, as his words resonate deeply within her. He agrees to the promise, but asks for a moment. Nora watches him from a window, wondering where he's going. Suddenly, a sharp, glowing force strikes. The impact sends him reeling, his face contorted in shock. He plummets from the building, a trail of smoke marking his rapid descent. Moments later, he stands in the doorway, looking back at Nora, explaining that he wanted to show them what they were capable of. A distinct click echoes through the air. Nero's eyes glow with fierce determination, a powerful aura emanating from him as Nora and her uncle stare in stunned disbelief. An instructor addresses a gathering of students, his voice booming as he congratulates them for surviving their first year at the academy. He then adds, with a hint of surprise, that he had thought them all quite foolish, expressing his amazement that most had passed the second exam, leaving one student to wonder if he was truly congratulating them. The instructor continues, reminding them of the established procedure. They must now bid farewell to their old group mates, as new groups are being formed today. With a commanding tone, he instructs them to step forward when their name is called, announcing the first assignment. Group A, Nergans. Nero, looking surprised, hears another name, Johanna, called out, and internally pleads to be assigned to a group with either of two specific individuals. As the elf girl beside him expresses her strong desire not to be in the same group as someone named Evan, the instructor calls out again, Group D, Nero. Nero, with a determined expression, raises his hand, confirming his presence with a clear, "Yes, sir." The students collectively respond with a resounding yes, sir, to their assignments, but then the instructor calls out yet again, Group E Nero, adding another layer of confusion to the process. The Grand Academy building stood majestically under a clear sky, its domes and spires reaching towards the heavens. Within its hallowed grounds, a procession of students, including Nero and his companions, moved with purpose, their new academy uniforms a stark contrast to their previous attire. Sometime later, the period of group reassignment arrived, marking a new chapter for all. The students navigated the academy's ornate hallways, a mix of anticipation and apprehension on their faces. Every student had now received their new group assignments, setting the stage for fresh dynamics. Suddenly, Jiras stepped forward, his voice booming with authority, declaring himself Nero's leader and demanding his name. He continued to address the assembled students, warning them of the consequences should they fail to meet his expectations. The elf girl, however, offered a different sentiment, smiling brightly as she expressed her trust in Nero. As he walked away, Nero pondered his new situation, wondering what challenges lay ahead for him. The students, now clad in their new black and gold academy uniforms, find themselves in an opulent hall, one of them remarking on the lack of prior mention regarding their new group assignments. Another student dismisses the concern, stating that it doesn't truly matter, as they will simply take a slave with them. Nero looks down, a question forming in his mind as he observes the shadowy figure of a slave before them. His companions echo his silent query, their expressions a mix of surprise and mild disdain. The green-haired student, Taryn, reassures them that the slave will be in the same group regardless, while the glasses-wearing mage agrees, adding that their high ranks mean they don't need anyone to hold them back. Nero, still looking down, quietly acknowledges the situation. Taryn then turns to him, proposing that he take on the role of group leader, a suggestion that catches Nero by surprise. Taryn elaborates, confident that Nero's presence alone guarantees success, making luck irrelevant. A loud thud echoes through the grand hall as Nero stands before an ornate golden door. His gaze lingering on the empty space he leaves behind. He looks down, a quiet contemplation settling over him. The thought that it is far better to be a leader than to be forced into generosity. Meanwhile, a soft, ethereal blue light illuminates another chamber within the academy, where Taryn and the glasses mage stand in disbelief, discussing the new group assignments. Taryn exclaims, wondering aloud if one of their new members is truly a slave, while the glasses mage confirms the rumor, adding that she is apparently a half-elf. The elf girl, listening intently, expresses her surprise, admitting she had thought the individual was ugly. Suddenly, a powerful hand bursts from the broken earth with a resounding crash, revealing Jiras, covered in dirt, as he defiantly declares that he will only die on this day. Taryn vehemently declares that they will not be grouped with those people. His voice rising in frustration, he questions how someone's lineage, being the son of Saiyan, could grant them such authority. A stern expression hardens his face, a silent warning echoing that if one wishes to survive, they must adhere to their own principles. Nero, looking resigned, reluctantly agrees. Yeah, sounds good. From a hidden vantage point, the elf girl observes the tense exchange, her expression clouded with concern. Meanwhile, an ornate, heavy door stands closed, hinting at the secrets within. Later, Nora questions the others, wondering what could be wrong with Excanum being their group leader. As Taryn continues to express his apprehension about the group's composition. Dismissing the lingering apprehension, Nero declares his indifference to the situation, asserting that the responsibility lies with the one who brought it about. Nearby, Nora watches the exchange, a bead of sweat tracing her temple as concern etches her features. Later, under the pale glow of a crescent moon, the city sleeps, its grand architecture silhouetted against the night sky. Far from the academy's halls, the bicolor mage stands alone in a desolate, rain-swept landscape, his form a solitary figure against the gloom. His gaze sharpens, his eye flaring with an intense, otherworldly purple light. As power surges through him, a vibrant purple aura begins to swirl around his legs, radiating outward. The energy intensifies, enveloping his entire form in a brilliant, crackling violet glow as he looks down, a formidable presence. His lips part, revealing sharpened teeth amidst the swirling purple light, a testament to his transformation. With a fierce resolve, he declares he will not lose again, his body radiating raw, untamed power. As his transformation deepens, dark purple energy swirls violently around him, crackling with raw power. Meanwhile, a gentle, verdant energy, adorned with swirling leaves, manifests nearby. The bicolor mage stands shirtless, engulfed in the vibrant purple aura, his eyes closed in deep concentration. Nora watches him, her own hand glowing with a soft, golden light as she explains her actions. She is testing the very limits of her bloodline, pushing her abilities to their edge. With a concerned expression, she warns him that he is going to get himself killed if he continues down this path. He turns his back to her, his voice firm as he declares he would rather die than bring shame to his family's honor again. Nora watches his determined stance, a silent understanding passing between them in the quiet forest. She reflects on his past actions, remembering a time when his resolve was virtuous and just. A voice warns, urging him not to let the flames of his anger consume him, lest even the good he possesses be burnt to ashes. The view shifts to a distant city, its grand dome gleaming under the bright sun. On a raised platform, a towering, muscular figure questions Terran, wondering why he is the sole survivor of his group, while Terran inquires about the group leader. The large man looks down as Terran confirms he is the group's professor, before the man presses him further about the whereabouts of his groupmates. The professor's face contorts in rage, his eyes glowing red as he shouts that they abandoned him, only for Terran to frantically interject, insisting they are merely slow and will arrive shortly. Terran's face is etched with distress, beads of sweat forming on his brow as he struggles to maintain his composure. The scene shifts to a serene natural landscape under a bright sky. A young Kundan stands amidst a rocky terrain, observing several dark, spherical objects, as a thought echoes in his mind about the importance of collective unity over individual focus. Chaos will inevitably erupt if one becomes separated or falls behind the group, a lesson that resonates deeply within the young student. As he looks back at the other children in the boat, Kundan ponders, urging himself to first ask a crucial question. Even though others might be the cause of issues, could the problem actually lie with him? He continues his internal dialogue, wondering why such self-reflection is considered so important. The answer comes to him with quiet certainty. It is because one must always learn to reflect upon oneself. A troubled expression crosses his face as he finally voices the uncomfortable question. Is he truly the problem here? A broom sweeps across a tiled floor, the rhythmic scrape echoing through the room. Meanwhile, at a nearby table, Nero and Kundan, along with other students, share a moment of laughter while playing cards. Their cheerful shouts fill the air, as the game continues with high spirits. However, it seems Nero's luck has run out, as he now finds himself sweeping the floor, while his companions continue their game, still chuckling. Later, a sweeping vista of lush, tiered mountains unfolds, a voice announcing their arrival at the Excanum Hills, a place earned through hard work. Standing before a gathered crowd, Nero and Kundan observe the assembly, ready for whatever comes next in this new environment. The sun shines brightly over the verdant landscape, as the area is revealed to be rich in mana, teeming with diverse plant and animal life. As the group stands overlooking the Excanum Hills, Nora expresses her surprise, remarking that she had no idea there were blade rams in the Middle Kingdom. The creature in question, a formidable blade ram, is a horned beast with a thick, dark hide. Terran, standing beside Nora, echoes her sentiment, wondering aloud if such creatures truly exist here. The bicolor mage, a knowing smile playing on his lips, explains that the blade rams are no longer found in the Middle Kingdom, having been driven out by the inhabitants of the Excanum Hills. He adds that these creatures are highly aggressive and possess an enormous appetite. He concludes that the blade rams are no longer a threat, but their presence once caused significant damage to the region. Nora, her back to the viewer, then asks if they are going to hunt the blade rams today, as she holds her staff ready. Addressing a large assembly, the bicolor mage declares that they will not be hunting blade rams today, but instead, they will be participating in a gathering in Aruka. He emphasizes that they must work together as a group, as they will be observed by the masters of magic. Nora, looking down thoughtfully, acknowledges the gravity of the situation, understanding that they will not be able to act alone. The challenge begins with a voice announcing the rules of the hunt, declaring that the first to land and attack claims the game. As the participants spread out, a massive blade ram is spotted in the distance. The creature lowers its head, its eyes glowing with a fierce purple light as a faint aura crackles around its horns. Several figures, including Nero, charge forward, blades drawn, eager to be the first to strike. The blade ram lets out a thunderous roar, charging directly into the fray. Its powerful form barrels forward, purple energy intensifying around its horns, ready to gore any who stand in its path. Nero, caught off guard, is forced to retreat, his footsteps echoing his hasty escape. He looks back, his face etched with distress and a fresh cut marring his cheek, as a voice calls out to him. Later, walking away from the hunting grounds with two companions, one of them advises him to take it easy for the day, acknowledging the difficult encounter. A dismissive voice suggests he can simply leave and do nothing. Nero lets out a frustrated cry, his face contorted in annoyance. The dense forest canopy stretches overhead, dappled light filtering through the leaves. Suddenly, a monstrous maw opens wide, dripping with saliva and revealing rows of sharp teeth. Ignoring any previous warnings, Nero charges forward, his sword already drawn and aimed at the massive blade ram. The creature's immense bulk fills the space, its powerful form a formidable obstacle. With a thunderous impact, the blade ram slams its leg down, cracking the very earth beneath it. Undeterred, Nero swings his blade in a swift, arcing motion, striking the beast. The blade ram's eyes glow with an ominous red light, its gaze fixed on the young hunter. A sharp cry escapes Nero as he prepares for the next phase of his assault. A wave of shimmering blue energy erupting from his outstretched hand, striking the blade ram with a forceful impact. The creature's massive maw opens wide in a silent roar of pain or surprise, its powerful form momentarily staggered. Before it can recover, Nero launches himself high into the air, a trail of red magical particles following his ascent. The blade ram stands firm, its thick legs planted on the ground, unaware of the impending aerial assault. He descends swiftly, landing directly on the creature's broad back, and with a powerful swing, brings his sword down upon its head. The blade ram's eye widens in shock and pain, a thought echoing through the air. These small beings possess an unexpected amount of power. He flinches, a powerful roar echoing through the space. The blade ram, its eyes glowing with an ominous purple light, lets out a thunderous bellow. But Nero, anticipating its next move, looks down with a determined gaze. In a flash, he's atop the monster's head, his sword already raised for a decisive strike. Leaping away from the impact, he lands gracefully on the ground. The blade ram's massive form begins to topple, crashing down with immense force. As it falls, Nero delivers a final, swift strike, ensuring its defeat. The monster hits the ground with a heavy thud, its struggle finally over. Lying motionless, the blade ram is defeated, Nero's sword embedded in its head. He plummets through the inky blackness of a deep chasm, the ground rushing up to meet him. A sudden surge of purple energy flares around him, his eyes widening in alarm as he realizes the gravity of his situation. From the abyss below, a monstrous roar echoes, revealing a hulking, gray creature with glowing eyes. Still falling, the young man's purple aura intensifies, preparing for the inevitable clash. He lets out a defiant cry, his descent accelerating. Gripping his sword tightly, he curses under his breath, knowing this might be his last burst of mana. With a blinding flash, he strikes, a powerful blow tearing through the air. The creature below lets out another pained roar as the impact ripples across its form. The monstrous creature's massive leg looms, a dark, scaly presence against the crimson backdrop of the abyss. Below, a small figure plummets headfirst, Nero's body a blur against the deepening red. The chasm stretches endlessly below him, revealing a faint, glowing blue light at its distant base. He drops further into the darkness, the air rushing past him with a soft whoosh. His descent continues, his body tumbling with each passing moment. The chasm walls blur around him, a dizzying tunnel of rock and shadow. He shrinks to a speck against the vastness, the glowing light below growing steadily larger. Finally, with a violent splash, he collides with the luminous blue water at the chasm's base. The force of the impact wrenches a pained cry from him, his face contorted in agony as glowing particles swirl around his head. He lies broken at the chasm's bottom, his body submerged in the glowing blue water, barely able to form a thought. A weak, almost imperceptible laugh escapes him as he stares up at the distant, blinding light above. His face is a mask of pain, bruised and bleeding from the impact. He can't even lift a finger, the agony overwhelming him, and a chilling thought echoes in his mind. Is he truly dying? No, he refuses to accept it. He won't die like this. Suddenly, a dark, winged silhouette plunges from the sky, its descent marked by a rush of air. As his consciousness flickers, a memory surfaces, a figure with glowing purple eyes, reflecting on his solitude, and the bitter truth of being a worthless slave. Another creature follows, its wings beating with a wet thud, as the internal voice asserts its unique nature, unable to be like others. The air fills with the frantic flapping of wings, as a swarm of dark, bird-like monsters descends upon the helpless Nero. Still plummeting through the dark abyss, Nero remains surrounded by the menacing bird-like creatures, his body a helpless target in their descent. Suddenly, a powerful burst of purple energy erupted from his form, sending the monsters scattering with a resounding quang. High above, peering over the cliff edge, the elf girl's eyes widened in horror as she spotted him, a desperate cry of Nero, tearing from her throat. Lying broken at the bottom, he could only look up and weakly warn her, pleading, "Don't, come here." Ignoring his desperate words, the elf girl began her trembling descent down the treacherous cliff face, her determination unwavering. Her foot found purchase on a jagged rock, a faint purple glow emanating with a soft TTK. With another cry of KYA, she continued her rapid, almost reckless, descent. Finally, her foot connected with the solid ground below, a distinct dang-tang echoing through the chasm. She landed with a powerful kakong, sending a shower of rocks and dust flying as she reached Nero's side. Despite his own pain, Nero looks up at the elf girl, chiding her for following him into danger, only to realize that she too is now hurt, her small body trembling with exhaustion and fear as she lets out a pained gasp. A soft, distressed groan escapes her lips, her face contorted in discomfort. Nero, still looking at her with concern, then admits with a wry expression that he himself is in considerable pain. Deep within a cavern, a faint green glow emanates from Nero. The elf girl stares, questioning how he's performing healing magic, a skill they haven't learned yet. Her expression is one of intense curiosity and slight confusion. Nero confirms he found something, prompting the elf girl to ask how. Kundan laments over his fallen friend, Nero, distraught and unsure what to do. He realizes he might not be able to heal him in time, but then a thought strikes him. Kundan declares that he, too, can heal him. He possesses a special ability, a power some are born with, but his own power wasn't something he was born with. Still recovering from his ordeal, Nero hears the elf girl remark that she feels much better now, to which he simply affirms. She then praises his amazing abilities, leaving him slightly confused. She continues, explaining that kind people are rare and most treat others poorly, wondering how he manages to go out of his way to help. He simply replies that it's because he puts in a lot of effort, a simple truth that seems to resonate deeply with her. The elf girl admits to letting her guard down for a moment, reflecting on a difficult task she knew she had to accomplish, even as a dream began to form in her mind. Within this dream, a figure with bicolor hair walks resolutely towards a distant, glowing goal, surrounded by vast darkness, yet never giving up. The light at the end of his efforts beckons, a promise of something waiting for him. Immediately after this vivid dream, the troubles within her own body ceased, and a profound sense of calm washed over her. Afterward, she continued to put more and more effort into maintaining her body. A small, glowing orb now held gently in her hand. Nero, still listening, can only look on with a puzzled expression, asking what exactly she is trying to convey. She explains that the power he possesses will become immense, requiring him to not only control and accept it, but also to be capable of rejecting it. Continuing, she disagrees with his previous sentiment, asserting that one cannot live life only seeing what they wish to see, as it blinds them to everything they hate. She believes he must confront and ultimately conquer those difficult feelings. He considers her words, acknowledging their theoretical truth, but internally struggles with his own lack of positive feelings, especially concerning his power to reproduce and strengthen creatures. A gentle smile graces her lips as she adds, she herself doesn't have enough good deeds in her life. Nero simply stares, processing her cryptic statement. With a firm resolve, she instructs him to become stronger. Then, settling into a cross-legged position, she announces her intention to meditate, a faint glow emanating from her. Nero watches her, recalling that meditation is a way to recover mana and strengthen the body, before agreeing to her lead. Following her example, he too settles into a meditative pose beside her. After their shared meditation, the two children remained seated in the quiet cave, a sense of calm settling around them. A moment later, the elf girl stirred, a surprised expression on her face as she spoke. My body is a little stiff, but I can feel a lot of energy within me. She continued, her voice filled with newfound vigor. It's like my mana has been completely restored, and my physical strength feels like it's returned to its peak. With a renewed sense of purpose, the two stood up, ready to continue their journey. As if to prove her point, the elf girl extended her hand, conjuring a brilliant orb of pure, white light that pulsed with raw mana, a clear demonstration of her restored power. Leaving the cave behind, Nero remarked, "It's amazing how much better you feel after meditating." The elf girl nodded, a faint glow still emanating from her hand as she replied, "I always believed that there was no way to overcome my past, but I will eventually find the way. I will find the path." She believes she can now overcome her past, finding her own path forward. But as she stands, a terrifying vision of the monster that once haunted him flashes through Nero's mind, causing him to collapse in a desperate plea. The journey from the cave isn't long, but it still requires a significant walk. Regaining his composure, he agrees to continue, ready to face whatever lies ahead. Their path leads them across a desolate, sun-baked landscape. In the distance, a lone sword stands impaled in the earth, a silent sentinel. As they approach, a sudden impact sends him sprawling to the ground. He quickly recovers, scanning the horizon from a rocky outcrop. A monstrous roar erupts as the cave monster lunges, forcing him to recoil, while she calmly asserts that they must forge their own destiny. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desolate, rocky landscape, a lone, glowing sword stands impaled in the earth, drawing the attention of the two young travelers. They approach cautiously, and the elf girl, her eyes still glistening with unshed tears, reaffirms her resolve, whispering, "I'm not going to cry anymore." Later, as they rest, Nero expresses his deep frustration, wondering aloud how much longer they must search for a way out of this desolate place. The vast, cloudy sky above them seems to mock their plight, stretching endlessly as the day draws to a close. Their brief respite is shattered as they find themselves surrounded by hulking, elephant-like creatures, prompting Nero to exclaim his exasperation at this new predicament. A stern-faced, bearded man, flanked by his own group, watches them with an angry gaze. And he declares that only Drago's group had ever offered him assistance, leaving Nero utterly bewildered. Nero, now visibly enraged, scoffs at the situation, lamenting that they could have easily won if there had been just one competent person among them. A professor announces the results, declaring that with the current standings, the winning group is Group A. The bright light of the arena shines down, as the king and two students, Kundin and the purple-eyed student, observe from their elevated seats. Below, a crowd of students murmurs, wondering why the announcement is taking so long, before one exclaims that the participants have arrived. A red-haired student reacts with disbelief, questioning how someone could have hunted two targets by himself, and what that could possibly mean for the results. Kundin and a green-haired student share a look of astonishment, their expressions mirroring the collective shock. Suddenly, a group of students erupts in cheers, exclaiming that they are in first place. The female student and the purple-eyed student watch, equally surprised, as the king prepares to make his final declaration. With a gloved finger pointing decisively, the king begins to announce the winning group. The king's voice booms across the hall, declaring that if it weren't for Neria, he would have died, and those blade rams would have been food for the crows, while Nero, standing among the students, silently pleads for mercy. He continues, insisting that his score be given to Neria's group, a statement that sends a ripple of shock and confusion through the assembled students. With a proud declaration, the king praises Neria for saving Nero's life, leaving the students to murmur in hesitant agreement and confusion. The students begin to question the announcement, wondering aloud if the blade rams were truly hunted by a single person and how Neria's group could have possibly won under those circumstances. Amidst the growing unrest, a gleaming sword hilt is gripped firmly, and Nero, his face contorted in defiance, challenges his accuser to try and kill him if they are truly so brave. He stands ready, sword drawn, facing the red-haired student who had questioned the results. Suddenly, a brilliant light erupts, drawing the attention of the entire student body, who turn to gaze at its source. Nero, now alone, also turns, his gaze fixed on the intense glow. Inside a grand room, Nero and Kundan are engrossed in a game of chess, their pieces poised for strategic moves. While nearby, the elf girl sits quietly, her attention fully captured by the book in her hands. Her gaze remains fixed on the text, even as she senses a lingering stare, causing her to finally look up with a hint of irritation and declare, "No need to stare at me like that. I know I'm pretty." A sharp, tearing sound echoes as a purple-eyed figure recoils, his expression a mix of shock and fury, exclaiming that he almost had a heart attack. Amidst a bright, sun-drenched landscape, an urgent command to hurry rings out. Nero sprints away, glancing back at a small, dark object he had just thrown, as someone else remarks on his reckless act of flinging it towards the sun. Now on the ground, he looks up with a grimace, realizing he may have wasted precious time. With a decisive stomp, his boot hits the earth. Meanwhile, the bicolor mage races forward, carrying the elf girl on his back, letting out a loud, urgent cry. His robes flash with each powerful stride, a blur of motion across the terrain. The elf girl, held securely, looks on with wide, concerned eyes. Nero, now alone, casts his gaze downward, a somber expression clouding his face. Still reeling from his recent actions, Nero leans against a tree, a quiet question forming in his mind. Meanwhile, a sleek, dark blade arcs through the open sky. As the bicolor mage races through a dense forest, blue energy flaring around him, desperately trying to seize it. He cries out, a frustrated sound escaping his lips. A close-up on the weapon reveals his inner turmoil, as he laments his inability to fully wield the sword, wondering when he will finally master its power. Later, the two figures, now distant specks in a serene park. A quiet thought echoes through the vast, empty space. It is lonely out here. Much later, a group of four stands before a colossal, ancient gate, where Professor A, with his stern gaze, speaks of the importance of endurance. Footsteps echo, a voice echoing in his mind, declaring that escape is impossible. He finds himself before a colossal, segmented gate, its metallic surface groaning as if under immense pressure, leaving him to wonder about this mysterious place. The immense wall stretches endlessly into the distance, a daunting barrier against the unknown. Nearby, a large wild boar slumbers peacefully amidst a patch of strangely glowing, vibrant mushrooms. Standing at the edge of a towering cliff, he gazes out at the vast, open landscape, a realization dawning upon him that this truly is the outside world. Having passed through a simpler wooden gate, he walks onward, his thoughts turning to the harsh reality of his dwindling provisions, knowing they won't last even a month. Clutching his sword, his gaze sharpens with resolve, understanding that in this new world, only his own strength will see him through. He observes the vibrant, otherworldly fungi, recognizing their beauty but also their danger, knowing these poisonous mushrooms are inedible. Under the shade of a lone tree, he stands, surveying his new surroundings, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. A massive, tusked boar sleeps soundly on the verdant grass, a thought echoing that such a creature could even be a friend for life. Yet, under the harsh sun, Nero stares up at the sky, the weight of a 2-month survival challenge pressing down on him. His expression tightens with resolve, a silent vow to overcome the ordeal. Standing before an immense stone wall, he reminds himself that he is the one destined to endure the most within this academy. He recalls a moment of utter exhaustion, the first time he nearly succumbed to death. In the darkness, the faint glow of bioluminescent mushrooms offers a glimmer of hope, a silent plea that there must be an answer somewhere. The sleeping boar, perhaps, holds a key to this endurance test. 2 weeks later, the sky remains vast and indifferent. The towering wall still stands, a silent testament to the ongoing challenge. A sharp, black blade hangs poised in the air. A piercing shriek suddenly echoes through the wilderness. As the blade finds its mark, striking a massive boar with a sickening crunch, blood erupting from the impact. Standing over the fallen beast, Nero lets out a sigh of relief, finally able to secure some sustenance. He grips the hilt of his weapon, his face grim with determination, knowing he must process the kill quickly to make use of its flesh and guts. Blood spatters across the ground as he works, the raw reality of survival laid bare. The next day, however, finds him still beside the carcass, now reduced to bones and rotting flesh, a bitter disappointment. A frustrated curse escapes him as he stares at the spoiled meat, realizing his efforts were largely in vain, with barely any of it salvageable. Kneeling, he can only lament the wasted opportunity, with only rotten meat remaining. Still desperate for sustenance, he attempts to consume something raw, convinced he can manage it. However, his body gives out, and he lies unconscious on the ground as the green-haired student observes, surprised he's still alive. Professor A, assessing the situation, gives the order to move him to the infirmary. Yet, the green-haired student steps forward, a blue aura flaring as he declares, disqualified. The words hit Nero like a physical blow, eliciting a cry of shock and pain. The green-haired student continues, his voice sharp, accusing Nero of relying on others rather than his own abilities. With a surge of blue energy, he enforces the disqualification, causing Nero to recoil in confusion. Desperation etched on his face, Nero pleads for another chance. But the green-haired student kneels, holding him down, and with a final, resolute tone, reiterates, "You are disqualified." A boar-like creature, its snout glowing with faint blue energy, lets out a distressed sound. Meanwhile, Nero sits slumped against a rough wall, the words, "You are being disqualified," echoing in his mind. He can hardly believe it's only been a few days since he arrived in this world, and already he faces disqualification. A wave of shock washes over his face, his eyes wide with disbelief. As he processes the devastating news, a faint pink glow emanates from his eye, a subtle flicker of his latent power. His thoughts drift back to the boar, now lying still and lifeless, its eyes closed. The weight of his father's death, combined with this new failure, leaves him feeling utterly helpless, convinced he will die here. A desperate plea, or perhaps a final gasp, escapes the boar's lips, a haunting reminder of his struggle. He then realizes the truth. The creature he had been trying to hunt was no ordinary beast, but one trained by the academy itself. He knew this test wouldn't be easy, but the reality of it still hit him. A wild boar rooted around in the mud, munching contentedly on something it found. Stepping carefully, he remembered the old saying, "A hog always knows which plants are edible." Approaching cautiously, he extended a hand, offering to share. But the creature's sudden, menacing shift left him wide-eyed and stunned. Without a second thought, he turned and fled. The boar's eyes flared with an ominous orange glow, its form radiating a dangerous aura. It let out a piercing screech as Nero scrambled up the nearest tree, desperate to escape its wrath. Trapped high above, he could only curse his predicament. Clinging to the rough bark high above, he watches the enraged boar below, its guttural screeches echoing through the forest. He thinks to himself that he should have known better, that hogs are inherently greedy and would never share their food. Yet, as the moments pass, the creature's fury seems to subside, replaced by a deep, rumbling snore as it settles down, a faint, white glow emanating from a small object near its snout. From his perch high above, Nero can only watch, trapped by the sleeping beast below. The boar remains oblivious, lost in slumber, leaving Nero to curse his predicament under his breath. High above the clouds, a hot air balloon drifts silently, carrying two observers. Kundin, looking out over the vast landscape, voices his concern, wondering if the ongoing exam might be too challenging for the students. Professor A, peering through a telescope, dismisses the notion, explaining that this trial is designed to push the limits of their young charges, and ultimately, to forge a strong foundation for their burgeoning talents. Meanwhile, a hand, wreathed in dark purple energy, reaches out from the shadows. As a monstrous boar with glowing red eyes asserts that this is especially true when no one is watching. The shadowy figure, its eyes burning with an intense purple glow, stands poised atop the massive beast, observing the world below. He extends a hand, a command echoing through the air, "Obey me." Some men, it is said, turn out to be powerful. As he sits beside the massive boar, a quiet declaration follows, and want to harmoniously coexist. His eyes closed in thought, the figure muses that some men turn out to be powerful and want to harmoniously coexist. He gently strokes the boar's head, continuing his internal monologue. Some men turn out to be charismatic. Offering a carrot to the creature, he concludes his thought, and bring about pity from others. Suddenly, the boar charges forward with a mighty roar, carrying the figure into the fray. His purple eyes glowing with an inner light, the figure continues his contemplation, musing on those who evoke pity. Meanwhile, from a distant vantage point, a young man with glasses and a green-haired companion observe the scene, as the figure's voice echoes, and lastly, he speaks of conquerors, his words carrying a heavy weight. Descending from the high branches of a tree, he approaches the massive boar waiting below. Standing before the beast, he declares, "The purpose of this trial is to draw out their true nature." With a fluid motion, he mounts the boar, his thoughts continuing, as it will determine who they will be in the future. The massive creature surges forward, its powerful legs churning the ground. Carrying its rider, the boar charges with unstoppable momentum. Dust and debris fly in its wake, as the figure exclaims, "Go!" Gritting his teeth, a faint purple aura flickering around him, he struggles to maintain his focus. knowing he cannot afford to fall off. The powerful boar thunders onward, carrying him across the landscape, though a nagging headache makes it difficult to concentrate, wishing his head wasn't so bad. The creature lets out a guttural grunt. Its jaws slightly agape, drool dripping as it maintains its relentless pace. With each powerful stride, the ground beneath them trembles, sending small stones flying. The journey continues without pause. The boar grunting with exertion as its rider urges it forward, cursing under his breath. They press on, the landscape fading into the darkness of night. Until, looking back, he lets out a heavy, ragged breath. The boar snorts, its powerful snout twitching, a low grunt escaping its throat. It continues to grunt, its attention fixed on a small morsel of food lying on the ground before it. The scent of a cracker draws it closer, its tusks nearly brushing the dirt. With a satisfied crunch, the boar devours its treat. From its back, Nero gently pats its side, a soft gesture of affection. But the journey must continue, and he calls out, "Get up!" The remnants of the cracker lie scattered. As the boar, startled, looks up with wide eyes, its momentary indulgence interrupted. Nero's hand returns to its head, gently stroking its coarse fur. Nero, still atop his boar companion, hears a questioning grunt from the creature. And he reassures it, promising a delicious treat. He emphasizes that the snack is made by humans, guaranteeing its quality. As they continue their journey, he gently pats the boar's head, then holds out a small cracker, explaining that he isn't asking for anything for free, nor is he asking it to give up. All he truly desires is for them to travel together. Nero's small hand extends, offering a treat to the large boar. He gently strokes the coarse fur on its head, a soft rustling sound accompanying the gesture. A cascade of crackers tumbles from a bag, scattering across the forest floor. The boar eagerly devours them, a satisfied munching filling the air. Nero watches, a quiet contentment settling over him as the creature enjoys its meal. Meanwhile, in a different setting, the elf girl turns to her companion, asking if he finds their current topic quite fascinating. Kundin, his expression thoughtful, begins to speak of the clever, yet despotic tyrants. Back in the forest, the boar looks up at Nero, who simply encourages it with a soft, more. As the large boar and a smaller companion amble away, grunting softly, Kundin concludes his thought, contrasting the tyrants with wise kings who live peacefully with their people. In the world, two types of beings have always existed, each vying for dominance. Yet, despite their struggles, the outcome has consistently remained the same. As the massive boar loomed over him, its voice a guttural threat, Nero could only hear one chilling truth. You're going to die. The winning side, after all, was the only one ever remembered. 1 month later, the world had moved on, marked by silent, towering monuments. A familiar voice offered congratulations to the professor, acknowledging his efforts. The bicolor mage, looking down, seemed to ponder the words, a quiet escaping him. The professor chuckled warmly, declaring that everyone had clearly improved. Meanwhile, the elf girl, now clad in a striking new attire, expressed her contentment, glad to see everyone thriving. Within the grand halls of the academy, a master's voice echoes, promising the best education without expense to his disciple. As the young student gazes up at a glowing, crystalline structure, the master emphasizes the necessity of hard work to grow stronger. Elsewhere, a woman with vibrant red hair smiles brightly, inviting her own disciple to embrace her, expressing her profound happiness. A powerful blue aura flares around another figure, who gratefully announces their departure, their power now significantly enhanced. The Grand Academy building stands majestically, its ornate architecture a silent witness to the unfolding events. Inside, a professor addresses a vast assembly of students, declaring that new orders will place them all into different groups. Among the crowd, the elf girl, Teresu, looks up in surprise, acknowledging the professor's words with a respectful yes, professor. Nearby, a young boy with blonde hair clasps his hands, his face etched with distress as he desperately pleads. And among the other students, a young man with a distinctive white streak in his hair stands firm, confirming his understanding with a resolute yes, sir. As the new groups are announced, a student exclaims, those two are in. Nero's eyes widen in disbelief, a thought echoing in his mind. The same group again. The academy uniform, with its distinctive gold trim and blue accents, signifies their shared affiliation. For pairs of uniformed legs stand together, their footsteps softly echoing across the tiled floor. The newly formed group of 5 stands in a line, Teresu observing her companions and wondering, I'm the only girl here. In the grand hall, Professor A addresses the assembled students, while Teresu, standing before the platform, boldly declares her ambition. I want to be the group leader. What's wrong with that? Nero's face remains etched with worry, but Teresu, beside him, wears a wide, almost mischievous smile, her thoughts a mix of happiness and sadness. A student's hand snaps up in a crisp salute, a clear affirmation. Yes, sir. With the new assignments made, a student turns and walks away, their footsteps firm on the academy floor. Nero, still reeling from the group assignments, finds himself held firmly by Kundin, who seems to be offering some form of comfort or restraint. As they walk together, a small group forming around them, Nero offers a hesitant apology, While Kundin attempts to reassure him, his words cut short. Suddenly, Nero's attention is drawn to the elf girl beside him, his eyes widening in surprise as he truly takes her in. A name, perhaps a forgotten one, escapes his lips as he questions her identity. Then, with a jolt of recognition, he corrects himself, finally identifying her as Teresu, and himself as Nero. Kundin, his expression concerned, asks Nero if he is all right, to which the young boy affirms his well-being. Observing their exchange, the elf girl watches with a thoughtful gaze. Kundin stands tall, his student robes flowing around him. Still, the instructor presses on, inquiring about the sudden change in Nero's hair, who hesitates before acknowledging the transformation. The elf girl continues to observe, her expression unreadable. The ornate hallway stretches out, silent and empty. Kundin then explains his plan to erect a barrier, but warns that it cannot last indefinitely. As the sole magic user, he declares his intention to protect them all, even if it means fighting to the death. The elf girl listens intently, her gaze fixed on the speaker. As Kundin walks away, his words about protection still echoing, Nero and the elf girl watch him go, the grand hall stretching out before them. A moment later, Nero reflects, feeling that he's finally starting to grasp the intricacies of his training. Kundin turns back to him, a slight exasperation in his voice as he reminds the boy, "Don't call me master. I'm not your master. I don't do anything around here." Nero, however, points out that he started helping without even asking for payment. The two continue their conversation as they walk side by side through the opulent hall, their footsteps echoing softly. Stopping to face each other once more, Kundin declares, "I'll show you the true difference between us again." A complex magical diagram flares to life, a testament to the Academy Master's profound magic. Later, in a training ground, a large, muscular man taunts Nero, asking if he still believes he can win, to which Nero confidently replies, "As promised, sir." Kundin, observing nearby with the elf girl, reaffirms his ambition to become the Academy's master someday. The muscular man warns Nero that even with his magic, victory is out of reach, while Kundin, still focused on his own aspirations, repeats his vow to become the Academy's master. Nero, undeterred, assures the elf girl he'll do his best, as a white-haired man observes Kundin, wondering if he can truly defeat the top dog. Kundin, in turn, reiterates his promise to show the true difference between them once more. As Kundin declares the preliminary assessment complete, Nero looks down at the small, dark objects scattered before him, listening intently. A bald, muscular man steps forward, his voice booming, confirming the next phase is indeed a physical test. Out in an open field, Nero braces himself, a sharp cry escaping him as the challenge begins. He surges forward, a vibrant pink aura flaring around him, his movements a blur of focused energy. The force of his attack sends the muscular trainer reeling, the impact rippling through the air. A heavy, spherical object, possibly a training bomb, is launched, leaving a smoky trail in its wake. Unyielding, Nero continues his assault, now wielding a glowing pink chain-like weapon with fierce determination. The trainer, his hair now stark white, lets out a pained cry as he endures another powerful blow. The ground itself bears witness to the intensity of the battle, a deep crater marking the spot of a devastating impact. He continues his relentless assault, his glowing pink energy chains lashing out, sending the trainer reeling back with a force that makes the onlookers gasp, one even exclaiming, "I almost had a heart attack, you little shit," as the trainer pleads for mercy. From the sidelines, Kundin watches the display, his expression a mix of awe and competitive fire. Declaring, "I'm going first." His gaze fixed on the unfolding power. The trainer, now a white-haired blur of impact, is driven deep into the ground, leaving a massive crater in his wake. Beside Kundin, the elf girl turns to him, a playful challenge in her voice. "Wait, you dare say that and not follow?" The trainer remains motionless within the newly formed chasm, a testament to the sheer power of the attack. Nero stands over him, his glowing chains still active, observing the result of his efforts. A heavy breath escapes him, signaling the immense exertion of the attack. Still reeling from his previous exertion, Nero descends rapidly from the sky, a shower of debris scattering around him. He lands with a solid thud, his foot kicking up a cloud of dust as he makes contact with the ground. Without pause, he begins to run, his heavy breathing echoing across the open field as he pushes himself forward. A massive, rumbling object rolls relentlessly behind him, forcing him to maintain his frantic pace. With a surge of inner strength, he accelerates, a vibrant purple and white aura flaring around him as he pushes past his limits. His face contorts in a grimace of pure effort, pink and purple energy crackling intensely around him as he channels his power. A defiant thought burns in his mind, refusing to yield to anyone, especially not to the likes of Evan. With a final burst of power, the massive object is sent hurtling through the air, his resolve unwavering as he vows never to lose. High above the training grounds, a small object is launched into the clear blue sky, rapidly descending towards the vast green fields below, where distant figures are already gathered. It grows larger with each passing moment, revealing itself to be a massive, rolling boulder, rumbling down a grassy slope as Nero races ahead of it. He glances back, a fierce determination etched on his face, declaring inwardly that he will not lose to Evan. Nearby, Evan watches, his expression unreadable. A white flag snaps in the wind, signaling the next phase of the exercise. The bald trainer bellows, "Go," sending the students, including Nero and Evan, sprinting across the field. Suddenly, wild boars charge into view, their hooves thundering across the ground, prompting a student to question if this is a hunt. As the boars run, a vibrant green magical aura swirls into existence on the field. As the training continued, Nero observed Evan's spell, recognizing the deceptive nature of its display. Running alongside his rival, he declared his intent to claim second place, his competitive spirit burning brightly. Then, with a sudden, decisive move, Evan was sent tumbling through the air, green energy still swirling around him. As Evan looked back in shock, Nero's fist was already closing the distance, a blur of motion. The impact was swift and brutal, connecting squarely with Evan's face. Moments later, Professor A arrived, scooping up the now unconscious Evan and carrying him away from the training grounds. Unfazed by the commotion, Nero continued his sprint, glancing back with an unwavering resolve to win. Meanwhile, the professor's face contorted in a furious yell, his anger echoing across the field. Nero, now surrounded by a faint blue aura, pressed on, his gaze fixed on the finish line. He lies sprawled on the ground, chest heaving, the exertion of the race evident in every ragged breath, while beside him, another student struggles just as much. His companion, too, is utterly spent, his face contorted in exhaustion as he tries to catch his breath. Suddenly, a stern voice cuts through the air, declaring a minute break, as Professor A stands over the two fallen students, while others flee, protesting the sudden halt to their training. The bright sun shines down from a clear blue sky, illuminating the vast, open training grounds. The scene shifts to a tranquil forest, where Professor A extends a small bottle, instructing, "Here, drink this." Nero looks up, surprised, as the professor's hand offers the mysterious liquid. With the professor still holding the bottle out, Nero glances towards the elf-eared girl standing nearby, teasing, "Are you worried about me?" The elf-eared girl, clearly flustered by his remark, snaps back, "Stop saying dumb things, and just drink it." As Nero finally takes a drink from the stamina recovery potion, Professor A watches him intently, stating, "I'm watching on you." Nero remained seated beneath the tree, his gaze distant as Professor A stood over him, a small pouch in hand. A sudden, light-hearted laugh broke the silence, causing Nero to look up as Professor A chuckled softly beside him. The bicolor mage, standing nearby, registered the sound with a flicker of surprise, wondering if that truly was the Teresu he knew, capable of such carefree mirth. With a soft crunch, Nero meticulously peels a potato-like vegetable. While across from him, the bicolor mage sits, a thoughtful expression on his face. He confirms the rumors, explaining that the academy indeed offers training in both magic and swordsmanship, promising employment upon graduation. The two children discuss the Magic and Swordsmanship Academy, a place where one could learn truly useful skills, and Nero, still peeling, asks if all the whispers are true, to which the bicolor mage simply affirms. He then adds that technically, they are all the same, all originating from one source. Nero, looking up with a slight grin, expresses his hope that this doesn't mean he'll be the mage's junior. The elf girl, sipping her tea, simply regards him with a knowing look, muttering about such a simpleton. Unperturbed, Nero continues to peel his vegetable, the soft crunch echoing in the quiet room. He finds himself once again facing the familiar challenge, the trag he knows so well, a cycle he must confront. Meanwhile, a thought crosses his mind, wondering just how often the bicolor mage finds amusement in these situations. Soon, the grand, domed structure of the Magic and Swordsmanship Academy comes into view, its imposing architecture a testament to its prestige. As they approach, Nero looks around in genuine surprise, remarking on the sheer scale of the place, a stark contrast to his expectations. The bicolor mage, leading the small group of students, explains that the academy's curriculum is designed to equip them with practical, useful skills, ensuring that all graduates are well prepared for their future careers. He then conjures a glowing purple crystal, demonstrating how even the most basic magic requires a substantial mana pool, a fundamental truth for any aspiring mage. Nero clenches his fist, a surge of determination filling him as he realizes the importance of mastering these large-scale magical techniques, a challenge he eagerly accepts. The bicolor mage continues, emphasizing that while it might be too soon to celebrate, large-scale magic attacks possess tremendous destructive power, requiring a highly advanced understanding of magic to wield effectively. Another student, listening intently, understands that such power means a substantial mana pool will be required, a daunting prospect for many. The bicolor mage explains that the academy's purpose is to help students discover their true calling, their ideal job. He continues, stating that if one finds themselves struggling with a particular talent or the effectiveness of their attacks, it is best to give up and move on. After all, there are countless other talents to explore, like swordsmanship or archery. The academy's core mission is to help each student uncover the job they are truly meant for. Nero, listening intently, asks if there are specific jobs available. The bicolor mage responds, while a red-haired student questions what his job is, as Nero declares his ambition to become an archer. Nero continues, explaining that he is already proficient with the bow and wishes to become an archer who has mastered all other jobs as well. The bicolor mage, with a knowing look, reminds him that to find the right path for himself, he must first overcome his own prejudices. He then clarifies that there are 3 major jobs available at the academy. He explains that if one possesses great physical strength, they can become a black knight. Or if they are a magician, they can become a black mage. And for those with keen intellect, like the elves, the path of an archer awaits. Addressing Nero directly, the bicolor mage assures him, that's something I don't have to worry about for you. He then clarifies that these other jobs are merely derivations, all stemming from the 3 major, fundamental jobs. He elaborates, stating that some jobs, like a magic swordsman, are simply combinations of these 3 major specializations. Indeed, he confirms, if one were to name the original jobs, they would be the ones providing the fundamental power, glowing with purple energy. These are the foundational roles, holding the power that forms the very core of the world. He continues his lecture, explaining that while one might dream of becoming a magic swordsman, such a role would be considered a derivative and unique job. Becoming one would grant immense power, but it would still be a specialized path, not a fundamental one. As a student confidently declares their own superior talent, the bicolor mage dismisses the notion, implying a deeper truth about talent itself. He calms their impatience, his hand beginning to glow with a vibrant purple energy as he prepares a demonstration. A shimmering orb of magic forms in his palm, explaining that the very concept of talent they imagine will become clear. With a surge of power, he unleashes a wave of sparkling purple energy that expands rapidly. His eyes glow a fierce red as he intensifies the magical output, a powerful purple aura flaring around him, causing the very ground to crack. Finally, he releases a devastating burst of energy, creating a shockwave that distorts the air and sends debris flying. Nero and the elf girl watch, their expressions a mix of awe and concern. The bicolor mage stands calmly, a small, glowing orb of purple energy hovering near his hand, a testament to his unique ability to combine magic and swordsmanship. His hand glows with the same potent energy, as he instructs the class to try it out for themselves. Professor A, observing the demonstration, seems to be attempting to replicate the technique, a small orb of energy forming in his hand as he calls out a name. The bicolor mage looks down at a small, shimmering orb on the ground, while the red-haired and green-haired students behind him stare in disbelief at the residual magic, one of them exclaiming in surprise. Addressing the assembled students, he listens as one of them questions his earlier statements about magic, quickly silencing the interruption. Another student's voice cuts through the air, comparing the size of their own magical output to his. A foot steps firmly onto the ground. The elf girl, with a determined look, holds a glowing orb of her own, also calling out a name. A powerful, chaotic purple aura erupts around Nero, the raw energy crackling and swirling as he attempts to replicate the bicolor mage's technique. Observing the spectacle, the bicolor mage stands before his students, a dark, spiky landscape stretching behind them, as one of them exclaims in awe, while another asks who is next to try. Professor A, standing beside the bicolor mage, marvels at the display, calling it magnificent, to which the bicolor mage simply acknowledges with a quiet "yes, sir." With a steady, deliberate pace, the bicolor mage begins to walk forward, his cloak swaying with each step. He looks down at Nero, still struggling with the uncontrolled energy, and remarks that he will have to take his word for it, as Nero lets out a strained grunt. Continuing his measured advance, the bicolor mage walks past the swirling purple energy, seemingly unfazed. Then, a profound purple aura envelopes the bicolor mage himself, a silent declaration of the power to see yourself emanating from his form. Professor A and the green-haired student observe Nero's continued struggle, with the professor wondering aloud why the boy is even more foolish than Nero, only for the student to advise him that he is better off not knowing. As the bicolor mage stands enveloped in his own powerful aura, the elf girl watches, a look of deep contemplation on her face, as if questioning the true meaning of his demonstration. The bicolor mage looks down at Nero, his voice firm as he explains that the boy's current method is foolish, a mere imitation of the surface. Nero, looking up with a mix of frustration and determination, acknowledges his struggle, asking for guidance. A slight smile playing on his lips, the mage asks if Nero truly wishes to see the full extent of his power, a question that hangs in the air with an unspoken challenge. Without hesitation, Nero's eyes gleam with resolve as he demands a demonstration, urging the mage to show us the true technique. The bicolor mage obliges, a profound purple aura erupting around him, its raw power causing Nero to recoil slightly as the mage declares, the power to see yourself. The sheer force of the expanding energy ripples through the air, a powerful sound echoing across the training grounds. With his arm raised high, the mage stands at the center of a swirling vortex of vibrant purple, the aura growing exponentially, reaching towards the sky. The mage's voice resonates with power, explaining that this is the true form of these mysterious powers, while the elf girl watches, her expression thoughtful and deeply contemplative. His mouth wide in a powerful incantation, The mage unleashes the full might of his Siphonii. The purple energy explodes outwards, engulfing the entire area in a blinding flash, its immense pressure distorting the very air around him. The vibrant purple aura, the true form of the mysterious powers, continues to surge and expand, pulsating with an almost overwhelming energy that fills the space, its particles shimmering and scattering like countless tiny stars. Watching the incredible display, the elf girl's eyes widen slightly, a hint of concern or deep contemplation etched across her features. Amidst the swirling energy, the bicolor mage offers a knowing smile, understanding that this power, Siphonii, is truly the power to see yourself, the ultimate form of these mysterious abilities. His expression then hardens with resolve as he declares, "I'm going to become a swordsman." Nero, overwhelmed by the revelation and the sheer power displayed, can only utter, "Just live exposed me." Along a quiet forest path, Nero walks alone, the silence broken only by his labored breathing. Each ragged gasp escaping him, he struggles to maintain his composure. Confronted by a taller figure, he can only stammer, "W, what are you talking about?" His eyes widen, a desperate plea forming within them. As he insists, "I haven't." The effort leaves him gasping, his breath coming in ragged bursts. Suddenly, his body gives out, a guttural sound escaping him as he begins to fall, reaching out for something to steady himself. A blinding flash of purple energy erupts around him, his eyes glowing with the same eerie light as he hits the ground, overwhelmed by the uncontrolled power. Still overwhelmed, he struggles against the surging purple energy that erupts from his body, while the elf girl watches on, her voice filled with concern. Her question hangs in the air as she stares at the small, indistinct figure in the distance, her expression shifting to one of quiet despair. A profound sadness settles over her features. Looking down, she murmurs that the two of them are truly hopeless. 5 months later, the sun shines brightly over a vast, serene valley. Though appearing beautiful from a distance, this place is, in fact, a critically important strategic location. The bicolor mage, Professor A, and the red-haired student observe a glowing purple structure, realizing it's a magic or mine, a vital source for crafting powerful tools and weapons. However, this once valuable site has now become a den for grotesque monsters, and they know they must reclaim it. A lone warrior stands ready, his blade poised above the shimmering purple crystals. He considers the situation, acknowledging the need for protection, but points out the specific vulnerability of the ore itself, wondering if the monsters are the cause. The red-haired student expresses concern about the vastness of the area and the limited time, while Professor A clarifies that it is indeed an exam, with no equipment or maps provided. Professor A then outlines the challenge, explaining that the day's test is to locate the mine's entrance, which is both small and well hidden, making it quite difficult. The red-haired student reiterates their worry about the time constraint, but Professor A confirms the single-day limit, adding that a special prize awaits at the entrance, available to only one person from each group. The mention of a prize immediately sparks excitement among the students, who eagerly rush forward, their thoughts consumed by the prospect of equipment and rewards. Deep within the mine, the elf girl moves with swift, silent steps, her bow held ready as she navigates the dark, echoing passages. Suddenly, a massive, blocky creature with glowing red eyes emerges from the shadows, letting out a guttural roar that reverberates through the cavern. Without hesitation, she draws her bow and fires, a magical arrow streaking forward with a pink trail, striking the creature and causing chunks of its rocky form to shatter and fall. This task, of course, would prove to be anything but easy. Deep within the cavern, the bicolor mage watches the unfolding chaos, while below him, the elf girl finds herself cornered by a monstrous, rocky creature, a desperate plea escaping her lips. She attempts to counter the hulking golem with a swift strike from her short blade, but the creature proves too formidable. A sudden burst of purple energy erupts from the monster, catching her squarely and sending her flying backward, a cry of pain torn from her. As she recovers, the bicolor mage continues his silent observation from a higher vantage point, his gaze fixed on the unfolding struggle. Suddenly, the mage turns and begins to sprint through the vibrant, autumn-hued forest, his dark cloak billowing behind him. He moves with incredible speed, leaving a faint trail of purple energy in his wake, the glowing flora of the forest blurring past. Meanwhile, the elf girl also flees through the same glowing forest, glancing back with a determined expression as she makes her escape. The bicolor mage continues his rapid advance, his movements stirring the fallen leaves with a soft rustle. Suddenly, Nero bursts into view, his face set with fierce resolve as he declares, "I see how it is." He plummets through the air, a fierce resolve hardening his expression as he vows not to be pushed around any longer. Below him, Kundin clings tightly to Nero, his face etched with worry, pleading for them to stick together. Meanwhile, a light-haired elf also descends rapidly, landing amidst a violent shower of falling rocks and debris, the impact kicking up dust around her. Without hesitation, she draws her bow, releasing a swift arrow into the unseen threat. More debris erupts from the impact, scattering across the desolate landscape. The elf braces herself on one knee, a vibrant purple aura flaring around her, her hand pressed to the ground as energy crackles. Her gaze sharpens with fierce determination as she declares that these monsters are too weak, despite some being powered up. Most are genuine low-rankers. With her light blue eyes gleaming, she continues to survey her surroundings. She surveys the clearing, a small herd of round, gray monsters lumbering through the sparse forest. A thought crosses her mind, realizing the Academy's recent emphasis on large-scale magic attacks now makes perfect sense. With a determined glint in her sharp eyes, she decides to seek them out. She strikes with blinding speed, sending one of the creatures screaming as it tumbles to the ground. Suddenly, a massive, clawed foot descends with brutal force, crushing another small monster into a burst of purple energy. The monstrous foot lifts, leaving behind only a glowing, pulverized mass. The larger creature lets out a deafening shriek, its maw wide in a terrifying display. It then snatches another small monster, its massive claws easily engulfing the struggling form. Observing the brutal display, she watches with a grave expression, her previous target now overshadowed by this new, more formidable threat. Arriving at the scene, a thought crosses his mind. Could these monsters truly not have been placed here by the professors? The ground around him is littered with shattered debris, a clear sign of recent, violent impact. Nero moves with incredible speed, a blur of motion across the ravaged landscape. He comes to a sudden halt, his gaze sweeping over the destruction, a silent question forming in his mind. A gasp escapes him, his expression shifting to one of profound shock. Nearby, a red-haired student lies sprawled on the ground, desperately pleading, "Save me." Nero stands over him, sword drawn, a new question echoing in his thoughts. Is this part of the test? The student's face is contorted in terror as he screams, "Run!" He scrambles away, a sudden realization hitting him as he glimpses a figure in the distance. Is it a guard, or something else entirely? He doesn't wait to find out, turning to flee as a monstrous limb appears behind him. His face contorts in terror, the sound of heavy footsteps echoing behind him. A spray of blood splatters across his cheek, leaving him stunned and questioning the reality of the situation. Eventually, he finds himself overlooking a vast, alien landscape, a world of glowing purple crystals under a crimson sky. From his vantage point, he spots grotesque, shark-like creatures roaming below, their movements confirming his suspicion that these monsters are as foolish as ever. Nearby, a hulking, ogre-like monster grumbles to an unseen companion, remarking that it will take about 4 days for new guards to replace the old ones. He continues, his voice a low growl, emphasizing the need to seize this opportunity to mine as many magic orbs as possible. The bicolor mage's expression hardens as he realizes the unfolding events are no longer a mere simulation or test. His purple eyes glow with an intense, almost electric energy as he processes the sudden, overwhelming shift in reality. Before he can react, a colossal wave of glowing purple energy erupts, engulfing everything in its path. The force of the blast sends him plummeting to the ground, where he lands unconscious near a cascading waterfall. He lies motionless on his back, lost to the world as distant rumblings echo around him. Suddenly, piercing screams tear through the tranquil forest as a blinding light erupts in the distance, signaling a new, terrifying development. An enormous, ogre-like monster, clutching a massive sword, snarls as it recognizes the voice of the elf girl, Teresu, who struggles helplessly in its other hand. Nearby, a swarm of insectoid creatures with glowing orange eyes launch a barrage of energy attacks, their movements swift and relentless. Each impact resonates with a powerful thud as the chaotic battle intensifies. She surveys the carnage around her, the bodies of countless insectoid monsters littering the ground, a grim testament to the sheer numbers they face. A chilling realization dawns on her. This isn't just a test. There are simply too many of them. Meanwhile, the bicolor mage's hand glows with an ominous purple energy, a powerful force overwhelming him. His face contorts in agony as the magical surge intensifies, the raw power tearing through his defenses. Finally, his body gives out, collapsing under the relentless assault of the purple energy. Back on the battlefield, the elf girl gasps for breath, her mana reserves depleted from overusing her magic arrows. Before she can recover, a massive, gray-skinned ogre-like monster lunges from the shadows, its powerful hand seizing her. She cries out in terror as it lifts her from the ground, pleading for her life. The monstrous creature grins, its sharp teeth glinting, proclaiming its hunger for elves. The bicolor mage surveys the chaotic battlefield, unaware of the lurking danger. His gaze falls upon the encroaching horde. As he engages the grotesque, lizard-like creatures, purple energy crackling around him. A desperate cry escapes his lips, as a powerful surge of dark purple energy slams into him, overwhelming his defenses. He collapses, incapacitated, surrounded by the monstrous forms, their predatory gazes fixed upon his fallen body. The lingering purple aura of the attack pulses ominously. The bicolor mage is violently thrown through the air, purple energy still swirling around him, before he crashes heavily to the ground, defeated and unmoving. A close-up reveals his own pained expression, alongside the red-haired student's shock and the professor's grim determination. Before a desperate voice calls out, "Evan!" Kneeling, Evan channels a surge of vibrant purple energy, causing the very ground beneath him to glow with an ethereal light, while Nero watches intently from behind. Elsewhere, a glowing, serrated blade is gripped firmly, ready to strike. As the tension mounts, the elf girl and another child watch the unfolding events with wide, focused eyes. The bicolor mage, Aru, holds a pulsating orb of purple energy, his gaze fixed as he prepares his next move. The desolate, rocky landscape stretches out, a silent witness to the impending magical onslaught. With a thunderous roar, Aru unleashes the stored power, a massive explosion of purple energy erupting around him. The sheer force of the blast tears through the air, a deafening shriek accompanying the devastating impact, as someone cries out, "Fiona!" As the smoke clears, Aru stands amidst the fading purple flames, his glowing sword now drawn and ready for the next confrontation. The bicolor mage tumbles through the air, purple energy swirling around him as if he's just been violently thrown. Yet, even mid-fall, he twists, regaining his balance with practiced ease. His hand instinctively finds the hilt of his blade, which ignites with a brilliant, ethereal glow. Now firmly on his feet, the bicolor mage faces down two grotesque, red-eyed monsters, his expression grim. With a swift, decisive motion, a searing blue-white energy slash erupts from his position, tearing through the air. The bicolor mage carves into one of the creatures with his glowing blade, while Professor A, staff in hand, moves to engage another. Professor A's face is set in fierce determination, his grip firm on his staff as he prepares his own attack. A burst of blue energy erupts from his weapon, striking a monster with concussive force. Together, the bicolor mage and Professor A fight back the monstrous horde, their combined might a formidable force against the encroaching darkness. A formidable group stands ready, among them the bicolor mage, Nero, the elf girl, Professor A, and Kundin, their combined presence a silent promise of resistance. As Professor A observes the unfolding situation, a familiar dread washes over him, a chilling echo from the past. He mutters, "It's the same as it was 30 years ago." Meanwhile, a monstrous voice booms. "At that time, I was powerless to do anything. But now, that's not the case. I won't let history repeat itself." The colossal, red-skinned creature lets out a guttural roar, its glowing red eyes fixed on its prey. Smaller, shadowy figures, like rabid hounds, screech and surge forward, their own red eyes glinting in the dim light. The large monster addresses Nero and Kundin. "I'll deal with the rest of my minions." Kundin, startled, can only utter, "What?" Then, turning its attention to the bicolor mage, who is already unleashing a wide, glowing energy slash from his sword against the smaller creatures, it declares, "You're the only one who can release large-scale attacks, so it's better for you to stop cursing with me." The bicolor mage unleashes a devastating purple energy attack, sweeping across the battlefield and engulfing the smaller monsters, who cry out in shock and fear, some pleading for mercy. The raw power of his magic intensifies, a concentrated wave of purple energy surging forward. It slams into a target with a sharp, resounding impact, the force rippling through the monster's form, sending it flying backward with a pained cry as the explosion erupts. The smaller monster is violently thrown back, screaming in agony. As the last vestiges of the attack dissipate, speed lines and lingering particles mark the rapid conclusion of the assault. The mage stands poised, his sword drawn and glowing, his gaze fixed on the next threat. Before him, the massive, shadowy monster looms, its dark presence dominating the space. Without hesitation, the bicolor mage unleashes a powerful blue energy attack, striking the large monster directly and eliciting a pained scream. The massive purple monster recoils from an unseen blow, as Nero, small and dark-clad, pleads for mercy. The creature, however, only grins, acknowledging the quality of the sword. His dark cloak fluttering, he prepares for another strike. His blade connects with the monster's arm, sending sparks flying. But the monster retaliates, lunging forward with immense power. Its massive arm swings down, a blur of purple muscle, catching the small figure in its wake. He collapses to the ground, clutching his stomach, a pained cry escaping his lips. From nearby, a voice filled with alarm calls out his name. The elf-eared girl watches, her face etched with deep concern. A blur of motion streaks across the ground. As the bicolor mage launches himself into the air, his form wreathed in crackling blue energy. He descends with blinding speed, a crimson aura flaring around him as he prepares his strike. Below, a towering purple monster stands its ground, its massive form glowing faintly with its own blue power. The mage connects with a powerful blow, his fist slamming into the monster's armored shoulder. The creature recoils slightly, a thought of surprise crossing its monstrous features. Undeterred, the mage follows up with another rapid strike, driving his attack home. But the monster is quicker than he anticipates, lashing out with a powerful blue energy counterattack. The force sends the mage flying, crashing hard onto the ground with a pained cry. As the bicolor mage lay defeated, the elf-eared girl knelt beside him, her voice filled with anguish as she called out his name. A fierce resolve hardened her expression. She knew she had to save him, no matter the cost. Her gaze unwavering, he was the only one she would protect. Standing defiantly over the injured bicolor mage, Nero confronted the towering purple monster and its smaller minions, ready to face the threat herself. With a powerful surge of blue energy, she unleashed a blast that struck the creature head-on. Her glowing blade followed swiftly, carving into the monster and drawing a pained screech. But the beast merely laughed, its massive form shrugging off the attacks with ease. Mocking her efforts, it lunged forward, a colossal fist aimed directly at her, demanding she die. The impact sent a shockwave through her, her face contorting in pain and disbelief. Despite the previous blow, Nero launches herself forward, her sword arcing with vibrant pink energy as she unleashes a powerful, sweeping attack against the monstrous foe. The monster grunts in discomfort, its form momentarily obscured by the impact of her relentless assault. Still reeling, it lets out a desperate plea as Nero's magic continues to hammer against its defenses. With a surge of power, she channels a potent spell, Fiona, through her blade, engulfing it in a brilliant purple aura. But the massive creature merely grins, its eyes glowing with malevolent amusement as it mocks her efforts. Kaha! Are you joking? Despite the relentless barrage from the young warrior, the cave monster stands firm, surrounded by its smaller minions, utterly untouched by her most powerful attacks. Then, with a sudden, brutal counterattack, the monster strikes, sending a spray of blood across the cavern. The force of the blow sends Nero reeling, her body flung backward as the bicolor mage cries out her name in alarm. Nero. She lies motionless on the ground, defeated and injured, as the bicolor mage stares down at her with a silent, worried expression. The echoes of the recent battle still reverberate, a blinding flash of lightning accompanied by a desperate plea for mercy. And the sharp, agonizing cry of defeat. He stands before a towering wall of churning water, a silent testament to the overwhelming force he just witnessed. A question forms in his mind, a whisper of doubt against the roar of the waves. Is he truly allowing himself to give up? But the thought is fleeting, a mere flicker before resolve hardens. He will not yield, he will keep resisting. With a determined step, he pushes forward, knowing that getting back on his feet, even after being knocked down, is the only path. His hand clenches, mana surging, ready to fight the standing waves. He will meet their power head-on and tag their strength. A brilliant burst of energy erupts around him, a clear sign of his renewed resolve. A faint purple energy begins to coalesce across the desolate, rocky terrain, spreading quickly into the golden-yellow canopy above. With a resounding roar of power, a massive purple aura swirls upwards, intensifying around the bicolor mage. As he charges forward, enveloped in a blinding surge of energy and speed, the raw power radiates outwards, causing glowing particles to swirl through the trees, leaving behind abstract streaks of light. Finally, he pauses, looking down with a determined, almost sinister smile, his eyes burning with an inner light. The bicolor mage, a magic swordsman, streaks across the desolate landscape, leaving a trail of vibrant purple energy in his wake. His speed is astonishing, a blur against the horizon as he continues his rapid flight, leaving behind a bewildered opponent. The monster, reeling from the mage's attack, clutches its head in frustration, roaring, "My head! I'll gouge you out. There's nothing left." Looking back over his shoulder, the bicolor mage offers a taunting challenge. "Go ahead." He continues, his voice carrying across the distance. "Don't think you'll find anything. I'm only a mage. What's in an armor, the size of a fingernail?" The monster remains behind, its massive form still seething with impotent rage, unable to pursue the rapidly disappearing mage. Meanwhile, Professor A, his brow furrowed in thought, observes the unfolding events with a serious expression. A voice, likely his own, offers a reassuring, if slightly unsettling, "Aha, don't worry." Nearby, a horned elder, leaning on a staff, speaks with a grave tone. He has gone too far. A new figure emerges, a powerful mage wreathed in crackling blue lightning, her staff held high as she unleashes a torrent of raw magical energy. The sheer force of the discharge illuminates the dark surroundings, sending brilliant arcs of electricity spiraling upward and showering the air with glowing particles. A piercing shriek echoes through the cavern as a group of gray, goblin-like creatures emerge from a cloud of white smoke, one of them calling out to their leader. Standing firm against them, a red-haired witch with pointed ears declares her authority, warning the invaders that they dare not trespass upon her domain. Her staff, adorned with a crimson gem, gleams faintly, while a bald, bearded warrior, surrounded by loyal bird-like creatures, rallies his forces, proclaiming that the time has come to strike back against the monsters who took their lives. With a swift beat of wings, one of the bird creatures darts forward. The two factions clash, a wave of gray goblins meeting the aerial assault of the bird creatures, as the witch and warrior prepare their own offensive, blue energy beginning to crackle around them. With a powerful surge, the red-haired witch and the bald warrior unleash their combined might, sending blasts of vibrant blue energy tearing through the ranks of the gray goblins. The goblins recoil, their forms distorting as sharp, crystalline blue structures erupt from their bodies, shattering them with devastating force. As the echoes of the recent battle faded, shards of blue energy still crackled and dissipated into the cold, snowy air. The landscape shifted, giving way to a dense forest ablaze with the vibrant hues of autumn. A brief, almost imperceptible transition, and the journey continued. Through the changing terrain, a sturdy wooden cart rumbled onward, carrying Nero, who lay unconscious, bathed in the soft glow of a green healing orb, while a blue-haired elf and a bicolor-haired mage watched over him, and a bald, bearded warrior expertly guided their path. The orb pulsed steadily above the young boy, its verdant light seeping into his form, mending what was broken. Beside him, the blue-haired elf let out a quiet sigh, her expression a mix of relief and weariness. Across from her, the bicolor-haired mage remained silent, his sharp gaze fixed on the recovering boy, a subtle tension in his posture. A small, knowing smile then touched the elf's lips, a silent acknowledgement of their shared burden and hope. The mage, in turn, offered no verbal response, his expression unreadable, yet his presence was a steadfast anchor. A blue-haired man with glasses looks on, his expression thoughtful. His gaze falls upon Nero, whose torso is wrapped in bandages, a vibrant blue gem pulsating gently against his skin. The gem itself glows with an ethereal light, a source of potent healing energy. Nearby, the blue-haired elf girl watches, her eyes wide with surprise. The scene shifts to a grand, ornate hall, where a red-haired witch stands on a high balcony, overlooking the vast space. Below her, the hall stretches out, with other robed figures visible on lower levels. She addresses the unseen crowd, her voice ringing out. The incident from 3 days ago is a prime example of such. Her expression tightens with urgency. Directly affect you as well? That is why you must get stronger. Secure the pillars of your future. A hand reaches forward, glowing with faint energy, as she declares, amongst us today. As the Academy's future is discussed, a new group is presented. 3 brave mages, heralded as the royal arm of monarchs. Descending into view, the trio steps forward, their presence commanding attention. These powerful individuals, it is declared, are destined to become a symbol for the future, a beacon for all to observe. Among them, the name Teresu of the Lunati's family rings out, formally introducing the blue-haired elf. Teresu stands poised, her blue eyes reflecting a quiet determination. From the assembled crowd, cheers erupt for Teresu, with Kundin and a red-haired student exclaiming their admiration for the Academy's idol. Another student, overwhelmed, joins the chorus of praise. Teresu, seemingly bashful, receives the adulation, as whispers of her attractiveness ripple through the onlookers. Meanwhile, the bicolor mage, standing beside her, is introduced with equally grand titles, the greatest descendant of Excanum and a member of the royal family. As the announcer's voice boomed, declaring, and last but not least, a young boy's face contorted in a mix of surprise and apprehension. Meanwhile, a red-haired witch, adorned in a flamboyant hat, wiped a bead of sweat from her brow, her expression equally fraught with anxiety. From a high balcony, she stared down at the boy, exclaiming, I'm about to get a heart attack, you little shit. As Nero could only stammer, oh. He stood alone in the vast academy courtyard, a tiny figure against the grand architecture, as a voice from the crowd suddenly cried out, Nero. The sound of the crowd swelled, a deep, resonant rumble echoing through the expansive space. As Kundin, the bearded instructor, threw his head back and cheered with gusto. Yeah, Nero, woohoo, Nero. Beside him, Teresu, the blue-haired elf, joined in the chorus, her voice ringing out, Nero, Nairu. As a nearby bystander wondered aloud, they are cheering him on. The cheers continued to echo across the vast courtyard, a wave of recognition washing over the small figure of Nero, his name repeated by countless voices. Finally, Kundin clapped Nero on the shoulder, a proud smile on his face, and declared, well, let's at least show respect for what he did. Let's go, Nero. As the blue-haired elf and Kundin look on, a collective shout echoes through the hall, calling out Nero's name. He senses a shift in the atmosphere, the way others perceive him beginning to change, their gazes no longer filled with disdain. Standing before Professor A and a red-haired student, Nero, Kundin, and the blue-haired elf are informed they will be receiving rewards for their recent deeds, a statement that elicits a surprised huh from the student. A slight smile plays on the professor's lips, his expression conveying satisfaction with the outcome. Nero, Kundin, and the blue-haired elf beam with joy, their faces alight with happiness at the recognition. And then, an unexpected announcement. Instead of the single artifact initially planned, they are to receive all 3 ornate, glowing boxes. A hand, adorned with a golden bracelet, reaches out, ready to claim one of the precious rewards. With their new treasures in hand, Nero, Kundin, and the blue-haired elf stand proudly, their smiles reflecting their triumph. He offers a sincere thanks to Evan for his help in the past, leaving the man momentarily confused, who questions what help he could possibly be referring to. A slight blush creeping onto his cheeks, he quickly dismisses the topic, mumbling to himself. As Evan walks away with a dismissive TSK, the young man reflects that he was merely testing the limits of his own power. The trio then proceeds down a grand, arched hallway, the blue-haired elf observing that Evan remains as he always was. From a distance, Professor A and a red-haired student watch them, the professor acknowledging them as the Academy's top students. As they continue their walk, the blue-haired elf's pointed ear twitches slightly. She glances back at Evan, who offers another quiet TSK as he follows behind. The three figures disappear into the distance, their forms growing smaller within the vast corridor. The Grand Academy hallway stands silent, awaiting the final examination, a survival test that will determine who passes. A hand extends, offering a rolled-up answer sheet, which the bicolor mage accepts with a soft rustle. The red-haired witch looks at him, her words a firm reminder to uphold his lineage as the proper descendant of Excanum. To which he assures her that by next year, he will truly become a man. The weight of his words seems to settle upon him, his expression troubled as he covers his eye. Later, under the moonlit sky, the academy buildings stand tall as a professor's instruction echoes, tasking someone to distribute something to everyone. The bicolor mage stands before Kundin, Nero, and the blue-haired elf, revealing the item to be a history book, prompting a question from one of them. He holds the heavy tome, the weight of the fourth exam settling upon him, a survival test demanding complete memorization of its contents within a single month. No outside help is permitted, so he and his companions gather in the great library, preparing to study together starting tomorrow. Even the Royal Library offers limited assistance, leaving Nero to stare at the daunting text. A sigh escapes him as he laments his own perceived inadequacy, feeling that if he, with his limited talents, struggles, then his friends must be even worse off. Later, walking through the academy's grand halls, the bicolor mage finds himself in conversation with the blue-haired elf. She turns to him, a hint of curiosity in her expression, asking if he has ever read anything about the elven family. He replies simply that he hasn't, explaining that his own family possesses no books on elven lore. As they share a meal, he clarifies that his question was born purely out of curiosity. The elf girl looks away, a slight flush on her cheeks, realizing her earlier assumption was mistaken. As he pores over the dense text, a wave of self-doubt washes over Nero, wondering if his talent is truly enough to commit all of this to memory. He questions if his reserves are deep enough to master the entire book, a daunting task that weighs heavily on his young mind. Around him, the others, including Kundin, the bicolor mage, and the blue-haired elf, continue their focused study, each immersed in their own texts. The rigorous schedule demands that once one book is completed, another immediately begins, a relentless pace for the students. Among them, the bicolor mage observes Nero, recognizing the immense, unrivaled talent that lies within the young boy. After a moment of intense concentration, a blinding light erupts before him, causing his eyes to glow with an ethereal violet hue as a faint, high-pitched sound echoes. He then finds himself walking towards a massive, fortified gate, a heavy cart trailing behind him. Past two burly men who eye him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. As he approaches the gate, one of the armored guards barks a command, to which he meekly replies, "Why yes, sir." The heavy wooden wheels of the cart groaning loudly as they turn. Later, he sits with two other men, resting by a makeshift fire, the day's journey clearly weighing on them all. A blue-haired companion questions Nero about the second queen of Noria, to which he confirms the textbook's account. The companion dismisses Nero's concern, insisting he could never forget such a crucial historical detail. Elsewhere, a man with dark hair, smoking, observes the scene with a wry comment. Nero, still on the cart, looks down in confusion. His blue-haired companion presses him further, incredulous that he's unaware of the woman who nearly destroyed the world, then asks if he's relaxed. Nero reacts with visible distress, his hand clutching his head. The dark-haired man, now closer, echoes the question with a sharp tone, demanding if they think he and his companions are easy targets. Nero, looking up at the man, finally addresses him by name, Mr. Sarbat, questioning his aggressive demeanor. Sarbat, his face stern, reveals he has special permission from the Fire's family. Mr. Sarbat's voice rings with authority, reminding him that the Fire's family now holds dominion over the slums. A silent gasp escapes him, the weight of the words settling heavily upon his young face. Leaving the encounter behind, he walks through the desolate streets, a lone shoe lying discarded as a testament to the area's harsh reality. He glances back once more, a lingering sense of unease clinging to him as he continues his journey. Suddenly, two small figures rush towards him, their excited calls of Appa, cutting through the quiet street, catching him completely by surprise. One of the girls, her face streaked with tears, cries out his name again, her voice filled with desperate longing. Recognition dawns on him, a wave of shock and joy washing over his features as he exclaims, "Wendy." He pulls both girls into a tight embrace, their small forms clinging to him in a moment of heartfelt reunion. Looking down at them, he muses on how much they've grown, becoming such fine young ladies. Nero finds himself surrounded by the two young girls, their playful banter filling the air as one proudly declares her growth. While the other, Hannah, confirms her friend's observation, looking up at him with a smile. A moment later, one of the girls softly calls his name, pulling him from his thoughts. A stern voice then cuts through the air, informing him that his master is calling for him, to which he dutifully responds. The summons leads him to an imposing, ornate door, its intricate carvings hinting at the power within. But before he can even approach, a dark, feathered projectile, crackling with ominous energy, is launched with deadly precision. It strikes him with brutal force, sending a shockwave of pain through his body. The impact sends him sprawling to the ground, his form crumpled and defeated. From within, a stern-faced man emerges, his brow furrowed in anger as he berates the unseen attacker, demanding to know why his man was treated so informally. Still reeling from the attack and the master's fury, Nero could only plead for mercy, a stark reminder of the harsh treatment he endured. His master, the stern man, stood with his back to the room, his voice cutting through the silence, demanding to know why Nero dared to talk back, like a filthy slave who had forgotten his place. He continued, his tone laced with contempt, asking if Nero believed himself a tiger, simply because he was allowed to live among them. Kneeling on the cold floor, Nero could only bow his head further, begging for forgiveness, convinced he deserved death for his perceived transgressions. The stern man's gaze sharpened, demanding to know how Nero possessed such knowledge, but Nero insisted he was speaking the truth. With a chilling certainty, the master reminded him of the fate awaiting those who harmed others, and those who were responsible for the demise of his own kin. Meanwhile, in a different, more opulent setting, the bicolor mage stood alone, his attention drawn to a softly glowing orb. Back with his master, Nero listened as the stern man revealed that the attacker remained unfound, a fact that allowed Nero to live another day, though he pleaded with his master not to seek out the culprit, fearing further punishment for himself. But the master was resolute, knowing the truth would surface regardless, while in another moment, the bicolor mage gripped Nero by the collar, accusing him of holding back during the recent confrontation. A young Nero, desperate and vulnerable, pleads for mercy. From a window, Sarbot dismisses the plea, stating, "That's not going to do anything." He continues, revealing his sinister intent. "I'm still going to offer to buy your sisters." The words hang heavy in the rain-soaked air. As Sarbot's tongue flicks out, a predatory gesture, and he adds, "And I'm going to." Nero cries out in anguish, but a defiant thought hardens his resolve. "That's what you think. I'm not going to have any trouble doing something like that." Sarbot, still at the window, clarifies his motives. "In any case, that's not the reason why I'm buying them." He casually holds a cup, the rain dripping outside. As Nero's desperate voice cuts through the air, offering a counterproposal, "There is no reason for you to waste your money buying both of them, good sir." On his knees, the young boy pleads desperately, offering himself in exchange for his sisters, promising to work harder and be worth twice as much as anyone could want. His hands clenched, he vows that he will do everything without question. A raw scream of anguish tears from his throat. As rain begins to fall, Sarbot, a cruel smile playing on his lips, asks a chilling question. If he would kill anyone he was told to. Isolated and small in the downpour, the boy's voice is barely a whisper as he agrees, promising to do so. Tears stream down his face as he commits to the terrible vow, to kill anyone he is commanded to. A chilling smile spreads across Sarbot's face as he presses for confirmation, asking if the boy truly promises. With a broken expression, the boy reiterates his promise. The scene fades to a quiet, ominous sunset over the town, leaving the weight of the boy's vow hanging heavy in the air. The morning sun casts long shadows over the quiet town, a stark contrast to the turmoil unfolding within one of its humble homes. As Nero prepares to leave, his younger sisters cling to him, their small voices filled with desperate pleas for him to stay. With a heavy heart, he offers them a final, hollow promise, walking away with Sarbot as their cries fade behind him. Sarbot, meanwhile, muses on the economics of his grim trade, noting that while female slaves fetch a higher price, male slaves offer a more consistent, long-term profit through their labor. A chilling smirk plays on his lips as he concludes that money, unlike fleeting desires, is eternal. As night falls over the town, Sarbot finds satisfaction in his new acquisition. Inside a dimly lit room, Sarbot greets Nero with a chilling declaration, calling him his new friend as the boy stands vulnerable and unclothed. The vast, indifferent sky stretches above, a silent witness to the boy's fate. Nero, now dressed, walks away from the viewer, his mind reeling from the revelation that this isn't slavery, but a new job, a distinction that offers little comfort as he lets out a pained cry. Under the watchful eye of Sarbot, Nero toils, digging a grave in the harsh earth, his small frame already burdened by the weight of his new reality. Sarbot, observing the boy's relentless effort, remarks that he has been working since 3 a.m, a testament to the grueling schedule imposed upon him. Later, his body aching with exhaustion, Nero struggles to carry a heavy sack, the weight pressing down on his small shoulders as the day wears on. Even as night falls and he finally collapses into a fitful sleep, Sarbot stands over him, confirming that the boy has yet to truly rest. The cycle continues, with Nero found bruised and collapsed on the ground the next day, as Sarbot recounts his continued labor from 6 a.m, emphasizing his unbroken toil. As another day dawns, the exhausted boy pushes himself to run, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he continues his relentless journey. Sarbot raises his whip high, its shadow falling over the small figure on the ground. Nearby, the bicolor mage acknowledges a command, agreeing to cease his actions for the night. With a heavy thud, Sarbot's boot steps forward. He approaches the bicolor mage, who stands with his back to the wall. Sarbot's grip tightens on the whip, his thoughts consumed by the money he has lost. The bicolor mage, however, defiantly expresses his unwillingness to be cast out. Returning his attention to Nero, who remains on the ground, Sarbot reminds the child of his inherently cruel nature. Suddenly, Nero's hand flares with vibrant violet energy, causing the bicolor mage to cry out in pain and shock, as if struck by an unseen force. Still on the ground, Nero endures the crack of a whip as Sarbot looms over him, his voice dripping with contempt. He grabs the boy by the collar, pulling him close, and declares that the satisfaction of his suffering grows on him. With a cruel smirk, Sarbot reveals the ultimate truth. He was the one who murdered Nero's mother. The words hit Nero like a physical blow, leaving him speechless and utterly stunned. Sarbot continues, savoring the boy's pain, describing how he tortured her to death. As if to punctuate his cruelty, a small, glowing purple orb materializes in his hand, pulsing with ominous energy. But the torment pushes Nero past his breaking point, and with a guttural scream, a surge of violet energy erupts from his hand, striking Sarbot. Sarbot's hand, now crackling with the same purple energy, tightens around the orb, challenging the boy to try and stop him. Far from the confrontation, a grand, domed building stands silently under the night sky. Leaving the grand, domed structure behind, Nero walks with a determined stride, her cloak billowing gently in the unseen breeze. Her thoughts drift to a crucial item, the pendant that holds her name, a vital link to her identity. Peeking cautiously around a corner, she seems to be searching for someone or something. A frustrated sigh escapes her as she confronts a companion, demanding to know why the pendant, inscribed with her name, wasn't simply discarded. Before she can finish her instructions to retrieve it, a voice calls out, interrupting her mid-sentence. Her attention is drawn away, as shimmering green particles begin to coalesce around her, forming ethereal arcs of light in the air. With a soft whisper, she channels the verdant energy, her hands glowing brightly as she shapes the magic. From the swirling light, a tiny, luminous fairy-like creature takes form, resting gently in her open palms. With a soft, ethereal glow, the blue-haired elf completes her invocation, gently cradling the newly summoned wind spirit in her hands. Meanwhile, under the cloak of night, two figures make their escape from a grand, imposing structure. They soon find themselves on a desolate hill, one of them leaning on a staff as the other gazes intently at something on the ground. There, a shovel lies half-buried, next to a small, faintly glowing red object. Nearby, Kundin holds a book, questioning Sarbot about their instructions, who simply reminds him that he was told to burn it. As Kundin's hand hovers over the ancient tome, a soft purple light begins to emanate from its pages. The book then lifts into the air, enveloped by a swirling aura of vibrant green magic. The green energy surges outward, engulfing Kundin in its unexpected power. He stares in disbelief as the book transforms into a glowing, rectangular artifact, uttering a shocked exclamation. Two cloaked figures move through a dark, ethereal space, one reaching out with a hand glowing green towards a shimmering object, urgently demanding its retrieval. Meanwhile, a sudden shock ripples through Kundin, his eyes widening in surprise as he stands cloaked in dark robes, his appearance now that of a mature man. Without hesitation, he begins to draw his sword, the hilt emerging from its sheath with a determined pull. Across from him, the blue-haired elf, her expression stern, declares their actions nothing short of treason. Her own hand grips the hilt of a sword, a faint purple glow emanating from the blade as she prepares for conflict. Kundin's grip tightens on his weapon, the purple energy now more pronounced as he asserts that they cannot simply stand by and talk. A sudden shift in time reveals a younger Kundin, his blonde hair contrasting with his current dark locks, as he angrily grabs Sarbot by the collar, demanding to know if he understands the law. His face contorted in rage, the young Kundin warns of the severe consequences for a slave who kills their master, threatening the extinction of their entire family. In a harrowing flashback, a young Kundin lies on the ground, his face contorted in anguish, as he holds a small, blonde-haired boy. The child, Nero, is forced to repeat, "I am nothing more than garbage. I am a slave." Above them, a whip cracks, its cruel sound punctuating the child's forced confession, as the man wielding it demands, "I am a slave." A cruel smile spreads across the man's face, as he continues his torment, "I am nothing." Another sharp crack of the whip echoes, striking the child, and eliciting a pained cry. The man with the whip sneers, calling the child a liar, and again, the child is forced to repeat, "I am nothing." The whip descends once more, and the child's voice, now barely a whisper, echoes, "I am nothing more than garbage." With another painful impact, the child's final, desperate words are forced out, "I am a slave." Back in the present, Kundin stands before the blue-haired elf, his expression grim, confirming her accusation with a resolute, "Yes, that's correct. It is treason." Meanwhile, in another part of the present, a stern man sits at a desk, looking down at Sarbot, who kneels before him, demanding to know, "How did you guys come to this point?" The bicolor mage stands before a gray-haired man, who expresses concern that the emperor might hear of their actions. He trails off, leaving the implication hanging in the air, as the mage remains silent. The bicolor mage's red eyes narrow slightly, as he considers the gravity of the situation. The gray-haired man continues, his voice laced with disbelief, reminding him that this was their only option. Elsewhere, the blue-haired elf clenches her jaw, a frustrated "you bastard," escaping her lips. The bicolor mage moves with urgency, his cloaked form blurring through the halls. He arrives to find a striking pink-haired woman awaiting him, her gaze sharp and commanding. Behind them, an ornate door stands closed, its heavy presence suggesting a finality. The pink-haired woman declares with a confident smirk that now that they've made it this far, there will be no more eliminations. The pink-haired woman, clad in a sheer robe, confronts the bicolor mage, reminding him of their agreement. "Since you did everything that I've told you," she begins, her voice laced with expectation, "this headmistress will be yours. You fight right." Elsewhere, the blue-haired elf's eyes widen in shock and fury, her expression contorted as she overhears a devastating revelation. "He made a deal with the headmistress? You fucking bastard." Back in the private chamber, the pink-haired woman observes the bicolor mage's stunned silence, a hint of confusion crossing her features. "What's wrong? Why are you so shocked?" she asks, a touch of vulnerability in her tone. "This is the first time a man has ever rejected me." She reaches out, her hand gently touching his arm, her gaze searching his face for an answer. The bicolor mage finally speaks, his voice quiet and firm. I already have someone I like." Leaning closer, the pink-haired woman's expression hardens slightly, her question sharp and direct. "Am I wrong?" Her face inches from his, her red eyes piercing. She demands, "Be honest with me." He recoils slightly, his face etched with distress, his resolve wavering. "No, I really can't do this." A cold, possessive smile spreads across her lips as she delivers her ultimatum. "Okay, then you can't have this person. If you can't, then I'll have him." He stands over the injured figure, a red-haired man writhing on the ground, his body still crackling with residual pink energy from the attack. A cold smirk plays on his lips as the man on the ground cries out, Please spare me." He simply stares down at the pleading man, his silence a stark contrast to the chaos around them. Elsewhere, the blue-haired elf watches on, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and concern. The night has fallen over the grand building, its windows glowing softly. Back at the scene, the bicolor mage presses his foot down, firmly pinning the injured man to the ground. The man's face contorts in agony and desperation, begging, Please, give me some food." While the mage's expression remains unyielding. He extends a hand, not in aid, but to emphasize his words, declaring, "But you broke my deal, and I'll give it to you." The injured man continues to cry out, his pleas for sustenance echoing in the night. Meanwhile, in a different chamber, the blue-haired elf stands with two companions, observing the unfolding events with a quiet intensity. A single tear, or perhaps a drop of blood, streaks down a bruised face, a silent testament to the pain inflicted. Back with the confrontation, the bicolor mage's fury intensifies, his hand crackling with dark purple energy as he snarls, demanding to know what was just said. Without hesitation, he brings the whip down, the sharp crack echoing as it strikes the man, who cries out in agony. The victim's cry is met by a chillingly calm smile from a man with glasses, his eyes glowing with a soft blue light as he observes the scene. The whip, a symbol of authority, is now wielded by someone who has risen through the ranks, having become an official officer of the Bio Empire. The beaten man, now addressing the smiling figure, pleads for recognition of his status, reminding him that he is merely a commoner and cannot simply be assaulted. As the commoner bows in deference, the man with glasses is addressed respectfully as Professor. The punishment for assaulting an officer, he muses, is death. A cold smirk plays across the professor's lips. As the brutal, spiked bat, a tool of his grim judgment, is brought into focus. Nero, battered and bleeding, clutches the weapon, his face contorted in pain and desperation. A sharp, cracking sound echoes. A stern, blue-haired man in glasses stands over Nero, asking why he shouldn't be left to rest while the other is still up. Nero looks down, his expression troubled, as he thinks about his mother, who died because of him. A wave of distress washes over him, the memory of his mother's death clearly agonizing. His eyes narrow in fury, the words, "that bastard," escaping his lips. As he recalls the man who put poison in his father's medicine to kill him, the blue-haired man continues, revealing that the same individual bought Nero's mother to rape her and beat her to death. Enraged by the horrific truth, Nero swings a wooden bat with all his might, the sheer force of his anger propelling the strike. As the young boy's rage boiled over, the stern man reacted instantly, a small, glowing object appearing in his hand as he declared he would never allow such an affront. But before he could act, a surge of brilliant blue energy erupted, crackling through the air. And in an instant, the stern man found himself ensnared by glowing azure chains, his struggle futile against the sudden, overwhelming force. The source of this power, a man with striking bicolor hair, held his hand outstretched, a steady blue glow emanating from his palm. Even as the spiked wooden bat, which the young boy had wielded in his fury, lay discarded nearby. The boy himself was now bound, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and lingering defiance. But even in his restraints, he managed to land a blow, sending the stern man recoiling with a pained cry. Finally, the bicolor mage stood victorious, the stern man incapacitated on the ground, while the young boy lay subdued nearby, the conflict brought to a swift end. With the situation under control, he simply stood, calm and composed, his hands resting casually in his pockets. After the chaos, a bandaged arm, likely from the recent struggle, rests in the quiet aftermath. Outside, the sky stretches in a serene expanse, unaware of the tension brewing within. Inside, Nero takes a moment to drink, while Kundan sits nearby, but soon, he is seen gripping a heavy bat, his resolve hardening. A bag drops to the floor with a dull thud, the sound echoing the gravity of the situation. Nero stands over the bound figure of the stern man, bat in hand, a silent judgment hanging in the air. The stern man's face is a mask of pain and fear, bruised and bloodied from the earlier encounter. Looking down at his captive, Nero declares, "I still have some things to take care of." The stern man, his voice hoarse with desperation, pleads, "Please, you want me to give you another chance?" Nero's gaze remains unwavering as he responds, "No." His face streaked with blood, the young boy pleads for mercy, while an unseen voice berates him for the scare he caused. Nearby, the stern man lies unconscious, his lips split and face bruised, a silent testament to the brutal exchange. A dark, ominous silhouette looms over the scene, its presence casting a long shadow. From the blood-splattered ground, the blue-haired elf walks away, her back to the carnage. Behind her, a body lies impaled by a sword, a grim casualty of the recent violence. The young man with the distinctive white streak in his hair also departs, his gaze fixed on the ground, lost in thought. Observing the aftermath, the bicolor mage offers a stark warning, advising against succumbing to the influence of that thing. Still present, the blond boy's face reflects a deep-seated fear, the trauma of the events etched into his expression. Nero struggles, his face etched with pain as he clutches the splintered remains of a wooden club. Behind him, a dark-haired figure observes the scene. As the broken weapon lies discarded, the sound of splintering wood echoes, leaving two shattered clubs on the cold ground. Later, in a stark, dimly lit room, the bicolor mage turns away from Professor A, who sits patiently at a desk. His red eyes gleam with an intense, unyielding gaze. As Nero remains bound to a chair, head bowed in defeat, a pained groan escapes him. Looking up, he hears the bicolor mage's stern words. "Now, this is what happens when you don't report the world tree to the academy. Being complacent will lead to your demise." The bicolor mage looms over him, his expression a cold, calculating mask as Nero endures the harsh reality of his situation. His face contorted in a grimace, Nero is reminded that lies carry consequences. Meanwhile, the stern man finds himself bound against a wall, the bicolor mage standing over him, demanding answers. A chilling wind sweeps through the air, carrying with it the unspoken arrogance of those who believe they possess everything. High above the clouds, Nero soars through the sky, riding a massive winged creature. Beside him, Professor A confirms a crucial detail, revealing that the informant was Evan. The conversation shifts to a glowing book, a symbol of the Akado's family's influence, as they discuss how the family owns the very printing shops used for such documents. Nero, still aboard the creature, questions the implications, wondering if there's any way to counter such pervasive power. Professor A's expression hardens, acknowledging the grim reality of their situation. The vast sky stretches endlessly above them, a silent testament to the overwhelming might of those who are simply too powerful to challenge. She floats high above a grand hall, her luminous wings spread wide, as a banner unfurls below, proclaiming the arrival of the promised ones of the great Lunati's family. Below, a group of young individuals, including Nero, Professor A, and Kundan, gaze up in awe, their faces reflecting the weight of the title, the promised. Later, as the group disperses, Nero confides in Professor A and Kundan, admitting her reservations. "I'm sorry, but I don't think I can do it." Her gaze falls, burdened by the task ahead, repeating, "I don't think I can do it." Meanwhile, the winged Nero reassures her, explaining that all of that stuff will be handled by the professor. "You'll be fine." Kundan, walking with Professor A, confirms the plan, adding that because of your ancient magic, the professor said that your slave will be a great help. The winged Nero continues to encourage her younger self, promising, "Everything will work out. You'll be able to get your revenge for the next war soon, Nero." Nero stands silently beside Professor A, her expression unreadable. As Kundan smiles, Nero lets out a startled cry, a sudden realization or shock washing over her. A voice echoes, dismissing a claim about the Lunati's family, insisting it couldn't be true. The speaker continues, asserting that the Lunati's family alone possesses the ancient magic. Meanwhile, a grand, ornate building stands before a gathering of many figures, their forms indistinct in the distance. Among them, a blonde-haired man in a pristine white uniform smirks, observing the scene and remarking on how busy they have been. The blue-haired elf, her expression thoughtful, listens intently. Turning to someone unseen, she asks if they know the blonde man. The blonde man and another individual with striking bicolor hair stand silently, their gazes fixed on the blue-haired elf, who returns their stare. The tense silence continues as the blonde man and the blue-haired elf maintain their unspoken exchange. The blue-haired elf stands in a grand, ornate hall, her gaze fixed on the blonde-haired man before her. He considers her words, a slight frown on his face, before she questions the very nature of their family's ancient magic, wondering what it truly was. Her expression shifts, a blush creeping onto her cheeks, as she seems caught off guard by his presence. He observes her closely, commenting on her appearance. A moment of silence passes between them, before he softly utters her name, Nero. Reaching out, he takes her hand, confiding that he has something important to tell her. Just as he begins to speak, a stern, gray-haired man appears behind him, interrupting their private moment. Nero's eyes widen in surprise, her expression reflecting the sudden shift in atmosphere. The gray-haired man continues, explaining that he felt extremely guilty after her disqualification, and that he felt bad about it. The blonde-haired man turns to the stern figure, questioning why he would feel guilty. He then faces Nero, admitting it was something he should have revealed much sooner. Holding a shimmering pendant, he reveals the truth of her lineage. Nero is a half-elf from Hula's family, one of the 3 great families of Noria. The weight of this revelation hangs between them, as they stand in quiet contemplation.